Published by Web Novel. Chapter 1 Xuanyuan. Ping Yu, 27 steps, C-grade talent. A tall, young man, his skin tanned and coarse, jumped up and down celebrating, enjoying the feeling of admiration and envy from all the others in his village. Like the vast majority of all 15-year-olds, Ping Yu dreamt of being a GU master. His parents had told him stories and legends of GU masters, capable of severing the skies and destroying the mountains. GU masters were those who could connect with GU, mystical creatures capable of releasing fire and lightning, transforming coal into gold, and living for hundreds, if not thousands of years. In the eyes of mortals, GU masters were synonymous with wealth and glory, and as of right this instant, Ping Yu himself was no longer a mortal. Turning to the others in line, Ping Yu unconsciously raised his head, smirking while enjoying the admiration and envy he received from the others in his village. He had always thought that Yu, the daughter of the village elder, was quite beautiful. Maybe, if he played his cards right, then he could perhaps sway her father and convince him to marry her to him. Oi kid, move aside so I can continue with the awakening ceremony. Kids these days, thinking that AC rank talent is anything special. Ping Yu jumped slightly, before bowing and moving out of the way. His dreams of becoming a powerful GU master were nothing if he couldn't impress the man in front of him. Yes, senior brother, I apologize for the inconvenience. Ping Yu bowed once more, earning a strange look from the GU master. Doesn't this kid know that the ancient soul sect only recruits B-grade talents or higher? Whatever, all the other sects in this region are subsidiaries of the ancient soul sect. He'll be given to whichever sect is desperate enough for new disciples. The GU master, wearing the robes belonging to a member of the ancient soul sect, just let out a little sigh before shaking his head. Hopefully I can find at least a couple of B-grade talents. I've almost got enough contribution points to exchange for a new rank 3 shifting sands GU. If I find just 3, no, maybe even just 2 new members, I think I should have enough. The GU master gestured for the next child to step forward. Unfortunately, he was met with only disappointment. Kai Fengyue, 8 steps, no talent. Long Chen, 15 steps, D-grade talent. Bing Chu, 4 steps, no talent. Shi Chao, 29 steps, C-grade talent. Xu Yuli, 31 steps, B-grade talent. The crowd went silent, staring at the single girl whose talent exceeded all the others that came before her. The young girl, short, slightly stocky, with calluses around her hands and feet, instantly shrunk under the gazes of all the other villagers before feeling the large hand of the GU master on her shoulder. The girl, Xu Yuli, felt a small tingle on her shoulder from where he touched her and heard him breathe a sigh of relief before gesturing to the spot behind him. Stand over there, he whispered. You're a member of the ancient soul sect now. Xu Yuli's eyes widened before she nodded vigorously, a wide smile adorning her face. The same sense of pride and accomplishment that filled Ping Yu had now filled the young girl, her parents waving at her, causing her to smile and wave back, soaking up the envious gazes from the other young villagers. The GU master nodded for a moment before gesturing for the next person to come forward. Glancing back towards the crowd, the man raised his brow as he watched a tall, scraggly-looking young man step forward. A slight whiff in the air sent a wave of revulsion throughout the crowd, and even the ancient soul sect GU master couldn't help but frown as his eyes roamed over the figure that stepped forward. His clothes were torn and dirtied from mud, excrement, blood, or some other substance. The boy's feet were bare, but the faint outlines of scars could be seen all over his hands and lower legs. Despite all this, he was surprisingly tall, almost the same height as the GU master, despite there being more than a decade between them. Is he a beggar? No, everyone in the village has the same reaction. They all look at this boy with revulsion and disgust. Perhaps I should inform members of the righteous. No, mortal affairs are none of my concern. The GU master watched as one of the other boys spat at the ground in front of the beggar-looking boy, seeing that the boy said or did nothing as he calmly walked through the saliva, striding forth towards the field of hope GU. The member of the ancient soul sect couldn't help but feel his mouth drop as the boy strode through the field of hope GU, taking one step after the other, watching as the small light of hope GU grew brighter and brighter, swirling and gathering around the boy as if reuniting with a long-lost friend. 10 steps and the glow had exceeded that of a campfire, a feeling of warmth and joy emanating from the swirling hope GU. 20 steps and the light of hope GU had become a raging fire, burning bright and with an intensity that almost seared the skin. With every step he took, hope GU after hope GU would enter his body, gathering 3 inches below the navel, swatting away predicament after predicament. The emotions in his heart were suppressed by the sensation of hope GU filling up his mind, body, and soul. 30 steps and the mortal crowd could no longer stare at the young beggar without covering or narrowing their eyes. The predicaments in their heart became twisted and tore at them, trying to resist the light of hope GU. 40 steps and the boy had started to slow down. Hope GU swirled around him, a veritable hurricane of light and warmth. Their strain on his mind, body, and soul had started to accumulate, but he could feel that he hadn't reached his limits yet. 45 steps. 46 steps. 47 steps. 48 steps. The breath of the GU master hitched, his eyes already wide from the sheer amount of hope GU floating around him. It was as if the predicaments of the earth and sky were being pushed away by the light of hope GU. Wind and rain were facets of the heavens and the earth, but predicaments were maladies of the heart. A certain line from the legend of Renzu popped up within the GU master's mind, and a bubble that had plagued him for so long had suddenly popped. 49 steps. There is no way that one of them is here. The chances of someone finding them, through the 3 worlds, is 50 steps. The GU master dropped the jade board in his hands, watching as the young man suddenly fell to his knees, the hope inside his heart extinguished, and the limits of reality had started to return. Shaking his head, he couldn't help but let out a small chuckle before activating one of his GU and instantly appearing by the side of the young beggar-looking boy. His eyes were drawn to his limbs, as well as the torn clothes and faint scars across his extremities. A frown suddenly marred his expression. Turning back towards the crowd, the GU master narrowed his eyes, not at all hiding his rank 3 GU master cultivation. Where is this boy's family? He questioned. The crowd went silent. Each of the villagers lowered their heads slightly, not daring to look up at the GU master. Watching their squirming figures and twisted expressions, the GU master felt his emotions soar, glancing back for a moment at the young beggar. Where is your family, young man? He asked. Raising his head, the young man gazed up at the older GU master, his eyes not once blinking, nor once faltering from the direct eye contact. The young boy's eyes were dark, colorless almost. They weren't devoid of emotion or desire, but the color was so dark that he could almost completely make out his own reflection in the boy's eyes. They're all dead, honored GU master. I buried them myself, the boy replied. And these scars, who gave them to you? The crowd could instantly feel the burst of emotions that the GU master let out. His anger simmering, almost towards its breaking point as the young boy pointed towards the crowd. They did, honored GU master, pointing directly at the boy who spat at him. The boy in question froze, a pale sweat covering his back as he looked toward the others in the crowd. He's lying, he's just a lowly beggar, a wild vagrant, he could have gotten those scars from anywhere. Are you seriously going to believe him over all of us? The rank 3 GU master narrowed his eyes, focusing the brunt of his cultivation base on the single young boy. The boy immediately fell to his knees, a formidable, invisible power pushing him deeper into the ground. The other villagers immediately retreated several steps, their eyes fearfully gazing at the GU master more than a dozen paces away. His expression twisted as if he had tasted something foul and rotten. Of course, I believe him. A single finger of this young man is more valuable than the entirety of this village. The most talented of you is a single girl with a 60% primeval essence aperture. That is a barely BB grade talent. On the other hand, this young man here, he pointed towards the tall, beggar-looking boy. His talent is the peak of a grade, a 99% primeval essence aperture. Do you know what this means? His talent is only exceeded by the 10 extreme physiques. There are only 10 people in this world whose talent is greater. And you all tried too. Please stop, honored GU master. A single voice pierced through his anger, causing his expression to become aggrieved as he turned back toward the young man. Is something the matter? Do you have any injuries or other grievances you would like to air out? His tone was polite, the same way an older brother would dote over their younger sibling. The young man shook his head, his eyes still dark, yet clear. There is no point in wasting your time with them. You are a GU master of the righteous path, unable to interfere with the affairs of mortals. You will only be punished for attacking them. The GU master paused for a moment before smiling and shaking his head. You're more than worth the effort, young man. If I informed the elders after arriving at the sect about this, then I would surely be punished for not doing more. Exacting justice is the duty of the 10 great sects, and as a member of the ancient soul sect, I cannot ignore evil in this world. The young man opened his mouth to speak but was cut off by the GU master. Do not worry about them, I will not harm them, but I will definitely inform the mortal authorities of their actions. The GU master watched as the young man nodded, smiling slightly at his words. Thank you, honored GU master. Please, there is no need for such formalities. My name is Tang San, please, call me Senior Brother Tang. The boy's smile grew larger, making his appearance seem much more tolerable, despite his abhorrent clothing. Thank you, Senior Brother Tang. Just call me Xuanyuan. No family name? Xuanyuan shook his head, replying softly. My family is gone. There is nothing left but my memories and the name they gave me. Tang San nodded, not understanding the meaning behind his words. The 15-year-old just smiled at the older man, before gazing inwardly toward his primeval essence C. The 99% primeval essence C, filled to almost the brim with flickering faint copper-green primeval essence. I wonder who will come out on top, with another otherworldly demon in existence. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by Web Novel. Chapter 2 Wisp. Xuanyuan, when we get to the ancient soul sect, I'll take you straight to see Elder Luo. He is one of the elders in charge of the Outer Soul Hall, specifically, the Earth Soul Hall. He will be the one to induct you into the sect, and teach you how to cultivate and nurture GU. Xuanyuan nodded at Tang San's words. I understand, Senior Brother Tang. After leaving Greengrass Village, Tang San had immediately taken Xuanyuan under his wing. Of the 4 dozen or so youths in Greengrass Village, only 2 others had B-grade talents. One was the girl whom went directly before Xuanyuan, Chu Yuli. And the other was a short, round-looking young man by the name of Lu Guo. These 2 were also recruited by Senior Brother Tang, and both decided to accompany him to the ancient soul sect, despite Senior Brother Tang completely ignoring them for the vast majority of the trip. While both of them grew up in a village away from any sects, neither was stupid enough to choose a subsidiary sect over one of the 10 great sects of the central continent. The ancient soul sect, one of the oldest sects in the central continent, was also one of the most secretive amongst the 10 great sects. Despite the fact that there are sects whose renown and strength echoed throughout the land, none of them compared to any of the 10 great sects. Neither one wanted to ruin their future, just because they had a disagreement with a GU master their own age. They didn't completely understand what the difference between a B-grade talent and an A-grade talent was, but surely with enough hard work, they could try and bridge the distance between the two. Xuanyuan glanced at Lu Guo and Chu Yuli, not even so much as blinking before moving his gaze out towards the horizon. It's been more than a decade since I was reborn in the GU world. After awakening here I have been forced to live like a beggar, without the assistance or the presence of parents or family. I was honestly planning on killing myself if I didn't awaken a GU master talent, but to think I would awaken a talent envied by all GU masters. Xuanyuan smiled wryly, shaking his head before moving his gaze back towards Tang San. Senior Brother Tang, could I trouble you with a question? He asked. The older GU master lifted his head slightly and nodded, not breaking his meditation. Who was the last immortal venerable? I've heard stories about Genesis Lotus Immortal Venerable and Giant Sun Immortal Venerable, but who are the others after them? Lu Guo and Chu Yuli, after hearing the question about legendary GU immortals, both perked up, lifting their heads and quietly gazed towards Senior Brother Tang. The rank 3 GU master merely nodded, before quietly replying. The death of Giant Sun Immortal Venerable signaled the end of the medieval antiquity era. Following him was Spectral Soul Demonic Venerable and Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable. These 2 were born during the late antiquity era, but the death of the latter signaled the beginning of our era, the current era. Some refer to it as the modern era, but it is usually the 10 great sects that name the era. Xuanyuan nodded. The current era, I see. Thank you, Senior Brother Tang. The older man merely nodded before resuming his meditation. He had let his emotions get the better of him in Greengrass Village, and needed to calm himself and suppress his emotions so that they didn't distract him during his future cultivation sessions. Xuanyuan gazed back out towards the landscape, watching as the rank 3 sandworm GU he sat upon traveled at a surprisingly quick pace. The ancient soul sect was located in the far west of the central continent, and guarded the heavenly chi wall between the central continent and the western desert. If Xuanyuan was being completely honest, his knowledge on the western desert and the central continent was the worst of the 5 regions. As an otherworldly demon, his knowledge on the GU world exceeded that of any regular mortal, and even other otherworldly demons. I am born in the same era as Feng Yuan. I should just automatically assume that he has already used the spring autumn cicada and reincarnated into this world. That is the greatest trump card I could possibly have over him. However, the possibility of my existence as an otherworldly demon might also be exposed. If that is the case, then I might be killed before I can even blink. Otherworldly demons were a concept lightly touched upon before the novel was placed on hiatus. They carry within them Dao marks completely untouched by Fate GU, thus allowing them to take fate into their own hands. Dao marks are, from what I understand, a measure of affinity and recognition with the great Dao. Having otherworldly Dao marks means that there is the possibility for a new path to be born. However, as it stands, Fate GU would not allow chaos, or any foreign paths to take root in the GU world, potentially because it cannot control them. I guess that begs the question then, what type of path should I walk? Xuanyuan let out a small sigh, his gaze clear and expression calm. Someone like Feng Yuan, having a Supreme Grandmaster attainment in the refinement path, and at least the Great Grandmaster attainment in more than half a dozen different paths, can probably recreate, with enough time and effort, any mortal rank GU and even most rank 6 immortal GU of those corresponding paths. Having one of these paths would be counterintuitive in the long run. That wasn't even taking into account other GU immortals who walk those paths either. Feng Yuan definitely wasn't Xuanyuan's enemy at the moment, but in this moment, and every moment in the future, Feng Yuan would never be his friend. If Xuanyuan wanted to someday become a GU master, and eventually become a GU immortal, striving to become a rank 9 GU immortal, he would come to blows with Feng Yuan. I'll leave choosing my future path for a later date. For the time being, understanding cultivation, and how to develop my primeval essence C is more important than choosing a path. Xuanyuan turned to face Chu Yuli and Lu Guo, both of which seemed slightly wary of the former's gaze. Do either of you 2 know anyone in the ancient soul sect? The 2 other 15-year-olds glanced at each other, before Chu Yuli shook her head. I don't. One of my cousins managed to enter the True Sound Temple, a subsidiary sect of the ancient soul sect. I had been hoping to enter that, but after finding out I had a B-grade talent, the ancient soul sect seemed like a better option. The girl seemed more affable despite her words. Perhaps she thought that one day, it would be her cousin asking her for help instead of the other way around. Xuanyuan moved his gaze towards Lu Guo, who just shrugged, letting out a sigh. My older sister is a member of the ancient soul sect. She was recruited about 3 years ago, and I haven't seen her since. My family receives some money every few months from her, and the last time she wrote, she was a rank 2 GU master. Xuanyuan nodded slightly before asking another question. Did she mention anything about cultivation in her letters, or what the ancient soul sect is like? Lu Guo frowned for a moment, rubbing the side of his temple before replying. Nothing about cultivation, unfortunately. The ancient soul sect, on the other hand, apparently is built upon a grand mountain whose tip pierces the clouds. The majority of the ancient soul sect is built around this mountain, and there are tunnels going through it that connect each section. Additionally, once every few years, a sandstorm will occasionally hit the mountain, originating from the western desert. That's about it, I'm afraid. Lu Guo seemed wary of Xuanyuan, probably as much as the rest of the villagers were, but he didn't sense any malice or hatred coming from the other boy. Seeing how much importance Tang San placed on Xuanyuan, he felt slightly intimidated, but was relieved that the other boy wasn't as vengeful as he originally thought. Xuanyuan tapped his chin, thinking about the information given to him. Interesting. The ancient soul sect is also located within the Earth Abyss, a subterranean world located beneath the central continent. This mountain must be one of the natural entrances to the Earth Abyss, and the sect was built around it. Fang Yuan also mentioned that the ancient soul sect had records that there were more than 107 layers to the Earth Abyss. A sect located both underground and devoid of sunlight, a place where earth path and dark path materials in GU were bountiful and numerous. Additionally, due to cave-ins and earthquakes, countless corpses of humans and beasts are buried within the Earth Abyss. Blood path, bone path, emotion path, and phantom path materials in GU are found here in excess as well. Xuanyuan had no doubt that there existed at least a single GU immortal for each one of these paths within the Earth Abyss. The Earth path was revolutionized by Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable. The Blood path was revolutionized by Giant Sun Immortal Venerable, under the guise of Blood Sea Ancestor. These two paths are completely unsuitable to be cultivated. Popular paths are more likely to birth dream realms, which are used later by Feng Jin Huang and Fang Yuan in order to forcibly increase their attainment. The soul path was similarly rejected, as Spectral Soul Demonic Venerable developed a similar technique in devoured souls in order to forcibly increase his own attainment. Blood path, dream path, theft path, and soul path were perhaps the most effective methods of increasing attainment in a short period of time. Unfortunately, 3 paths of the 4 paths were ruled by venerables, 2 of which weren't exactly dead. The last path, dream path, was completely unknown to the vast majority of the world. Is it possible to use another path in order to increase attainment? Heaven path is mostly untouchable to most, while fate GU still exists, and wisdom path is more about divination and subterfuge. It might be possible with wisdom path, but then again, star constellation Immortal Venerable rules over wisdom path. Is it possible for a regular path like fire path, or water path, or even sword path to increase the attainments of other paths? Can attainment be stored within different types of water or fire? Have past GU masters and GU immortals stored their attainment in water or fire? Xuanyuan let out a small hum before shaking his head. I'm getting ahead of myself again. I haven't even learned how to cultivate, and yet I'm trying to figure out how gain attainment of paths using another path which I haven't even picked yet. Xuanyuan gazed out towards the horizon, watching closely as the faint glimmer of fire GU slowly fell over the world's edge. An enormous mountain cast an even larger shadow, delving an entire valley in shadows, devoid of any light or flame. The faint rumble of the rank 3 sandworm GU beneath him echoed throughout the valley, as only a faint light cast by Tang San illuminated the darkness. The senior brother suddenly opened his eyes, standing up and gazing towards a certain direction. We're almost there. Don't fall asleep. You'll be tested the moment we arrive. Needless to say, those words were directed at Chu Yuli and Lu Guo, both of whom gazed at Xuanyuan enviously, obviously unbothered by the favoritism that their senior brother was showing. The boy in question didn't even register what his senior brother was talking about. His gaze firmly placed on the faint black wisp, floating aimlessly in the darkness. It wasn't until the faint flame released by Tang San's rank 1 lantern GU could Xuanyuan see this shadowy wisp. It couldn't exist without light, yet was closer to darkness in form, color, and expression. Xuanyuan unconsciously reached his hand out towards the wisp, but Xuanyuan, we're here. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by web novel. 3 Chapter 3 Elder Luo. Xuanyuan blinked, turning his head back towards senior brother Tang. The older GU master had a small smile on his face, noticing that this junior brother of his was staring at the underground world around them. It was an expression he had seen many times before, on the faces of countless young boys and girls after seeing the grandeur of the ancient soul sect. Mortals couldn't truly realize just how large the central continent was, let alone the entirety of the GU world. A mortal could spend their entire lifetime trying to reach from one side of the central continent to the other, and still not make the full distance. And the depth of the world, even the ancient soul sect hadn't explored the entirety of the Earth Abyss. Tang San just shook his head, the smile not leaving his face. Welcome to the Outer Soul Hall. It is common knowledge amongst members of the 10 great sects, but the mountain upon which the ancient soul hall is built is just a facade, and the true ancient soul hall is contained within False Soul Mountain. Earth Soul City was built around the mountain and is filled with the families of disciples, merchants, and regular mortals. Xuanyuan hadn't even realized that the wisp he was so intently watching had vanished and instead gazed out at the vast hall he was standing in. Countless men and women, of all ages, origins, and paths walked through his great hall, the vast majority guiding groups of young men and women around, obviously with jobs similar to senior brother Tang. There must be 100 new disciples each year. If all of them have B-grade talents or higher, then no wonder the central continent is the strongest of the 5 regions. If every one of the 10 great sects are like this, then no wonder the heavenly court possesses such a deep foundation. If each of the most talented GU immortals in a generation joined the heavenly court, then over 3 million years, their foundations would have reached an unfathomable depth. Individuals who might not possess the same comprehension as a mortal venerable or demonic venerable, but certainly the same talent might have joined the heavenly court as well. Founders of different paths might have also joined the heavenly court, granting not just another potential inheritance, but also a trump card over other factions. That isn't even including the 3 inheritances left behind by Primordial Origin, Star Constellation, and Genesis Lotus Immortal Venerable. Xuanyuan almost didn't even notice senior brother Tang head over to one of the other groups, whispering in the ear of the young woman leading them. Junior sister Lu, could you take these 2 with the rest of your group? I have to meet with Elder Luo, he murmured. The young woman raised an eyebrow, her gaze moving between Xuanyuan and Tang San before letting out a sigh and slowly nodding. Just treat me to some spring blossom wine later. Come on, you 2. I was just about to take my group to the testing areas. Don't worry, you won't get kicked out of the sect if you fail. The sect encourages competition between disciples, so everyone in your generation will be ranked accordingly as a result of these tests. What are the tests, you ask? Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Xuanyuan watched as Chu Yuli and Lu Guo followed senior sister Lu off towards one of the side passages. He could see that some of the members of their group had glanced back towards him and senior brother Tang, narrowing their eyes before being led away somewhere. Tang San just smiled before gesturing for Xuanyuan to follow him. Come on, I'll take you to meet Elder Luo. Xuanyuan followed senior brother Tang, walking through numerous tunnels and underground pathways throughout False Soul Mountain before eventually reaching a small residence halfway up the mountain. Tang San had informed Xuanyuan that only sect elders could have permanent residences on False Soul Mountain. Despite the fact that most of the sect was underground, the higher up False Soul Mountain one went, the greater concentration of primeval energy a GU master could feel. The inverse was proportionally true, however. The deeper one delved into the Earth Abyss, the greater concentration of primeval energy they would be able to sense. The existence of the Earth Abyss wasn't a secret amongst the 10 great sects. Each of them had their own unique resource points, but in comparison, the size of the Earth Abyss equaled several other resource points in area, although they didn't necessarily need to know that. We're here. Xuanyuan wiped a thin layer of sweat off his brow, feeling a slight burn in his legs as he ascended the mountain. Even if he was a GU master, his physique was barely better than that of immortals. He had tried pushing and spinning the primeval essence in his aperture, but wasn't sure if this method of refinement was viable or just wasteful. I've let Elder Luo know that we're coming. I'm sure that he'll ask you some questions, and when he does, be as truthful as possible. Don't try to lie in front of him. He possesses GU that can discern truth from lies. Xuanyuan nodded at Tang San's words. Investigation type GU weren't the most common of GU, especially in a world which valued martial strength overall, but it wouldn't be suspicious for a rank 5, or even a rank 4 GU master to possess a new complete set of mortal GU. Investigation, concealment, healing and even cultivation type GU were abundant in righteous factions. Work hard enough for the sect, climb your way up the ladder and you will be rewarded for your efforts. Such were the laws of the righteous path. Stepping forward, Xuanyuan couldn't help but straighten his back unconsciously, feeling slightly nervous at the meeting. Just a couple days ago I was living in the forest on the outskirts of Greengrass Village. Now I'm meeting with a rank 4, maybe even a rank 5 GU master. If this was any other continent, things might have turned out very different. Xuanyuan was wary of both the righteous and the demonic paths, and admitted that neither could be trusted wholeheartedly. While the righteous path undoubtedly seemed more trustworthy, being ruled by their ethics and morals, the benefits of the demonic path were equally as opportunistic. Entering the residence, Xuanyuan could almost feel the amount of primeval energy in the air grow thicker, and was immediately greeted with an abundance of different materials and rare flora. Xuanyuan had never seen a GU in person, and yet right in front of him was a large yellow-brown colored anthill, silently emitting a pale yellow gas. He could see small ants roaming over the anthill, greedily sucking in the pale yellow gas the anthill released. He almost didn't notice the older gentleman standing beside it, smiling slightly as he watched Xuanyuan's reaction. You must be Xuanyuan. Little Tang mentioned that you were tall for your age, but I admit, you're even taller than I anticipated. Xuanyuan suppressed a gulp and bowed, clasping his hands together in front of him. This one greets Elder Luo. Before Xuanyuan could raise his head, he felt a hand being placed on his shoulder, unconsciously stiffening at the sudden physical contact. Holy shit, that was fast. That was more than 20 feet in the time it took to blink. Xuanyuan felt a wave of primeval essence emanate from his shoulder, before a hearty chuckle escaped Elder Luo's lips. The older man, with more than a few grays filling his beard, nodded several times before shaking his head. His clothes were colored black and yellow, with a small symbol over his heart, the emblem of the ancient soul sect. Little Tang has found quite the talent. Good, good. I'll have to award him accordingly. Xuanyuan was it? Mind if I call you Little Yuan then? Xuanyuan shook his head before replying. Not at all, Elder Luo. I would be honored. Elder Luo stroked his beard, nodding a couple more times, giving Xuanyuan another once over. The latter could feel the former's eyes roam all over his body. He's evaluating me, there's no doubt about it. A perfect talent, no mortal ties or bonds, and one yet to be taught the difference between righteous and demonic. Such a thing almost sounds too good to be true. Tang San would be rewarded by the higher-ups for bringing me to the ancient soul sect, but he would be rewarded even more by directly bringing me to Elder Luo. Elder Luo can be given the credit for finding me, and take me under his wing, and by extension his faction within the sect as well. A perfect mortal talent, such a thing, perhaps even in a small clan in the other 4 continents, was destined to become, at the very least, a rank 4 GU master. Rank 5 so long as they were diligent and had sufficient resources. Potentially, if they were fated, a rank 6 GU immortal. Xuanyuan possessed neither a desire to return to his previous world, like thieving heaven demonic venerable, nor a desire for immortality, like Feng Yuan. He had questions about this world, specifically, the ending to Feng Yuan's story, but other than that, was equally as apprehensive about the GU world, as he was curious about it. He had questions about paths such as heaven path and human path, and questions about Renzu and his other children. Questions about the 10 extreme physiques, or 11 extreme physiques including the perfected pure dream reality seeker physique. Questions about how an individual creates a path. Do they discover it, or is it already existing somewhere in the world, just waiting to be discovered? Xuanyuan wanted to know. Knowledge and understanding, not eternity or a desire to return home. Xuanyuan straightened his back, letting out a deep breath. His clear black eyes regained their clarity, causing Elder Luo to nod even more. Such nice eyes, so clear, yet so dark, Elder Luo muttered. The ancient soul sect elder smiled before removing his hand from Xuanyuan's shoulder. I'm a complete stranger to you, Xuanyuan, but nevertheless I still have to ask, if you were to join the ancient soul sect, what would you want to achieve? Elder Luo paused before continuing. I ask because the GU world is neither kind, nor forgiving. It takes more than it gives. Just from the state of your clothes and your limbs I can tell that you already understand this. You have to be willing to fight for what you want, to fight for what you believe in. In doing so, you will gain the strength to protect the things that you care about most in this world. So tell me, Xuanyuan, what is it you desire most? Elder Luo watched as the young, tall boy paused for a moment, before a small smile graced his lips. I cannot answer it in a single sentence. What I desire, what I seek to understand, can only be granted by a venerable. Elder Luo raised an eyebrow. You desire the title of venerable? Xuanyuan shook his head, his smile growing slightly wider. Not the title of venerable, not the renown of venerable, not the strength of venerable, but the comprehensions of a venerable. He ancient soul sect elder raised an eyebrow, his eyes still firmly locked with Xuanyuan's. What do you mean by this, Xuanyuan? Elder Luo replied. His demeanor shifted slightly and Elder Luo no longer seemed overly familiar with Xuanyuan, something that the younger boy noticed. Immortal venerables and demonic venerables achieved absolute superiority over the path they walked. They founded systems of GU as well as paths that are still used to this day. They created GU using their minds and imaginations, using the comprehensions and understandings they had over the world and themselves. I wish to do the same. Elder Luo couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. You wish to found a path? That is certainly ambitious, but it is not necessary for you to be a venerable in order to do so. Elder Luo didn't change his expression, but his tone and words said otherwise. He seemed much more curious about what Xuanyuan had to say. The young man shook his head, the corners of his mouth raising slightly. There must be something special about rank 9, other than the title. If only 10 people in recorded history have achieved such a thing, then something about it has to be different about it in comparison to rank 8 and below. A qualitative change. It is selfish of me, but I desire the apex of a particular path. Rank 8 might get me through the door, but it won't leave my name on it. Elder Luo showed a bemused expression. And what path would you walk, Little Yuan? Thus time, the young man couldn't suppress even his own smile. I have absolutely no idea. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by Web Novel. 4 Chapter 4 Beautiful. There was a tense silence in the air of Elder Luo's residence, before the older, slightly gray-haired man cracked a smile, shaking his head from side to side. Blessed are the young, for they shall inherit the heavens and the earth. Quite an ambitious young man, aren't you, Little Yuan? Elder Luo watched as Xuanyuan shrugged his shoulders, his expression as honest as his eyes were clear. I do not know anything about GU or cultivation, but when I was young, my mother would tell me stories about reckless savage demonic venerable and giant son immortal venerable. She told me that one of their hands could cover an entire continent in their shadow. Even with GU, I still fail to understand how such a thing is possible, he said. Elder Luo raised an eyebrow at the mention of reckless savage demonic venerable and giant son immortal venerable. While the latter was considered a righteous path immortal venerable, his affiliations with the northern plains made him less than ideal for a figure of admiration. Reckless savage demonic venerable, was there even a reason why he disliked such a figure? The man wasn't as bad as Red Lotus demonic venerable or spectral soul demonic venerable, but as a member of the righteous path, having a demonic venerable as an idol wasn't the most ideal image for Elder Luo. What about the other venerables? Did your mother ever talk about them, Little Yuan? Elder Luo mentioned. Xuanyuan nodded as well. Yes, she talked about Genesis Lotus immortal venerable and Star Constellation immortal venerable, but I admit, she didn't know a lot about their deeds or the accomplishments. Elder Luo nodded understandingly. I suppose that makes sense. Star Constellation was the second ever immortal venerable, born several eras ago, and Genesis Lotus immortal venerable was born before Giant Sun, so it is possible that most mortals wouldn't know about his history. Xuanyuan watched as Elder Luo stroked his beard, glad that he avoided mentioning Red Lotus demonic venerable or spectral soul demonic venerable. Even thieving heaven demonic venerable might have been a little bit too much for Elder Luo. Maintaining a good relationship with an elder is good for my future. I want to become a rank 5 GU master as quickly as possible, but using relic GU might reduce the quality of my heaven chi and earth chi if I ever try and ascend to rank 6. I can't guarantee I could ever obtain the sovereign fetus immortal GU, and even if I did, I would be making an enemy of the shadow sect, the heavenly court and Feng Yuan. There is always the second aperture GU. I can remember reading about part of the recipe found within Bai GU Blessed Land, but trying to explain how I obtained it would be troublesome. The Lang Ya Land Spirit also mentioned that a third aperture GU was theoretically possible, but even they couldn't deduce such a thing. Having 2 primeval essence apertures was amazing enough. Your maximum amount of primeval essence could be double that of even an A-grade talent, and your primeval essence regeneration speed would be roughly double of an A-grade talent, presuming your original talent was a grade. Xuanyuan wasn't sure if during immortal ascension would both the apertures be combined into one immortal aperture, or if the new rank 6 GU immortal would be in possession of 2 immortal apertures. If each of the primeval essence apertures each gave birth to an immortal aperture, Xuanyuan could see how overpowered the second aperture GU could truly be. Double the vital GU, double the Dao marks, double the paths, double the amount of immortal essence. There was always double the amount of tribulations, but so long as you succeeded, you would essentially progress twice, for every step a regular GU immortal would take. And if the third aperture GU wasn't just theoretical then, Xuanyuan shook his head, dispelling his thoughts. He was getting ahead of himself. Little Yuan, can I ask you quite an important question? Xuanyuan focused his attention back on Elder Luo. Nodding, the older man continued. You might not understand what it means to have an A-grade talent with a 99% primeval essence C, but such a thing is not common, even amongst sects and clans. It doesn't just mean that you can cultivate faster than other GU masters, it means that your ceiling, the limit of where your potential lies, is much higher than other GU masters. Xuanyuan nodded, slowly, as if trying to understand Elder Luo's words. Senior brother Tang mentioned this a little bit. Having a larger primeval essence C means that I can cultivate longer, regenerate primeval essence faster, and use my GU more than others at the same rank. Elder Luo shook his head, letting out a small sigh. Little Tang couldn't explain everything to you, but I'll give you a simple explanation. Take this cup of water for example. Elder Luo flicked his hand once and a cup of water, roughly halfway filled, appeared in his hands. The cup was clear, but the material wasn't glass nor plastic. Imagine this was your primeval essence C, about 50% full. You already know that using GU uses primeval essence, so take a little bit out and you're left with about 40%. With me so far? Xuanyuan nodded in return. Imagine using 40% of your primeval essence on cultivation, specifically on the gap between a rank 1 GU master and a rank 2 GU master. What if I told you that it would take 20% primeval essence in order to cross that gap? This person would be left with only 20% primeval essence, and over time, their primeval essence would fill back up to 50%. Elder Luo nodded. What if I told you that the gap between rank 2 and rank 3 needed 40% primeval essence, and the gap between rank 3 and rank 4 needed 60% primeval essence? Xuanyuan opened his mouth to reply, but paused, obviously knowing where Elder Luo was going with this. This GU master, without some sort of external help, would be stuck at the peak of rank 3, unable to meet the primeval essence requirements in order to reach rank 4. Is this why the sect doesn't recruit anyone with a C-grade talent or below? Elder Luo nodded. A B-grade talent stretches from 60% to 79% primeval essence C. If the requirement to reach rank 5 is 80%, then they will cannot bridge the distance, without the assistance of GU of course. Xuanyuan widened his eyes, as if in disbelief. There are GU which can fix innate talent, he questioned. Elder Luo smiled and nodded his head. They are extraordinarily rare, and the vast majority are used before they can be bought or sold. But yes, there are GU which can bridge the gap in innate talents, but then again, if someone like yourself were to use them instead, then your cultivation would reach a peak of rank 5 without any trouble. Why rank 5? Because rank 6 is different from the previous ranks. It is, as you said before, a qualitative transformation. But even I have yet to transcend that divide. It is too early for us to be discussing this considering you do not even know how to cultivate yet. Xuanyuan blushed slightly, obviously getting ahead of himself again. I see, so there is a primeval essence requirement in order to reach a higher rank. That is why B-grade and A-grade talents are so valued. Even without a GU that can assist in cultivation, they are almost guaranteed to become a rank 4 GU master, or even a rank 5 GU master. Even 1% could be the difference between reaching the next rank. Elder Luo nodded at Xuanyuan's words. The ancient soul sect elder smiled at Xuanyuan, placing a hand on his shoulder gently, seeing the reaction it caused before. His smile seemed warm and fatherly, and his demeanor seemed soft and loving above all else. Oh shit, he's going to ask me if I'm willing to be his disciple, Xuanyuan realized. Exactly. The reason why we value your talent so much, little Yuan, is because even without a GU assisting you, so long as you are diligent and patient, you will reach rank 5. As a result of that, I find it fitting to ask you if you are willing to become my disciple. Before Xuanyuan could respond, Elder Luo continued. I will personally teach you how to cultivate, and how to nurture and refine GU. Even if you refuse, one of the other elders will still teach you personally. But in addition to that, I'll guide you on how to refine GU and even how to create a set of complementary GU. The path I walk is well traversed, but it would be a good foundation for any path that you decide to walk. You do not have to answer right away, but... Xuanyuan immediately cut him off, immediately kowtowing before Elder Luo. Please accept me as your disciple, please Elder Luo. For a moment, there was a strange silence in the air, before the hearty chuckle of Elder Luo filled the residence. The older man held onto his slightly round stomach, before placing a hand on Xuanyuan, gesturing for him to stand up. Please stand up, little Yuan. I didn't expect you to give your answer so quickly, let alone accept so suddenly. The tall young man shook his head, his eyes as clear as glass. I understand that my talent is what makes me valuable, and I am honored that you would take an interest in me. If I become your disciple, it would be the quickest and most efficient method of realizing my desire. It is a selfish dream, but if you will have me, I will repay every teaching and every lesson twice in kind. Xuanyuan bowed deeply again, trying to be as honest and straightforward as possible. If Elder Luo could detect lies, it would be remiss of him to try and get caught. He was being honest when he said he wanted to walk his own path. He was being honest when he said he wanted to become a venerable. Xuanyuan walked neither the demonic path, nor the righteous path, but if someone was to help him, he would repay that debt to the best of his ability. Likewise, if someone hurt him or the ones he cared about, he would repay them twice-fold. It was the mindset of most people from Earth, a morality born from another world. Elder Luo seemed honest with his intentions, and if he did help Xuanyuan, he would do his very best to repay his teachings. Elder Luo gazed into Xuanyuan's eyes. Despite staring at them for more than half an hour now, he couldn't help but keep looking at them. They possessed barely any color to them, yet they seemed so bright despite the shadowy color. It seems that I have quite the interesting disciple, he muttered. Most geniuses were often arrogant, prideful, and more often than not treated others as beneath them, not worthy to even breathe the same air as them. Most of these individuals were either born into mortal luxury, or had powerful parents whom were GU masters. Their emotions needed tempering, their pride needed subduing, and their desires, a multitude of mortal avarices and lusts which distracted them from their cultivation. Xuanyuan had none of that. No parents to tell him they were proud of him, no wealth to spend on frivolous purchases, no pride in his blood, and no veneer of arrogance which tainted his mindset. His only desire was a pure and driven as freshly fallen snow. A desire which all GU masters shared, yet without the mortal distractions or obstructions. Xuanyuan wanted something that he alone could call his, a path that would be associated with him even long after his death. He was clay, a raw material that had yet to be shaped. Elder Luo smiled. He is beautiful. Chapter 5 Shadow Path. Published by Web Novel. Make sure that you take into account the swell of your primeval essence while cultivating. Crashing your primeval essence against your aperture walls is manageable with lower counts of primeval essence, but with a large primeval essence sea like yours, the waves can often overpower you if you are not being careful. Xuanyuan nodded at Elder Luo's words. Yes, master, but something like that should become more manageable as I cultivate more, right? Primeval essence will be used to refine the walls, and the waves should drop lower as I expend more primeval essence, right? Elder Luo smiled, stroking his beard softly. That is why the method of manipulating primeval essence is so important. Adjusting for the size of the waves and their intensity can actually help assist in cultivation, rather than be a hindrance. But again, this all takes time and practice, little Yuan. Xuanyuan let out a breath of turbid air, feeling the sensation of primeval essence within his aperture. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but Fang Yuan, with his 44% primeval essence C, and a rank 1 liquor worm GU managed to become an initial rank 2 GU master within the span of a single year. I can cultivate with more than twice as much primeval essence, and my primeval essence regenerates more than twice as quick. Even without a liquor worm GU, I should be able to reach rank 2 within the same amount of time, right? Fang Yuan had the advantage of not having to learn how to cultivate in his second life, but Xuanyuan had a talent that was only exceeded by the 10 extreme physiques. Fang Yuan should be the standard by which I evaluate myself. His attainments gained through the dream realms aside, all venerables require a certain level of attainment in their main path and their subpath in order to become a venerable. If I want to become a venerable, I should hold myself to the same standard. Xuanyuan didn't have to worry about not being fated to become a rank 9 GU immortal. He was already half an otherworldly demon, and once Fate GU was destroyed, he, alongside any other rank 8 GU immortals, could ascend to rank 9 without having to worry about Fate GU intervening. Xuanyuan had already been in the ancient soul sect for more than a week now, and had started refining his aperture walls under Elder Luo's guidance. Memorizing the method of cultivation, in accordance to the ways of the ancient soul sect, was his number one priority at the moment. If he couldn't learn how to cultivate, nurturing and refining GU would be a distant dream, even with all his advantages. Not to mention, Xuanyuan glanced at the small leather pouch placed beside him, filled to the brim with small stones. Each of the stones was a gray-white color, each no larger than the size of a duck's egg. Xuanyuan knew each of the stones to be a primeval essence stone. The bag was filled to the brim with these stones, and Elder Luo mentioned that another similar-sized bag would be available to him once he reached the middle rank 1 GU master stage. The reincarnated man couldn't help but laugh after remembering how Fang Yuan extorted his clan members for primeval essence stones, and he was just given them, without having to earn or fight for them. This is the difference between the righteous and the demonic paths. I can see why the former is so popular, despite the latter giving the greatest benefits. The demonic path risked one's life for the greatest benefits. Xuanyuan could see the appeal through Fang Yuan's eyes, but from the perspective of an ordinary GU master like himself, the righteous path provided a more stable method of cultivation. I do need to learn how to fight though. I guess that's just another thing that I need to learn how to do. Xuanyuan looked down at a book sitting in front of him. Elder Luo hadn't held anything back from him and provided him with a list of known paths in the current era. It listed several recommendations for GU for beginners as well as explanations on the paths themselves. Needless to say, for a rank 1 GU master, this book was beyond a treasure. Blade path, suitable for those with a resolute and straightforward personality. Associated GU include Crimson Blade GU, Shadowless Blade GU, Mantis Blade GU, Formless Blade GU, and Water Blade GU. Focuses primarily on ranged attacks and possesses remarkable similarity with Sword path. Bone path, suitable with those who can withstand pain, are decisive with their decisions, and do not care about appearances. Associated GU include Bone Armor GU, Bone Shield GU, Tiger Bone GU, Skeleton Solider GU, and Water Bones GU. Focuses primarily on the creation and manipulation of external bones, possesses above average defensive qualities. Fire path, suitable for those with a temper, whom can channel their emotions into their actions. Associated GU include Fireball GU, Lava Stream GU, Ghost Fire GU, Lunar Flame GU, and Phoenix Feather GU. Focuses primarily on the offensive qualities, possesses one of the strongest offensive might of all paths in the current era. Ice path, suitable for those who prefer logic and rationality over emotions and feelings. Associated GU include Ice Lance GU, Frozen Stream GU, Frozen Blood GU, Chilling Sword GU, and Ice Storm GU. Focuses primarily on the defensive and control properties of ice, capable of debilitating opponents. However, possesses above average offensive capabilities. Moon path, suitable for those with a more subdued personality, not necessarily passive, but flowing and bending. Associated GU include Lunar Wind GU, Illusionary Moon GU, Moonstream GU, Eclipse GU, and Moonlight GU. Focuses primarily on aspects of the moon, changing in effects and intensity depending on the phase. However, it can display synergy with multiple other paths. Xuanyuan even read some other paths that he had never seen before in his previous world. Sun path, suitable for those with a more outgoing personality, not necessarily overbearing, but boundless in energy. Associated GU include Solar Flare GU, Sun Touch GU, Sunlight GU, Burning Sun GU, and Summer Days GU. Focuses primarily on offensive abilities, however displays remarkable synergy with other paths. Yin path, suitable for those with a compatible partner walking the opposing path. Associated GU include Yin Flame GU, Yin Blood GU, Ebony Ghost GU, Shadow Yang GU, and Cold Burning Yin GU. Focuses primarily on supporting aspects. The majority of associated GU are relating to ghosts or for dual cultivation. This path provides the greatest strength while in contact with someone with the Yang path. The Yang path was listed near the end of the book, alongside other paths such as Archery path, Spear path, Paper path, and even something as obscure as Curse path all existed within the GU world. Archery path and Spear path was a subpath of Weapon path. Paper path was related to the Information path and the Wood path, albeit without any explanation as to why. While the Curse path was a subpath of Dark path, it seemed the most obscure of all the unknown paths, and was similar to Wisdom path in practice, but with much more offensive capabilities. Xuanyuan considered asking Elder Luo about the Curse path, but noticed a red dot next to quite a few different paths, including Blood path and Bone path. Ah, these are the paths that will get you wanted by the 10 great sects. Practicing them, due to their dubious nature, is against the righteous path, and as such, against the 10 great sects. I wouldn't be surprised in the Heavenly Court kills all cultivators of these paths, and then takes their immortal aperture for themselves. Xuanyuan let out a small sigh, flicking through the pages of the book before gradually coming to a halt on a particular page. Despite the fact that there was barely any information on this particular path, a sense of familiarity bubbled up from deep within Xuanyuan's bones. Shadow path, suitable for those who prefer to observe and deceive rather than openly combat. Associated GU include Shadowed Image GU, Extended Shadow GU, Umbral GU, Phantom Shadow GU, Illusory Shadow GU. Focuses on projecting illusions and fighting with conjured shadows. Shows synergy with several paths. Xuanyuan had noticed this particular path straight away, and couldn't forget about it no matter how many other paths he read about. There was something about it that, in his mind, screamed at him. Letting out a sigh, Xuanyuan broke his cross-legged position, laying down and stretching his legs out fully. Shadow path. It doesn't have any direct combat applications like Fire path or Sword path, but if I remember correctly, it was stated that it has the potential to exceed the two paths that it stems from. Shadows cannot be created without light, yet resemble the dark more closely in color, shape, and form. It seemed interesting. The dark path focused on obfuscation and concealment, shrouding oneself from their enemies. It possesses some anti-divination or scrying capabilities, but also possessing strong offensive capabilities through its corrupting nature. Darkness acted like a cancer, spreading, growing, rotting. It didn't possess any healing capabilities as far as Xuanyuan was aware, but still behaved similar to offensive Wood path and Poison path GU. Light path, on the other hand, seemed to focus on notions such as illumination, speed, and the color spectrum. Light path was the antithesis of Dark path, but behaved similarly. It spread as far as it could possibly reach, burning and searing those touched by it. It was one of the fastest paths in terms of speed, directly beside space path and lightning path. What made it interesting was the color spectrum concepts. The light from the immemorial antiquity era had long since faded from the GU world. Some ancient existences still possessed traces of the light, but it no longer occurred naturally in the GU world. These variations of light were caused by the white light from fire GU passing through the immemorial nine heavens, refracting and absorbing light before arriving in the GU world. Different colored lights had different effects, some could heal, others move faster, and some possessed stronger offensive capabilities. If shadow path contains aspects of both, and can merge them, it means that the potential of shadow path is much greater than either dark path or light path. But how can a shadow, a formless reflection, be greater than either darkness or light? Xuanyuan shook his head before closing the book and pushing it to the side. Thoughts like this often came to him, but more often than not, led him astray from what he was trying to achieve. As much as I'd like to sit down and research the shadow path, my cultivation takes priority at the moment. I can ask Elder Luo about the shadow path and see if my first GU can be a shadow path GU. Increasing my familiarity with such a GU should hopefully increase my understandings of the basics of shadow path. Xuanyuan grabbed another primeval essence stone and guided the energy within it directly into his primeval essence sea. Using the rotation of the waves to crash against his aperture walls, his primeval essence slowly refined the energy within the primeval essence stone, gradually hardening his aperture walls. His comprehension and manipulation over his primeval essence was increasing with every passing day. He was an adult who had obtained the body of a 15-year-old. Mood swings aside, he wasn't so weak-minded as to stop cultivating due to some distracting thoughts. Calming himself and steadying his breathing, Xuanyuan watched as his primeval essence surged, the light of his aperture walls gradually becoming more and more stable with every passing moment. Unbeknownst to Xuanyuan, a faint black wisp happily floated around his body. Unable to open his eyes while cultivating, Xuanyuan couldn't see the familiar black wisp dancing around his body, unable to exist outside of the light. This little black wisp just happily floated around Xuanyuan before dipping back silently into his shadow. Xuanyuan's shadow stretched a little bit further out, although the sun was still high in the air, barely even midday yet. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by Web Novel. 6 Chapter 6 Thoughts. The days Xuanyuan spent in the ancient soul sect passed quicker than he had hoped. Within the span of a few weeks, his name had become the object of quite a number of debates amongst the newly recruited disciples. Hey, have you heard of Xuanyuan, the genius directly recruited by Elder Luo? Of course I've heard about it. It's the only thing outer sect disciples are talking about. Can you imagine it, getting personal assistance from an elder almost every day? I heard that he doesn't have to worry about his weekly primeval essence stone allotment. If he runs out, Elder Luo will just give them to him. I heard that his primeval essence C is a complete 100%. With that kind of talent, he is almost guaranteed to become a rank 5 GU master. What does he need the primeval essence stones for then? With that kind of talent, he shouldn't have to worry about cultivation. Shouldn't the sect be more equal with the amount of rewards distributed to everyone? Xuanyuan stood behind a gossiping group of GU masters, letting out a silent sigh while waiting in line for his weekly primeval essence stone allotment. It was true that Elder Luo had given him a bag of primeval essence stones, but the bag had almost all been used up after cultivation and refining his vital GU. Elder Luo had promised to give him more, but only after he reached the middle rank 1 GU master stage. It was only like 20 primeval essence stones, and half went into refining the Shadow Eyes GU. The weekly allotment of primeval essence was 10 primeval essence stones for each outer sect disciple. After receiving the 10 from his weekly allotment, it left Xuanyuan with 30 to start off with in his first week. To be fair, most of the other disciples had only just obtained their first GU, and the vast majority were still in the process of refining it into their vital GU. Xuanyuan had been in possession of his for more than 2 weeks now, and was thinking about obtaining his second soon. The 10 great sects foundations sure are deep. I'm not sure if Shadow Path GU can be found in abundance in the Earth Abyss, but their selection of rank 1 GU was more than anything I had ever seen. With the exception of outlawed paths, the ancient soul sect had a selection of GU spanning thousands of pages long. The ancient soul sect would allow their disciples to choose any offensive or defensive GU for their vital GU absolutely free. Every GU after that would cost either contribution points or primeval essence stones. Xuanyuan had seen that most GU masters picked either an offensive GU, while some lamented the fact that they couldn't pick one of the rank 1 liquor worm GU that the sect held. A couple had been purchased by new sect members with deep pockets, but there were still quite a number left, albeit for now. I wonder if there is a Shadow Path GU which acts similarly to the liquor worm GU. The liquor worm GU was most likely a heaven path GU or a human path GU, and one of the members of the GUU clan possessed a wood charm GU which was considered both a wood path GU and a transformation path GU. Finding such a thing would be difficult, but it would be excellent research material in Xuanyuan's eyes. Mortal GU which were considered more than one path were rare, although more common in transformation path GU. Some strength path GU, and even chi path GU also had dual paths, although both were rare in the current era. Shadow path GU were uncommon, but in a place like the Earth Abyss, there were an abundance of GU, all belonging to different paths. Xuanyuan took a breath before stepping forward, placing his sect token on the counter. The older woman in charge glanced at him for a moment before writing something down. Name and cultivation? She asked. Xuanyuan, initial rank 1 GU master. The woman nodded slightly before reaching under her desk and grabbing a small pouch. She didn't say anything as Xuanyuan grabbed the pouch and stepped out of line, heading towards his next destination. For rank 1 GU masters, the sect offered a variety of classes, all taught by rank 2 and above GU masters. They compounded on the notion of a single path from the moment they awakened their aperture, and taught their GU masters how to create a set of complementary GU, with similar effects and synergy. Each of these classes were available twice a week, and attending both cost a single primeval essence stone. Some of the more popular classes had teachers raking in more than 100 primeval essence stones a week. There were also dedicated classes to creating a set of GU, knowledge and comprehension on a single path, martial arts classes, GU refining classes and even mandatory classes on ethics and morality. Even Xuanyuan wasn't able to escape them. However, Xuanyuan was interested in one of the other classes offered. Smiling slightly, Xuanyuan traveled down a darker corridor, one faintly illuminated by candle GU, and entered a small dark classroom. It reminded him of an AV lecture hall in his previous life, although the dimensions were significantly smaller. Only 2 people sat in the room. The first being a young, short girl with black hair tied in pigtails. Her appearance was above average, although her appearance suggested she seemed younger than what she actually was. The other person was also a woman, average height, long black hair, with a small mole under the left eye. Her appearance was undoubtedly beautiful, her legs long and her body with curves in all the right places. If she was born in Xuanyuan's old world, she could have easily passed as some sort of idol or celebrity. She smiled at Xuanyuan's appearance before nodding, getting up from her seat. Little Yuan, I'm glad you could make it. I almost thought that you weren't coming today. Xuanyuan just shrugged his shoulders, taking a seat in his usual spot. Apologies, senior sister Long. I received my weekly allotment today. It took longer than I originally thought. The beautiful woman smiled, not minding Xuanyuan's tardiness. He had already paid for the week, so if he missed today, it wouldn't affect her either way. Gesturing towards the board behind her, Long Shi turned her attention towards Xuanyuan and the other girl. Starting from where we left off last week, what can you tell me about the differences between the dark path and the shadow path? The young-looking girl raised her hand. The dark path exists regardless of the presence of light. It possesses strong offensive capabilities in the form of corrosion and corruption, similar to the poison path in some regards. It also has some concealment capabilities, although they are weaker in comparison to shadow path. Long Shi nodded, gesturing for the girl to continue. Shadow path, on the other hand, is much more illusory and transient. It cannot exist with light, although behaves and appears more like darkness. Shadow path can be used to create shadowy illusions, or create constructs from shadows. Additionally, the shadow path can be used to obscure or conceal things other than just oneself. This was a basic comparison between the dark path and the shadow path. Both were similar enough to be mistaken for the other. However, the fact of the matter was, dark path was significantly more offensive than shadow path. Shadow path, on the other hand, was more supportive, providing excellent concealment and obfuscation for oneself and their allies. The female rank 2 GU master nodded, before turning towards Xuan Yuan. Although Lil Gong said quite a bit, is there anything else you would like to add, Lil Yuan? Xuan Yuan scratched his chin for a moment, before tilting his head slightly. His mind drifting slightly, thinking about shadows in a broader context. I think that shadows might be more intimate than what Gongchu's description of them might be. Long Shi raised an eyebrow at Xuan Yuan's words. Go on, she said. The otherworldly demon narrowed his eyes for a moment before gesturing to his own shadow. Shadows are unique. They are quite literally a reflection of ourselves. All living things cast a shadow, an extension of themselves. If I could say, touch your shadow, what would that do to you? Long Shi and Gongchu both watched as Xuan Yuan extend his hand and cast a long, creeping shadow. The tip of his fingers seemed longer in the candlelight, and as they came into contact with Long's eyes shadow. Nothing happened. Xuan Yuan smiled, and felt the tension in the room vanish quickly as it had appeared. Just kidding, he said. Long Shi rolled her eyes, shaking her head. This junior brother of hers. Despite Xuan Yuan's immaturity, his words do in fact have merit. Shadows are an extension of the self, and can be manipulated if you are not careful. Emotion path GU and enchantment path GU are capable of this, but influence the mind rather than the shadow. It is also possible to directly attack a shadow, causing the damage to appear on your body as well. Gongchu raised her hand quickly. Yes, little Gong. Long Shi gestured for her to speak. The pigtailed girl seemed more excited than anything else about her question. Doesn't that mean that the shadow path has more offensive abilities than what I just stated? Doesn't it mean that it can be used in direct combat, rather than with illusions and the like? Xuan Yuan glanced at her and couldn't help but feel slightly embarrassed. I think she likes the shadow path more than I do. Long Shi paused for a moment, before letting out a small sigh. Unfortunately, while you are technically correct, little Gong, only a shadow can touch another shadow. Your attack would be illusory, only able to interact when in contact with other shadows. It couldn't be used to counter the attack of an enemy, or block an attack if necessary. There are GU which can solidify shadows, but using an earth path GU or a metal path GU to defend would result in a stronger defense, and a smaller primeval essence expenditure. Both Xuan Yuan and Gongchu nodded, understanding this new aspect of shadow path. So shadow path GU are best against shadows, or potentially intangible targets. They are weaker against physical attacks, but are simultaneously harder to defend against. They are also easier to hide, considering that shadows are illusory. But what about in instances outside of combat? Support type GU or cultivation type GU, even movement type GU. Could shadows be transferred to another person? Could a transformation in the shadow cause a transformation in a person? Could I divide a shadow into pieces? What would I even do with those pieces? Xuan Yuan felt question after question bubble up from the depths of his mind, and instantly closed his eyes, entering a meditative state. It is possible to create a GU whose traits mimic that of another path. Could I create a GU which burns and sears the shadow? Could I create a GU which nurtures and heals a shadow? Could I create a GU which enslaves a shadow for me to command? Could I create an aperture from shadows, like the heavenly court's myriad phantom aperture? Could I create a physique using the shadow path? Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable had done it. He had created the accumulate virtue GU, which, after accumulating a certain number of virtues, would transform the innate talent of a GU master into the righteous virtue physique. It possessed a 100% primeval essence C, and a primeval essence regeneration to match, without having to worry about detonating after cultivation. It could even be used to attack an opponent directly, by targeting their accumulated vices, forcing them to repent for their misdeeds and sins. Unfortunately for him, Paradise Earth was venerable with an extraordinarily high attainment in the heaven path and the human path. Reaching such a stage would take longer than what Xuan Yuan needed. Xuan Yuan grit his teeth, feeling more and more thoughts bubble up within his mind. Damn it, I have more questions than I have answers to. Just one, just give me the answer to one of them. Was it possible for the shadow path to mimic the heaven path or the human path? Was it possible for Dao marks to have a shadow? Was it possible for a person to die and then be revived from the remnants of their shadow? What were memories if just the shadow of the present? What did that make the future? What did that make of me then? Xuan Yuan felt something drip down his nose, and he unconsciously opened his eyes, his hands wiping away a layer of bright crimson. He could faintly hear Gongchu and Long Shi in the background, but just stared intently at his fingers, rubbing the crimson liquid together. Is it possible for the soul to possess a shadow? Xuan Yuan barely managed to catch a glimpse of a mischievous-looking black wisp before his entire world turned black. Chapter 7 Shadows and Thoughts. Published by Web Novel. What the hell? Why does my head hurt? Xuan Yuan opened his eyes, wincing as he felt a sharp pain sprout at his temples. The light in the room seemed bright, too bright to be either his room or any room within Elder Luo's residence. The faint echoes of footsteps could be heard in the distance, alongside the chatters and voices of men and women. Just glancing around his room, Xuan Yuan unconsciously sat up, nothing in the room being familiar at all to him. The last thing I remember was being in Senior Sister Long's classroom. I was thinking about the shadow path and its limits and then, nothing. I can't remember anything at all after that. A flash of red came to Xuan Yuan's mind, but other than that he couldn't remember anything. Seeing as though he wasn't chained up or tied to anything, it was safe to say that he wasn't kidnapped or abducted. Leaning back down in the bed, Xuan Yuan cradled his temples, rubbing the sides of his head, while trying to remember exactly what happened. I was thinking about the shadow path. I had questions. I had so many questions. Questions I couldn't even comprehend, let alone answer. The shadow of Dao marks? The shadow of the soul? What the hell was I going on about? And why would that cause me to pass out? Xuan Yuan gazed down at his hands for a moment, the color of red flashing through his mind for a moment, before nothing but shadowy nothingness rose up to devour the flash of crimson. Another wave of pain washed over Xuan Yuan's mind, and he stopped trying to remember what happened to him, and just focused on his own shadow, watching as it perfectly mimicked the finger movements that he executed. The otherworldly demon adjusted the position of his neck slightly, noticing for a moment that his own shadow didn't move. His eyes widened for a moment before a familiar voice cut through silent room. Little Yuan, are you awake? The familiar figure of Senior Sister Long entered the room, causing Xuan Yuan's train of thought to halt as he forced himself to sit up from his horizontal position. Ah, Senior Sister Long. Apologies for the unsightly display earlier. I'll get out of your hair in a minute. Long Shi immediately walked over to him and pushed him back down into the bed, raising an eyebrow at him. You're not going anywhere, Little Yuan. Do you really think I'd let you go back to Elder Luo without making sure that you're 100% fine first? I'd be lucky if I didn't receive a punishment for harming Earth Soul Hall's little genius. The older woman looked down at her junior brother, noting that he didn't dare to look her in the eye. Xuan Yuan just shrugged, looking to the side, earning an eye roll from his senior sister. The rank 2 Shadow Path GU master just shook her head and sat down in the chair beside the bed, gazing at her nails and Xuan Yuan's shadow for a moment before moving her gaze back towards him. I won't ask what GU Elder Luo gave you, but it must be at least rank 3 considering even I couldn't pull it out of your shadow. Something like that is extremely dangerous, Little Yuan. GU masters don't have the primeval essence to control GU of a higher rank. Even if it is to defend yourself, if you can't control it, then you're better off not having it in the first place. Xuan Yuan opened his mouth to speak, but paused to glance down at his shadow. The reincarnated young man just nodded slowly, bowing his head a little bit. I understand, Senior Sister. I will discuss this with Elder Luo. Out of curiosity, did you see the GU? Long Shi just sighed, running a hand through her hair before shaking her head. No, I just saw your shadow shrink into your body, as if it was never there in the first place. Even though I tried to use my own GU to pull it back out, it remained firmly in place. Xuanyuan nodded again, bowing his head towards Long Shi. I see. Again, I apologize for the disruption, senior sister Long. I can understand if you would want me removed from the class. Long Shi suppressed a chuckle before swatting Xuanyuan on the shoulder, the earlier tension mostly gone in just a single moment. Don't even think about it, little Yuan. You and little Gong are both geniuses of the shadow path. Little Gong is similar to myself, and can understand concepts easily and without the need for repetition. You, on the other hand, are a path strider, someone who walks a path and blazes their own trail for others to follow. Long Shi showed a wistful expression before shaking her head. Glancing towards the door, she flicked her hand at Xuanyuan, summoning a GU and checking the time. Her expression perked up a fraction, and she stood up, sending her junior brother a quick glance. I've got to meet up with someone, little Yuan. When you feel better, just head back to Elder Luo's residence. Make sure you do something about that GU, otherwise. The girl cracked her knuckles slightly, and Xuanyuan held his hands up, trying to appear innocent. I will obey, senior sister, he said. Satisfied with that answer, Long Shi smiled, before swiftly exiting the room. She didn't even so much as glance back at Xuanyuan as her junior brother's attention was firmly placed on his shadow, extending towards one of the walls of her room. Xuanyuan narrowed his eyes for a moment and readied his shadow eyes GU, which could detect the shadows of all living beings within a certain radius. With 30 feet, Xuanyuan could see the movement of all shadows, even through walls, provided they weren't thick or reinforced with certain materials. However, where are you, little shadow? Xuanyuan's eyes turned black as his shadow eyes GU activated. Xuanyuan's eyes gazed over every section of his shadow, and nothing out of the ordinary could be seen. There was that strange movement just a moment ago, and if Long Shi were to be believed, his shadow managed to shrink back into himself, as if scared or worried about something. The otherworldly demon frowned as he examined his shadow from top to bottom. He assumed that Long Shi wouldn't be able to detect something in his own shadow, but that he might with his own GU. Long Shi is a rank 2 GU master. Most of her GU are probably rank 1 or rank 2. If her rank 2 GU couldn't do anything, then the GU in question is more than likely rank 4 or rank 5 feet. Had someone left a GU within my shadow in order to track me? If this unknown GU master was malicious, it might explain why I passed out. Although why use such an half-hearted method of assassination? Surely there are better ways for rank 4 GU masters to kill a single rank 1 GU master. Xuanyuan let out a sigh as he deactivated his shadow eyes GU. He couldn't see any anomalies within his shadow, and even if he could always ask Elder Luo about it. Xuanyuan laid back down in his bed, letting out a sigh as he stared at the ceiling. This is just one thing after the other. What the hell is that? Xuanyuan blinked as he saw his shadow extend up the wall and onto the ceiling. The shadow in question was currently waving at him, making silly expressions with its hands and face, albeit without much success. Gazing up at his shadow, Xuanyuan couldn't help but go wide-eyed at the movements his shadow was making. Holy shit, this GU can actually move my shadow independently of my own physical body. It's not a type of possession GU, and it doesn't seem the offensive type or the controlling type. Is it? A cultivation type maybe? Xuanyuan's hope soared for a moment before he watched his own shadow shake its head in response. His mouth dropped. There's no way, you can understand me? His shadow nodded in response. The otherworldly demon could barely suppress the laughter that came out of his mouth. His shadow seemed strangely happy and replicated Xuanyuan's actions. The existence of this shadow path GU was beyond fortunate in Xuanyuan's eyes. He had just decided to walk the shadow path, and here he was, making friends with a GU that dwelled within his shadow. It was almost as though something like this was fated to happen. Xuanyuan paused, his laughter coming to a complete and utter standstill. Single quote ... Little shadow, did you feel compelled to come here? Xuanyuan watched as his shadow paused its laughter, watching as it placed a hand on its chin before shaking its head from side to side. It then pointed at Xuanyuan, making a swooning action as it embraced itself. The kissing actions it made were noted, but disregarded by Xuanyuan. You like me? You like my shadow? Xuanyuan's shadow paused for a moment before raising its hand flat, giving a half-cold, half-hot answer. The GU that dwelled within Xuanyuan's shadow seemed to be attracted to something within him. It wasn't necessarily his shadow, but something else, something that made him unique. His thoughts were drawn to the last thing Xuanyuan remembered before passing out. The shadow of my soul, the shadow of my otherworldly Dao marks. Xuanyuan watched as his shadow beamed, raising his arms above its head in a large O shape, indicating that his answer was correct. The young man laying down in the bed just let out a sigh, gazing up at his shadow dancing on the ceiling. A GU that likes Dao marks, a shadow path GU which likes otherworldly Dao marks. Perhaps it is also a human path GU, considering it is one of the few GU which can oppose heaven path. Glancing at his shadow, Xuanyuan could see it make no effort to affirm or deny his suspicions. The existence of this GU made Xuanyuan suspicious that he was just a puppet of fate GU for a moment, but as an otherworldly demon, his fate wasn't truly bound by fate GU. And this shadow path GU is attracted to my otherworldly Dao marks which cannot be controlled by fate. If it likes them, then perhaps my otherworldly Dao marks are in fact shadow otherworldly Dao marks. If I'm not mistaken, thieving heaven demonic Venerable was in possession of space otherworldly Dao marks. Xuanyuan glanced back at his shadow. He watched it pause for a moment, before resolutely nodding its head. In fact, it made a cutting gesture, roughly around its neck area. Single quote ... Are you only a shadow path GU? Some GU belong to two paths. Do you belong to either the heaven path or the human path? This time, Xuanyuan watched as his shadow shook his head in denial. I see. Does either of those paths make you feel uneasy, unsafe even? This time, Xuanyuan received a nod. Xuanyuan couldn't help but ask. Why is that little shadow? His shadow paused again before Xuanyuan felt pain sprout from his temples. Once again, a stinging sensation that occurred within Long Zai's classroom happened again once more. What am I doing here? What am I doing with this GU? Why am I having these thoughts? Is it manipulating me? Wasn't I going to ask about why it doesn't like heaven's will? How can a GU even have such thoughts? Thoughts? Why am I having such thoughts? Are all thoughts so temporary? Am I just temporary? Why can I not stop all of these thoughts? Xuanyuan felt something drip out of his nose. Stop with all the questions. I cannot handle this many thoughts at once. Immediately, Xuanyuan felt the strain on his mind vanish, and the pain emanating from his temples slowly recede. His heart rate had unconsciously quickened from the pain, and his breathing had become uneven, a sign of his mental distress. Xuanyuan could see that his shadow had moved from the ceiling, instead appeared directly beside him. It was making gestures with his hands, checking to see if Xuanyuan was feeling okay. The young man gave his shadow a smile and a small nod. It's okay, I think I kind of understand what you are. His shadow perked up, and pointed towards itself, gesturing for Xuanyuan to continue. The otherworldly demon smiled, enjoying the feeling of his pillow wrap around his head. You can create thoughts, right? But not regular thoughts. His shadow nodded. The thoughts you create are numerous in nature, constantly changing, expanding and contracting, connecting and dividing. They are temporary, but still exist in a sense. Thoughts and shadows. I thought you might have been a human path GU, but instead you are a wisdom path and a shadow path GU. The shadow nodded at Xuanyuan's words. You can create shadow thoughts. Thoughts are used in hypothesizing and deductions in order to discern truths from unknowns. But shadow thoughts must be different somehow if fate does not like them. Xuanyuan paused for a moment, raising an eyebrow. Shadows' thoughts are still shadows. They cannot be read by other thoughts, still illusory and transient. Meaning that they can conceal themselves, hide themselves from other thoughts. Xuanyuan watched as the shadow nodded once more. Hide themselves, not from fate but perhaps from heaven's will? Xuanyuan glanced at his shadow who held up his hand, giving another half-hot, half-cold answer. Xuanyuan rubbed his chin. thoughts, shadows, concealment. Wait just a second. The otherworldly demon blinked for a second, a wave of realization washing over him. You don't just produce shadow thoughts. You're not shadow thoughts GU. You're shadows as thoughts GU. You can turn shadows into thoughts. 8 Chapter 8 Theoretically. Published by web novel. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. From 21's meager comprehension on the wisdom path, he knew that the wisdom path consisted of 3 major schools and that the vast majority of wisdom path GU usually fell into one of these 3 schools. They were wills, thoughts and emotions. Leaving aside wills and emotions, thoughts could be used to discern truths using only a minimal amount of information. They could produce numerous different types of thoughts associated with a particular field, and use those thoughts to deduce something hidden from them. Some types of thoughts were more suitable for different topics. Star thoughts, battle thoughts, space thoughts, empty thoughts, lightning thoughts. These were just some examples of different types of thoughts, and wisdom path GU masters usually specialized in a particular field, perhaps limiting themselves to 1 or 2 different types of thoughts. Star thoughts excelled in deductions, producing numerous different thoughts at once. Battle thoughts could imbue an ally with thoughts related to battle and warfare, increasing their awareness and combat potential. Lightning thoughts were extraordinarily fast, speeding up the thinking process of a GU master by several fold. But shadows as thoughts GU, now that was something slightly different. Xuanyuan rubbed his temples a little, reducing the pain shadows as thoughts GU caused by a not so small amount. Shadows as thoughts GU can transform shadows into thoughts, or at least create a connection between a shadow and the GU master's mind. If the former is true, then information contained within a shadow is transformed into thoughts. While, if the latter is true, then the GU master and their shadow both produce thoughts simultaneously, the GU master receiving all of the created thoughts. One meant that information within a shadow could be potentially extracted, while the other essentially created thoughts from a shadow, although Xuanyuan assumed it would be limited to only knowledge that the GU master was familiar with. To Xuanyuan, shadow thoughts were numerous in number, and trying to focus on just a single shadow was like trying to capture mist in the hands. They were illusory, and a reflection of an actual thought. However, it didn't make them any less real than actual thoughts. Shadows were reflections of living beings. They experience everything that a living creature experiences, and grow alongside them. Shadows were born from a combination of the dark path and the light path, however, they were significantly more alive than either path. If a shadow could produce thoughts, or if a shadow could become thoughts, then what would it tell us? A shadow is a reflection of a living creature, then surely it would know everything about them? Every dirty little secret, every piece of knowledge, every single piece of understanding and comprehension. They experience everything we do after all. It was a twisted way of looking at things, but Xuanyuan could feel a deep churning within the depths of his mind. His own understandings of shadows were slowly progressing. Even if they were unfounded, the theory was enough for him to start building the foundations of something great. Little shadow, you can create a connection between my shadow and my mind, right? In doing so, you can send shadow thoughts about the things I'm thinking about, right? Xuanyuan watched as his shadow gave him a thumbs up, nodding its own head vigorously. Is it possible for you to send a single shadow thought to me? Just a tiny one if possible? His shadow tapped its chin for a moment, before a faint shadowy wisp appeared in Xuanyuan's mind. The air in old Luo's place is much nicer to breathe than this old shack. Xuanyuan's breathing paused for a moment, and his mouth unconsciously opened. You can create opinions and not just questions? Then what happened last time in Senior Sister's Eyes classroom, and before when I was asking you about heaven path and human path? His shadow nodded, sending him another shadow thought, the tone of the shadow thought distinctly apologetic. I was only trying to help you the last couple times figure out what you wanted. The response caused Xuanyuan to frown a little. Actually that makes sense. I was thinking about questions relating to the limits of shadow path. Little shadow must have tried to help, sending me his own shadow thoughts to multiply the number of questions I had. The nature of shadows as thought GU was slowly being revealed to Xuanyuan. Considering that shadows as thought GU was significantly stronger than anything that Xuanyuan could withstand currently, it was more than likely a rank 5 GU. If it was a rank 6 shadows as thought immortal GU, Xuanyuan was sure that the number of shadow thoughts it would produce would be enough to overwhelm his consciousness and potentially break his mind. Shadows as thought GU was also one of the rare GU which do not rely on a GU master's primeval essence. It instead relies on something else, in this instance, Xuanyuan's shadow otherworldly Dao marks. Shadows as thought GU itself was attracted to Xuanyuan's otherworldly Dao marks. It made the most sense that it would draw power from them. Although it could draw its strength from them, considering Xuanyuan's cultivation, his mind would most likely break before it could fully highlight its strength. The sheer number of shadow thoughts that shadows as thought GU could produce was immense, especially to a rank 1 GU master. However, given the nature of shadows as thought GU was significantly more communicative than other GU. It had currently taken residence within Xuanyuan's shadow and was using it to send shadow thoughts to him. The uniqueness of shadows as thought GU was what made it so powerful to Xuanyuan. If any other path had a similar GU, flame as thought GU, sword as thought GU, even something like time as thought GU, they wouldn't be as communicative, nor as versatile as shadows as thought GU. Perhaps something like soul as thought GU, or blood as thought GU might possess similar qualities, but the shadow was a reflection of all living beings. Xuanyuan's own shadow was a reflection of himself, and now this reflection had become somewhat sentient. Xuanyuan narrowed his brows for a moment, scratching the top of his head. Although I wasn't planning on walking the wisdom path, but with shadows as thought GU, I might have to change that. If Xuanyuan wanted to make the most of shadows as thought GU, having an understanding of wisdom path would only propel his comprehensions and understandings of the GU further. Picking a subpath this early was a little too eager in his opinion, but it was always possible to change it to something else. Picking a subpath based on a single GU was a little preemptive anyways. Xuanyuan let out a loud sigh, sitting up from his bed and grabbing his shoes. He had spent enough time in Long Zai's apartment, and his grasp over shadows as thought GU was enough to prevent himself from activating it by accident again. Little shadow, don't produce shadow thoughts unless I need them, okay? I might need them later though, is that alright? Xuanyuan felt a wisp of black flicker in his shadow for a moment before a thought appeared in his mind. Just don't forget about me. Xuanyuan suppressed a smile, hearing the thought. Stretching his limbs a little bit, Xuanyuan headed back towards Elder Luo's residence. Long Zai's apartment had been at the base of the mountain near Earth Soul City, and it would take him at least an hour to walk all the way back. Xuanyuan felt slightly proud, knowing that despite most of his peers barely possessing a single GU, he himself had completely refined his vital GU, and has in his possession a rank 5 GU currently within his shadow. The immaturity which came with his body rose up, only to be completely suppressed by the rational adult beneath the skin. Finding a rank 5 shadow path, GU, not even a month after I decide to walk the shadow path. Was this all preordained by fate, or was this just the will of heaven? Either way, neither bodes well for me. Heavens will still exist after the destruction of fate GU, and could still interfere in the GU world. With the exception of a blessed land, or a grotto heaven, nowhere was safe from heaven's will. If Xuanyuan meeting with shadows as thought GU was influenced by fate GU, then what did it say about him and his future relationship with the shadow path? Feng Jin Huang, the future great dream immortal venerable, coincidentally, found Dream Wings immortal GU and used it to access dream realms to push her attainment to great grandmaster in several different paths. This was ordained by fate GU, who desired her to become the next immortal venerable. Shadows as thought GU came to Xuanyuan in a similar manner. He never considered himself as lucky, and wasn't so immature as to not suspect the work of fate GU. Rubbing his temples again, he shook his head, not wanting shadows as thought GU to accidentally activate again. I don't even have the qualifications to worry about fate GU right now. I should just focus on what is right in front of me. Xuanyuan spent a little more than an hour, walking through False Soul Mountain before arriving back at Elder Luo's residence. He had prepared his excuse long ago, but after entering the residence, he was surprised by Elder Luo's absence, as explained by one of the maids tending to the residence. Elder Luo has a meeting with the other members of Earth Soul sect. They are in charge of managing Earth Soul City, and from what I understand, an earthquake has caused an opening into the earth abyss to appear within several li of the city. Xuanyuan just nodded, giving the maid a small nod. Thank you, I'll wait for master to return before eating if that's all right. The maid gave a deep bow before leaving Xuanyuan alone. That's pretty lucky, little shadow thought. Indeed, Xuanyuan replied. It left Xuanyuan alone to practice with shadows as thought Ji Yu, and also without the need to explain himself for being late. Entering his study, Xuanyuan locked the door behind him before sitting down cross-legged, smoothing out his breathing, and removing any excess thoughts from his mind. He felt his primeval essence surge slightly, using roughly 10% to refine his aperture walls before letting out a breath of turbid air. His mind had been cleared of most of its thoughts, the remnants of shadow thoughts disappearing into the dark, being completely removed from any sources of light. Little shadow, can you produce shadow thoughts, solely about Shadow Eyes Ji Yu? Xuanyuan felt his temples twinge for a second, before numerous black wisps floated up from within his shadow. Shadow Eyes Ji Yu is a rank 1 shadow path, Ji Yu. It can see the shadows of all living beings within 30 feet. It has reduced effect in areas affected by dark path Ji Yu, or dark path Dao marks. It has increased effect in areas affected by light path Ji Yu, or light path Dao marks. It needs to eat approximately 100 grams of black line grass per week. It cannot perceive the shadows of souls. It cannot perceive the shadows of Dao marks. Using dark charcoal in the bones of an ebony stallion, Shadow Eyes Ji Yu may be refined into black shadow eyes. This was all of the information that Xuanyuan currently knew about Shadow Eyes Ji Yu. Elder Luo had provided him the knowledge on a single refinement path for the Ji Yu to rank 2, transforming the Ji Yu with dark charcoal, a fire path Ji Yu material in the bones of an ebony stallion, a shadow path beast. Dark charcoal and the ebony stallion bones were to be superheated using a blacksmith's forge. Each of the materials would slowly be broken down, but at the climax, the moment the ebony stallion bones were about to crumble into ash, one would throw the Shadow Eyes Ji Yu in, letting it sit in the shadows cast by the flames, within a foot of the dark charcoal. The shadows cast by the flame should take on the image of a flaming black stallion before merging with the Shadow Eyes Ji Yu, transforming it into the black Shadow Eyes Ji Yu. Black Shadow Eyes Ji Yu was the standard refinement path for Shadow Eyes Ji Yu. It increased the range of its abilities from 30 feet to 70 feet. While refining Black Shadow Ji Yu, one had to take into account the intensity of the flame, the timing of adding the Shadow Eyes Ji Yu, the ratio between bones and dark charcoal, the influence of external light sources and a couple other different factors. Xuanyuan had his own suspicions about the Ji Yu, but he didn't have any concrete evidence at the moment. His knowledge on Ji Yu exceeded that of Ji Yu materials, his intense attraction towards the shadow path fueling his desire to learn. Unconsciously, Xuanyuan summoned another illusory black wisp from the depths of his shadow. What if I used charcoal Ji Yu instead of dark charcoal? What would happen to the end result? Little Shadow responded to Xuanyuan's question, releasing numerous more shadow thoughts. Charcoal Ji Yu is a fire path Ji Yu. Dark charcoal is a fire path and a dark path material. The possibility of the fire overwhelming the shadows is significantly more likely, and would likely lead to the destruction of all Ji Yu and Ji Yu materials. Increasing the amount of bones would lead to a greater explosion at the completion of the experiment. Xuanyuan suppressed a wince as another wave of pain pierced the side of his head. What would happen if I kept charcoal Ji Yu but swapped dark charcoal for black rain bark? More and more wisps started emanating from Xuanyuan's shadows. Charcoal Ji Yu is a fire path Ji Yu. Black rain bark is a water path and dark path material. Ebony stallion bones belong to a shadow path beast. Water cancels out fire. There would be no reaction. Swap black rain bark with shadowless sword Ji Yu. Xuanyuan felt something drip down his nose but suppressed it as dozens upon dozens of shadow thoughts emanated from his shadow. Shadows as thought Ji Yu was created dozens of different thoughts, different variations, calculating the possibilities of Xuanyuan's theory. Charcoal Ji Yu is a fire path Ji Yu. Shadowless sword Ji Yu is a sword path Ji Yu, which neither possesses a shadow, nor the capability of harming shadows. Ebony stallion bones belong to a shadow path beast. Charcoal Ji Yu would break down the bones, releasing the power within and cast the remnant shadows of the beast outward. Shadow Eyes Ji Yu could allow the Ji Yu master to perceive these shadows and then use shadowless sword Ji Yu to strike them. What if I cast shadowless sword Ji Yu into the flames? What would happen then? Xuanyuan could barely keep his head up, as more shadow thoughts swarmed his head. Little Shadow was silent for a moment, before a single response came to Xuanyuan's mind. Shadowless sword Ji Yu lacks a shadow. If it can absorb the essence Shadow Eyes Ji Yu, allow charcoal Ji Yu to temper it and refine it, and then absorb the shadow path beast then it could theoretically birth a new Ji Yu. Chapter 9 Expectations. Published by web novel. Xuanyuan immediately opened his eyes, gesturing for Little Shadow to stop the birth of new shadow thoughts. This was the biggest danger associated with shadow as thoughts Ji Yu. My mind can only handle so many shadow thoughts. Getting rid of them through meditation is easy enough in small numbers, but any more, and I'll need a Ji Yu to remove them. Xuanyuan had known that Wisdom Path Ji Yu specialized in manipulation and divination. Wisdom Path Ji Yu were able to predict the coming of future venerables, hundreds of thousands of years in the future, so trying to deduct the recipe of a new rank 1 Ji Yu was nothing in comparison. Trying to deduce heaven path or human path would probably result in attracting the attention of heaven's will. Doing something like that was stupid. But Ji Yu masters all over Ji Yu world tried to deduce new Ji Yu recipes every day. What Xuanyuan was trying to do was no different. Reaching for the jug of water in the corner of the room, Xuanyuan felt the pain in his temples lessen, enjoying the sensation of cold water running down his throat. Ji Yu related to the creation of thoughts act in some ways to a supercomputer. Producing a single question will give rise to a number of thoughts. Those thoughts would derive a myriad of answers, searching continuously for the truth. Xuanyuan could only use Ji Yu or Ji Yu materials that he was familiar with in his deductions. He couldn't just produce a random material out of nowhere. For every path there existed countless Ji Yu and Ji Yu materials. Some had gone extinct, while new materials were being found all over the Ji Yu world. Xuanyuan could name, off the top of his head, about 100 shadow path Ji Yu and close to double that in terms of shadow path Ji Yu materials. After that he needed to remember the materials from other paths, ones that can act complementary with shadow path Ji Yu and Ji Yu materials. Leaning against the wall, Xuanyuan glanced at his shadow, smiling as it played with the shadow of water through the glass jug. Wisdom path Ji Yu masters. I truly underestimated them. The second aperture Ji Yu, which Xuanyuan knew a part of the recipe for, had more than 10,000 words, close to 1,000 steps, and several hundred different Ji Yu materials in order to be completely refined. This, unknown rank 1 Ji Yu, required 4, and it wasn't even guaranteed to work. Xuanyuan reached for his small pouch of primeval essence stones, wincing as he felt the light weight of the pouch. I wanted to try and learn from one of the refinement classes, but it might have to wait until I'm at the middle rank 1 Ji Yu master stage. The otherworldly demon let out a sigh, before stretching for a couple minutes and returning to his cross-legged stance. He spent almost the better part of an hour removing the excess thoughts from his mind, letting out a deep breath before grabbing one of his remaining primeval essence stones, pulling from the energy inside and letting it enter his aperture. Xuanyuan spent the majority of his day cultivating, slowly, but surely pushing his cultivation towards the middle rank 1 Ji Yu master stage. Feeling only about 10% of his primeval essence left, Xuanyuan opened his eyes, seeing that all the natural candles in the room had completely melted, leaving only a single candle Ji Yu by the door. Smiling, his mind was drawn to his primeval essence C, towards the walls of his primeval C, specifically, the color and intensity of the light of his aperture walls. They glowed a thin, almost pale light, though the light itself was neither flickering, nor showing any signs of vanishing. Xuanyuan knew what this meant. This time next week, I'll be a middle stage rank 1 Ji Yu master. Even after I subtract the primeval essence stones needed to classes and for feeding my GU, I'll still be able to reach it. It was quite fast, especially without the assistance of a cultivation type GU. Xuan Yuan's talent would probably allow him to reach rank 2 without too much trouble, even in the same conditions Feng Yuan started off in. If he could get his hands on a liquor worm GU, or a relic GU, he would soar past the other members of his generation. Xuan Yuan was almost tempted to use shadows as thoughts GU to deduce the existence of a shadow path cultivation type GU but refrained against it. The GU in question would more likely belong to the heaven path or the human path, in addition to the shadow path. There was a reason why there didn't just exist a variant of a single GU for every path. There did, but for specific things there was a fundamental gap which either couldn't be filled, or couldn't occur naturally within nature. For example, there existed fire thoughts GU, which produced fire thoughts. This was a naturally occurring GU. On the other hand, there was no way for one of the 3 unique flames in the GU world to be naturally refined into raging wave rising dragon fire thought GU. It wasn't to say that the refinement was impossible, it was just that the refinement was impossible to occur naturally within nature. At any rate, Xuan Yuan was better off just focusing on his cultivation, and using his spare time to deduce new GU or research more GU materials. This would increase his foundation, and allow him to deduce more in the future. However, thoughts of further cultivation vanished, when Xuan Yuan heard a faint knock on the door. A familiar sounding voice echoed through the walls. Little Yuan, dinner is ready. We have guests, so make sure you are presentable. Yes, master, Xuan Yuan quickly responded. Xuan Yuan exited his study, moving down the corridor swiftly yet silently. Some of the maids had already prepared some clothes for him, more than likely at Elder Luo's request. After a few minutes the 15-year-old reincarnate exited his room, his back straightened, and a small smile marring his expression. It wasn't the first time that Elder Luo had brought him to meet other elders within the ancient soul sect, but all the previous times were more informal, casual greetings. He had been introduced to one of the other elders of the ancient soul sect, Elder Tai, who had just married his third wife. She was a rank 2 GU master and roughly 20 years old. She had a beautiful appearance and AC grade talent, but was about the same age as Elder Chen's oldest grandchild. He was a jubilant person, uncaring of how others perceived him, and for that reason and that reason alone, Xuan Yuan liked him over some of the other elders. Stepping into the main dining room, Xuan Yuan noticed close to a dozen elderly men and women gathered around a long, large table. Food and wine were placed all along the rectangular table, with close to 2 dozen seats placed on both sides of the room. Xuan Yuan's eyes were drawn to the massive skull placed behind the head of the table. It was relatively clean, albeit with a few splotches of blood here and there, but the sheer size of the skull was enough for a fully grown man to stand inside of its jaw. Is that a crocodile skull? What rank of beast would it have had to be for it to grow that large? Xuan Yuan's train of thought came to a halt as he noticed Elder Luo standing beside some other older men and women. The older, slightly gray-haired man smiled seeing Xuan Yuan, before gesturing him to come closer and introduce himself. Little Yuan, how fares your cultivation? Oh, how could I forget? This is Elder Hu from the Dark Soul Hall, and Elder Kong from the Sky Soul Hall. Elder Hu is in charge of the entrances into the Earth Abyss, while Elder Hu is in charge of communing with our sect's rank 6 GU immortals. Come, introduce yourself. Xuan Yuan, taller than Elder Luo for his age, was similarly taller than both Elder Hu and Elder Kong. Elder Hu was an older woman with black hair, and age lines around her brow and eyes. While Elder Kong was significantly older than the both of them, completely bald, with the sole exception of his thick white eyebrows. Xuan Yuan bowed, almost at a 90-degree angle, clasping his hands in front of the 2 elders. This one greets the 2 elders, Xuan Yuan spoke, a hint of reverence in his voice. The latter glanced at Xuan Yuan, smiling, his eyebrows raising a fraction of an inch at the young man. Barely a month and almost a middle stage rank 1 GU master, even without something like liquor worm GU or cloud essence GU, your cultivation is still ahead of your peers. Xuan Yuan nodded deeply. Thank you for the compliments, Elder Kong. I will strive to continue exceeding your expectations. Elder Kong just nodded, before Elder Hu gave Xuan Yuan a once over. Elder Luo walks the space path. Have you also decided to walk the same path, Xuan Yuan? The 15-year-old glanced at Elder Luo for a moment, before shaking his head, meeting Elder Hu's gaze. Elder Kong and Elder Luo shared a glance for a fraction of a moment, while Elder Hu continued to stare at Xuan Yuan. I feel a greater attraction towards the shadow path, Elder Hu. I do not know the details, however I do understand that the space path is an attractive prospect for rank 6. However, the shadow path comes to me in a way that almost feels like magic. Xuan Yuan's words were designed to be misleading, not that they weren't the truth anyway. It was impossible for any of the 3 elders to be unaware of Xuan Yuan's progress in Long Zai's classroom, and even the discussions with Elder Luo about the shadow path were much more profound than a mortal raised rank 1 GU master. Both Elder Hu and Elder Kong raised an eyebrow, sending Elder Luo another strange look. The latter just smiled, stroking his beard while patting Xuan Yuan on the shoulder. Little Yuan here is fated for the shadow path. Let us not force things that should not be forced. Elder Hu and Elder Kong just nodded, before the Sky Soul Hall elder turned back to face Xuan Yuan. Xuan Yuan, how about, I set a little goal for you. If that is all right with you, Elder Luo. The Earth Soul Hall elder just nodded, knowing where Elder Kong was going with this. The white-eyebrow old man just smiled, his appearance and demeanor disarming and friendly. If I am not mistaken, you should reach the middle rank 1 GU master stage within the next 7 days or so. Even in comparison to all the other new outer sect disciples we recruited this year, with the exception of those from families of means and descendants of other elders, your cultivation is undoubtedly the quickest. However, talents such as yours need to be pushed, tempered, refined. Polishing isn't enough. We want diamonds, and diamonds require pressure in order to be formed. At the end of the year, there is a tournament for all the new GU masters recruited over the past 12 months. This is the first major examination of our new disciples, and the winner of the tournament will automatically be made an intersect disciple. It is also a place where talents can show themselves off, and potentially be made personal disciples of elders. There will be children who raise their cultivation through relic GU and the like, but regardless of that, I would like to see how you perform during the tournament. If you take first place, then I'll see if I can arrange a meeting with Immortal Song, the ancient soul sect's shadow path GU immortal. Does that sound fair to you? Xuan Yuan couldn't help but feel his mouth drop for a moment, his breath hitching before a smile pulled at the corner of his lips. The reincarnated man just bowed deeply, even more so than what he had done earlier. I cannot see the future, Elder Kong, but I did make a promise to exceed your expectations. I will not disappoint. Chapter 10, Forgotten Soul Hall. Published by Web Novel. A couple days after the meeting with Elder Hu and Elder Kong, Xuan Yuan had fully immersed himself in his cultivation. Every primeval essence stone that was in his possession were either spent on cultivation, or Long Zai's shadow path class, basic GU refinement class and his mandatory ethics class. Xuan Yuan wanted to spend another primeval essence stone on the wisdom path class, but refrained himself for the time being. Primeval essence stones were precious resources, and Xuan Yuan's desire to attain first place in the tournament at the end of the year forced him to redouble his efforts in his cultivation. Having a liquor worm GU, or a cloud essence GU, a GU which slowly converted ambient primeval energy into primeval essence, would vastly increase Xuan Yuan's cultivation, but for the time being, such a thing wasn't going to happen. I still can't believe that rank 1 liquor worms cost 500 primeval essence stones. A regular disciple would have to save for almost an entire year to purchase one. By that stage, I would have already become a rank 2 GU master. Xuan Yuan knew the recipe to refine a rank 1 liquor worm GU into a rank 2 4 flavors liquor worm GU, and planned on originally doing that after acquiring the funds to purchase 2 rank 1 liquor worm GU. But the cost of such a thing exceeded 1,000 primeval essence stones. Feng Yuan was blessed with information regarding his future, but without wealth or background. Xuan Yuan was blessed with the opposite. The winner of the tournament will be given a relic GU equal to their current cultivation realm. In addition, they are given 1,000 primeval essence stones, and any single GU of their choice. If I pick a rank 1 liquor worm GU, and then purchase another one, then I should be able to refine the rank 2 4 flavors liquor worm GU. Little Shadow released a single black wisp. But what happens if all the liquor worms in the sector bought by that time? Are you going to wait until another one is available? Xuanyuan scrunched up his face at the thought of such a thing happening. Shadows as thought GU always brought Xuanyuan back to reality. Xuanyuan on his own produced numerous thoughts, beyond that of a regular 15-year-old, which is what allowed him to handle the production of so many shadow thoughts. But the GU did have a point. If all of the liquor worm GU were gone before the end of the year, then Xuanyuan's goal of refining a rank 2 4 flavors liquor worm were out the window before he could reach out to grasp it. Not to mention, he needed offensive GU for the tournament as well. Xuanyuan suppressed a groan, letting out a sigh before shaking his head. Shadow Eyes GU was a great investigative GU worm, and he couldn't risk using Shadows as thought GU when in front of other people. He needed at least 2 or 3 more GU if he wanted to win the tournament without any worries, taking into account the wealthy sons and daughters of merchants and sect elders. The latter no doubt had received martial arts training and ample amount of practice and familiarity with their GU. Xuanyuan gazed at the numerous books on GU and GU materials scattered about the floor. He needed to focus on his strengths if he wanted to earn primeval essence stones. My greatest strength right now are deductions more than anything. With Shadows as thought GU, I can produce more thoughts than any other GU master at the same level of cultivation. Even rank 2 GU masters don't compare. If there was a way I could answer questions and earn primeval essence stones, then things would be perfect. Xuanyuan paused for a moment blinking, before rushing out of his study, running towards the refinement hall. He had only had 2 lessons on GU refinement so far, but there was more to the refinement hall than just the classrooms. The refinement hall was located at the base of the False Soul Mountain. It was the largest building Xuanyuan had ever seen since his reincarnation, and housed not just classrooms and hallways, but also hundreds of small rooms used for GU refinement. Additionally, the refinement hall also housed all of the sect's GU recipes that it had collected over the years. That was what Xuanyuan was looking for. More specifically, the incomplete GU recipes. Most of them were free to browse, although the higher rank the GU recipe, the greater likelihood of someone needing to pay to browse it. Xuanyuan, with his tall stature, seemed older than his appearance suggested, but smiled like a regular 15-year-old at the young rank 3 GU master guarding the entrance to the refinement hall. Senior sister, where could I go to browse the incomplete GU recipes within the refinement hall? The guard glanced at Xuanyuan for a moment before muttering in a low voice. The incomplete recipes are located on the 3rd floor. Take a left, and then another left at the end of the hallway, and you should eventually arrive in the Forgotten Soul Hall. Elder Kui is usually the one present. Xuanyuan bowed, thanking the older woman before following her instructions, heading up to the 3rd floor. He passed several GU masters, whispering amongst themselves in low voices. From the bits that he could hear, Xuanyuan knew that they were discussing GU refinement, while some were discussing gossip or information around the sect. He had heard mention of his name, along with some less than savory opinions about favoritism and unfairness. Even after a month, people were still gossiping about him. Xuanyuan just strode past them, directly towards the Forgotten Soul Hall. He was expecting a relatively small room, perhaps a dozen or so shelves and a couple tables and chairs, but the Forgotten Soul Hall was a little larger than what he was expecting. His eyes widened as hundreds upon hundreds of shelves appeared before him, each lined with books and GU and glass cabinets as far as the eye could see. Xuanyuan almost thought that the room was larger than the building, and quickly realized how the room was designed. Some sort of space path GU must have been used while constructing this building. Space has been stretched so as to make the inside bigger, but also make it more difficult to enter. His master, Elder Luo, was a space path GU master. After the shadow path, Xuanyuan was most familiar with space path GU and GU materials. Oh, a new face. It's always nice to see some of the new generation garner interest in my Forgotten Soul Hall. Xuanyuan snapped out his examination before turning and gazing at the man in front of him. He tilted his head downwards, noting that the older man in front of him was short, almost remarkably so. Are you Elder Kui? The words left Xuanyuan's mouth, and the little old man nodded, shrugging his shoulders. Yes, despite my height I am an elder of the ancient soul sect. A rank 4 GU master specializing in the information path. Xuanyuan tilted his head slightly. My apologies, Elder Kui. I'm afraid my knowledge on the information path is lacking. The short elder just waved him off casually. Don't worry about things like that. The only reason why I, a rank 4 GU master, is in charge of an entire hall is because of my path. It makes me uniquely suited to record and memorize information of a vast size and variation. Most of the time GU masters just enter the hall and ask where to find something, and then I give it to them. Xuanyuan paused for a moment, glancing around the room. You know the location of every piece of information in the Forgotten Soul Hall? Doesn't that mean you've memorized the information itself? Elder Kui nodded. Even if something is destroyed or misplaced, the sect has copies. Some of the incomplete recipes in this room are incredibly old. Some are impossible to complete due to the extinction of certain species of beasts, while some GU materials are so scarce that they are considered extinct. Unfortunately, even if we could complete these recipes, we lacked materials to refine these GU. Elder Kui shook his head, forlorn at the loss of potentially new information. Xuanyuan on the other hand. Elder Kui, what would happen if one of the GU recipes were completed? Say I completed one, for example, would I be rewarded? The elder gave Xuanyuan a once over, scoffing slightly while shaking his head. If the recipe works and produces a GU, then of course your actions would be rewarded. You are contributing to the sect after all. Recipe for GU often exceed the cost of the GU itself, so depending on the rank of the recipe, the complexity of the new recipe and the strength of the new GU, the reward would be around 4 or 5 times that of the GU itself. More if it's something that can speed up cultivation, or reduce the importance of talent. Something like that would be in the thousands of primeval stones. Elder Kui narrowed his eyes at Xuanyuan. But you're much too young for that, barely a rank 1 GU master and trying to complete a forgotten GU recipe. Come back when you're rank 2 at the very least. Xuanyuan didn't feel any malice behind those words, and suppressed himself from frowning or retorting. Elder Kui was still an elder after all. Even if he was only a rank 4 GU master, he was in charge of the entirety of Forgotten Soul Hall. The otherworldly demon just let out a sigh before shaking his head. Elder Kui, I just wanted to take a look. I'm a mortal-born GU master and my parents died when I was little. Other than the 10 primeval essence stones I am given by the sect each week, I have no other forms of gaining wealth and progressing my cultivation. Please, Elder Kui, I desire only knowledge. I know my limits better than anyone else. The expression on Elder Kui's face softened after hearing Xuanyuan's words. He could detect no lies in the information Xuanyuan had given him. Xuanyuan had chosen his words carefully, trying to play on the heartstrings of the older man. No doubt, considering the age and the rank of the older man, he had either resigned himself to remaining a rank 4 GU master for the rest of his life, or had his chance and failed, awaiting his next opportunity to break through to rank 5. Either way, Xuanyuan knew that Elder Kui could sympathize with someone of a similar origin, suffering with an insufficient talent. What was your name again, young man? Elder Kui questioned. Just Xuanyuan, Elder Kui, just Xuanyuan, he responded. Elder Kui didn't pry, only nodding slightly before gesturing to the wide array of shelves and incomplete GU recipes in the room. Well then, Xuanyuan, was there anything in particular you were looking for? The 15-year-old blinked for a moment before nodding, gesturing to a random shelf. Ah, I have recently spent some of my primeval essence stones on the basic GU refinement class taught to new disciples. I suppose I was looking research behind GU refinement techniques, and how different techniques can influence the outcome of the GU refinement. Elder Kui nodded slightly, gesturing for Xuanyuan to continue. My vital GU is a Shadow Eyes GU you see. Firstly, I wanted to see if there were any incomplete recipes regarding the potential refinement of Shadow Eyes GU. If I could get my hands on the recipe for a future refinement, then that would be perfect. If not, then I would potentially look at other Shadow Path GU recipes. Complementary GU materials are also important. Dark path materials and light path materials are closest in terms of compatibility with shadow path. Even if the recipe isn't complete now, it was at some point, right? A certain level of compatibility exists, even if we don't fully know the outcome. Elder Kui nodded at Xuanyuan's words. Your words have merit, Xuanyuan. I suppose letting you take a peek at a few incomplete recipes won't hurt anyone. Xuanyuan's heart rose. But only rank 1 GU recipes, nothing higher. If you want to look at them, come back after you've become a rank 2 GU master. Xuanyuan nodded resolutely, causing Elder Kui to smile, the older man looking away, glancing at Xuanyuan's eagerness. It has been a while since I've chatted with a young GU master. He was interested in the shadow path, right? Elder Kui thought. Elder Kui extended his hand and a book from a distant shelf came flying over, landing softly in his palm. The book was thin and tattered, lacking a front and a back cover, only being held together by a series of strings tied around holes punched through the pages. Elder Kui handed the pages to Xuanyuan. This book was found in an expedition to the Western Desert. A group of ancient soul sect GU masters found this book beside a corpse, blood soaking the front and back covers. The name is lost, but it belonged to a shadow path GU master. All of the complete recipes were removed, but there are half a dozen or so incomplete recipes within. Xuanyuan held the book in both hands, his eyes wide as he gazed at the stack of paper in his hands. Half a dozen. His thoughts unconsciously betrayed him. Holding the book like it was an immortal GU, Xuanyuan smiled at Elder Kui. Thank you, Elder Kui. This is beyond what I anticipated after coming here. Elder Kui went slightly red in the face, waving Xuanyuan off before shaking his head. Just make sure that nothing happens to the book. There are copies, but having to recreate it would be extraordinarily troublesome. Is that understood, Xuanyuan? The young man nodded, staring firmly at the short elder. I promise, Elder Kui, nothing bad will happen to this book. Chapter 11 Middle Stage. Published by Web Novel. First step, place a single crimson night flower and 8-layered ginseng into the cauldron. Boil until the essence of night and life seep into the water. The swirling mist shall envelop each other, giving rise to a harmonious blessing. Second step, stir, continuously adding the blood of an twilight scorpion. The balance between night and life slowly creeping into the shadow's favor. Shadows birthed from night shall dance, wondrous scorpions shall ascend towards the night sky. Third step. Fourth step. Fifth step, guiding twilight and shadows, infuse 10 mortal scorpions into the cauldron. Their shadows will spark a frenzy, maiming and killing each other, until a single scorpion absorbs the essence of 9 shadows. End result, rank 1 Shadow Stinger GU. Xuanyuan gazed down at the incomplete rank 1 GU recipe. He unconsciously nodded as he gazed at the recipe, an enormous pile of books and texts scattered around him. Shadow Path GU materials, Wood Path GU materials, Poison Path GU materials, Water Path GU materials, Blood Path GU materials. Dozens of books listing countless different materials from different continents and regions were placed around Xuanyuan. There existed places in the GU world where certain Dao marks could intersect, producing unique materials in GU. There existed a place in the Western Desert where GU and GU materials belonging to the 5 elements could be found freely, a resource point for an immortal clan. A resource point in the Eastern Sea where Ice Path, Water Path, Sword Path and Blade Path materials could be found in abundance. These resource points were created from a unique combination of Dao marks. For whatever reason, they intersected in a way that didn't reduce the other, and instead complemented the other perfectly. This made the list of materials extraordinarily high. GU materials were one thing, but most beasts changed whenever they increased their rank. The Dao marks within their flesh, blood, and bones gradually grew more pronounced, sometimes tipping their effectiveness over a certain threshold. I'll ignore the other recipes for now. Shadow Stinger GU is an offensive GU whose materials I know are commonly available in Earth Soul City. The book was found in the Western Desert, meaning that it likely uses materials from the Western Desert in order to be produced. It uses GU materials outside of Shadow Path, and references night, life, twilight, and shadows. These materials more than likely reference Dark Path, Wood Path, Moon Path and Shadow Path. There was always the possibility of there being another GU material from an unknown path, but both Xuanyuan and Shadow as Thoughts GU agreed that the chances of it doing so was unlikely. There are only so many materials that a rank 1 GU recipe could use. It isn't a heaven path or a human path GU either. If Shadow Stinger GU does need a GU material from an addition path, then I can understand why this GU recipe was never recovered. Xuanyuan wrote notes in his own book about GU refinement and GU refinement techniques. There existed the methods that Xuanyuan was familiar, such as human isolation style, which relied on isolating the refinement from the external world, and Hairy Man Heaven and Earth style, which relied on manipulating the ambient Dao marks to help assist in the refinement. Most of what Xuanyuan read about fell solely under the human isolation style of GU refinement, controlling as many possibilities and external factors as possible to increase the refinement success rate. Xuanyuan knew that there were techniques other than these two main schools, but for humanity, human isolation style provided the greatest success, considering they possessed no innate Dao marks. But I possess Dao marks, Xuanyuan thought. But he didn't think that his otherworldly Dao marks would respond well under the influence of Heaven's will and Fate GU. Xuanyuan didn't even have a method to leverage his own unique Dao marks, and even if he did, he wasn't sure what the outcome could possibly lead to. Shaking his head, Xuanyuan removed those senseless thoughts before smoothing out his breathing, focusing his mentality solely on the GU recipe in front of him. He had spent the last few days devouring any and all information he could find on GU materials from the Western Desert, specifically those relating to Dark, Wood, Moon and Shadow Path GU materials. He took into account the complexities that came with these materials. The ratio from material to material, the concentration of said materials, the amount of force required to stir or crush a material, the different relationships between paths, the timing in between each step. Even the humidity of the air and the intensity of the natural Dao marks came into play. Xuanyuan had the benefit of knowing concepts and notions that ordinary GU masters didn't even need to consider. It allowed him to control more factors relating to his deductions, increasing the likelihood of his deductions being correct. Are you ready, little shadow? He asked. A single black wisp rose up from his shadow, sending a thought of affirmation flashing through Xuanyuan's mind. Then let us begin, he muttered. Little shadow, produce shadow thoughts relating to Shadow Stinger GU. In comparison to Shadow Eyes GU, only about half the shadow thoughts form from this question. Shadow Stinger GU is a rank 1 Shadow Path GU. It is not a naturally occurring GU. Materials for the refinement of Shadow Stinger GU can be found in the Western Desert. It relies on Crimson Night Flower, a Dark Path material, 8-layered ginseng, a Wood Path material, Twilight Scorpion Blood, a Shadow Path GU material, Mortal Scorpions and an unknown Moon Path material. Shadow Stinger GU manifests on the tailbone of a GU master. It forms a 3-meter-long stinger formed from shadows, capable of wounding an individual through the reflection known as their shadow. Xuanyuan felt a small headache forming, but wasn't nearly enough of a pain to distract him from his goal. Assuming that the Moon Path material is rank 1 and is from the Western Desert, give me possibilities. An enormous torrent of black wisps were released from Xuanyuan's shadow, the blood vessels in his eyes instantly contracting, causing bursts of red to appear in Xuanyuan's eyes. Lunar Soup Frog, Moonlight Flower, Radiant Silver Rabbit, Illusory Lake Monkey, Selena Flower Petals, Silver Moon Fruit, Radiant Veil Root, Sunless Seeds, Argent Beauty Rock, Twisted Moon Gold. Dozens upon dozens of different GU materials appeared within Xuanyuan's mind. He experienced every shadow thought all at once, gritting his teeth heavily as a wave of pain coursed through his head. Take things one at a time, little shadow. Start from the beginning, and assume the validity of each material when testing for compatibility. In addition, eliminate all materials that possess no compatibility with either the Wood Path and the Dark Path. The steps that Xuanyuan were given included 8-layered ginseng as a refinement material, a classic Wood Path GU material. In the final steps, it mentioned guiding shadows and twilight, not guiding night and life like it did in the first step. It meant that the crimson night flowers and 8-layered ginseng only primed certain materials for refinement. They were not involved in the formation of the GU in the final steps. This is what Xuanyuan meant by naturally occurring materials. In areas with a unique compatibility between Dao marks, materials could be uniquely born here suitable for the formation of GU. Outside of these resource points, however, GU and GU materials had to be refined before the formation of an actual GU. Xuanyuan felt his brain churn as though he had suddenly been hit with a rod of iron. His primeval essence C similarly surged, waves forming under the huge amount of stress Xuanyuan was forcing upon it. Selena flower petals are compatible with both crimson night flowers and 8-layered ginseng. Selena flower petals can only grow under complete darkness and absorb the essence of surrounding plants in order to further fuel its growth. It can produce faint amounts of moonlight, attracting ambient creatures towards it, with illusory promises and sweet scents. Radiant veil root are compatible with both crimson night flowers and 8-layered ginseng. Radiant veil root grows underground in complete darkness, latching onto nearby plants, connecting species of flora that shouldn't have any compatibility. The sap within the radiant veil root are particularly enticing towards arachnids. Deduction after deduction occurred within Xuanyuan's mind. Material after material was listed, possibility after possibility was taken into account, failure after failure resounded out in every corner of Xuanyuan's mind. Eventually, he hit his own breaking point. A single line of crimson dripped down from his eye socket, and immediately shadows as thought GU stopped producing shadow thoughts. Xuanyuan gritted his teeth, slamming his hand into the ground, the pain in his hand somewhat dulling the pain in his head. Fuck, I have to be missing something. Crimson night flowers and 8-layered ginseng are not the only materials used in priming the refinement. There is no stability in the refinement process. Life nurtures all, while night can only nurture shadows. Something must nurture moon and balance out the refinement process. Xuanyuan hadn't finished going through all the possibilities that shadows as thought GU produced, but was aware that the shadow thought existed. Xuanyuan was missing something, an unknown refinement material, belonging to an unknown path. Laying down in his current position, Xuanyuan let out a loud sigh, reaching for the leather pouch of water a few feet away from him. He had accidentally knocked over his jug of water yesterday, and almost damaged a few of his books, forcing him to adopt the water skin. The otherworldly demon just drank his water in silence, letting out another sigh before sitting back upright. Guess there is only one thing left to do then, he muttered. Focusing on his primeval essence C, Xuanyuan took in a deep breath before exhaling aggressively, a method which assisted in the removal of his excess thoughts. The process similarly took just under an hour, before Xuanyuan, as serene as he appeared before his deductions, let out a small, steady breath before muttering a single word. Rise. The primeval essence within his aperture immediately surged, rampaging with the force of 1,000 squalls. The surging primeval essence within his aperture tossed and turned, completely unlike the steady refinement that Xuanyuan had undergone previously. The aperture walls of a primeval essence C were designed to be nourished, broken down, then replaced with a higher quality of aperture walls. Xuanyuan's aperture walls had been nourished with his own primeval essence every night since he learned how to refine them. He could nourish them for longer, and much quicker than others without cultivation type GU. His master, Elder Luo, told him to keep refining his aperture walls, even after the light within them stopped flickering and remained pale but constant. It didn't necessarily improve his chances of breaking through, but reduced the chances of cracks forming in his future aperture walls, potentially leading to injury or backlash. Only at point when Xuanyuan could no longer nurture his aperture walls, when they refused to accept more primeval essence, would he smash his primeval essence against his aperture walls, destroying the condensed primeval essence and allowing for them to be reborn stronger, more efficient in regenerating primeval essence, and with a much more dense qualitative increase. Waves upon waves surged within Xuanyuan's aperture. He knew better than anyone else how tough his primeval C was, and knew that they could withstand such an onslaught. He knew that the pain would be immense, but so long as he continued, eventually, cracks would start to form. He unconsciously smiled as a hairline fracture appeared on his aperture walls. The jade green primeval essence smashed against it, again and again, creating more hairline fractures until... Fuck, that hurt. A massive divide appeared within his primeval essence C. Xuanyuan flinched slightly as the crack suddenly formed, but continued swaying his jade green primeval essence, causing crack upon crack upon crack to appear until he finally broke through his aperture wall. Immediately, Xuanyuan felt a wave of pleasure wash over him. For a fraction of a moment, all of his senses were skewed inward, granting him perception over every tiny detail that was changing within him. The broken shards of his aperture wall transformed from their pale gaseous state into water, smooth, flowing and much thicker and powerful. The color of his primeval essence changed too, shifting from jade green to a slightly more visible pale green. The shadow eyes GU in his primeval essence C swam about happily, floating amongst the higher quality primeval essence. Xuanyuan smiled, relishing in this feeling of cultivation and progress. After just over a month in the ancient soul sect, I reached the middle rank 1 GU master stage. Chapter 12, I Shall Become Venerable. Published by web novel. Just wanted to give a shout out to a new Reverend Insanity fanfic. Reverend Insanity Otherworldly Demon Venerable by Photo Hatab. I was inspired to write this fanfic by Creed Follower, the author of Blood Venerable Ascension, ACDPQS, the author of Poison Refining Demon Venerable, and Camuel, the author of Reverend Insanity, Phantom Spirit, all three of which have done the same thing and shouted out my fanfic in the past. I probably won't write one of these again in the short term, unless another Reverend Insanity fanfic comes out, but thank you all for reading so far, and if you have any questions, I don't mind answering them so long as it doesn't involve any future plot points. Thank you all again. The next day, Xuanyuan went to Elder Luo who examined his cultivation base. The rank 5 GU master examined the walls of his primeval essence C, and just smiled slightly before handing Xuanyuan another small pouch of primeval essence stones. You've done well, Xuanyuan. Your cultivation is progressing smoothly and without incident. Despite the fact that you are not the first GU master from your batch of disciples to become a middle stage rank 1 GU master, as far as I am aware you are the first to do so without a cultivation type GU. Xuanyuan nodded at his master's words. He wasn't surprised about that. Even someone like Fang Yuan could beat his brother, whose primeval essence C was more than twice as large as his own, to the middle rank 1 GU master stage with the help of a liquor worm GU. Fang Zheng did have to learn how to cultivate, and to refine his vital GU, and Fang Yuan did have the assistance of Spring Autumn Cicada to refine his GU. Thank you master for your praise, and thank you again for the books on GU and GU materials. I know that most of them would require primeval essence stones in order to be read. Elder Luo just waved Xuanyuan off, patting his disciple on the shoulder gently. Do not concern yourself with the value of those books. They are only valuable to those who still have yet to gain from them. For an old man like myself, they hold little value. For a young GU master on the other hand, walking down his own path, every word is priceless. Xuanyuan just smiled in response, giving Elder Luo a deep bow before returning back to his study. His cultivation had increased, and as a result, the number of times he could use his GU increased as well. Xuanyuan only had the shadow eyes GU at the moment, but hopefully that would change in the not so distant future. Deducing GU recipes is the best way to earn money right now. Not only would I gain a reward from the sect, but I will also be able to attempt the refinement of the shadow stinger GU myself, adding it to my repertoire of available GU. Xuanyuan's grasp of the shadow path was increasing by the day. Most GU masters couldn't make use of a rank 5 GU due to the primeval essence requirements, and most certainly didn't have Dao marks for a GU to draw its strength from either. The 15-year-old reincarnate kept his pouch of 20 primeval essence stones to the side for the moment, saving them for a later date. Xuanyuan knew that he could potentially push his cultivation even further using them, but refrained himself for the time being. Instead, he focused all of his attention and mental energy into deductions and GU refinement methods. Shadow thoughts bubbling up from the depths of his shadow like sea foam against a rocky shoreline. With his enhanced cultivation he could endure slightly more shadow thoughts than he could previously, and reduce the time it took to remove them by a couple minutes. Xuanyuan's days continued like this, researching GU materials and refinements, attending classes on Shadow Path GU, Wisdom Path GU, Basic GU refinement and martial arts until eventually, someone else couldn't take it anymore. You think you're so cool, don't you? Acting high and mighty just because you're the disciple of an elder? Xuanyuan raised an eyebrow, not listening to the jeers and shouts of his fellow disciples in the stands. Currently in his martial arts class, Xuanyuan focused his attention on his opponent, a short, broad-shouldered young man with short dark hair and thick, dark eyebrows. Xuanyuan just remained silent, eyeing the other boy and ignoring his provocative taunts. Something that he didn't take quite well. He snarled at Xuanyuan before extending his fist forward, swinging wide towards his head. Xuanyuan arched back slightly, letting the blow brush past him before landing his own jab deep into the boy's torso. The moment Xuanyuan felt his fist connect, a sharp burst of pain emanated from his hand, forcing him to step back. Glancing down at his fist, Xuanyuan could see a deep gash along his knuckles, blood pouring out of the wound incessantly. Oi, Shu Chen, I thought I said no GU allowed. The teacher of the class, a rank 3 GU master, immediately appeared on the platform, glaring daggers at Shu Chen who just shrugged his shoulders. I apologize, Teacher Li, I can't control my GU very well. It must have acted on its own. Teacher Li glanced at Xuanyuan's fist, suppressing a grimace before facing Shu Chen. This is your first and last warning, Shu Chen. If you cannot control your own GU properly, then perhaps you do not belong in the ancient soul sect, Shu Chen. We do not take weaklings, and we do not take those who cannot control themselves. The young man scrunched up his face before removing his protective gear and throwing them on the ground. Fine then, take his side for all I care. You're only protective of him because he is the disciple of an elder. Free primeval essence stones, free GU, free lessons, free protection. He is given everything, while the rest of us have to work in order to obtain primeval essence stones. Shu Chen's words were less directed at Teacher Li, and more at the rest of the class. The young man tried to paint Xuanyuan in a certain light, an unfavorable light, but Teacher Li wasn't having it. Grow up, Shu Chen. This is the ancient soul sect, not the mortal world. What the elders do with their own resources are completely up to them to decide. You have no say in what a rank 5 GU master is to do or not do. You do not dare to take it up with the elders directly, so you breed resentment and discord amongst the other rank 1 GU masters. You see Xuanyuan as someone born with a silver spoon, yet say nothing to those who are the descendants of wealthy merchants and the scions of other elders. Teacher Li continued before Shu Chen could respond. He puffed his chest out and tilted his head back to look down upon the younger boy. This is a righteous sect. Everyone is equal, as is their right, but everyone in this world is not born equal. You all have B grade or A grade talents, allowing you to join the ancient soul sect. This is a privilege, not a right. That privilege comes with responsibility to uphold the standards of the sect wherever the time or place and whatever the circumstances may be. It is not becoming of a member of the ancient soul sect to slander another with baseless accusations. It is not becoming of a member of the ancient soul sect to break the rules and use GU against them in a spar. Is this understood, Shu Chen? Shu Chen clenched his fist tightly, his body trembling slightly under the intense reprimand that Teacher Li had given him. Shu Chen could feel the gazes of all the other disciples on his body. Several of his other classmates were whispering, causing him to feel isolated, even while wearing the uniform of the ancient soul sect. Xuanyuan just glanced at the younger boy, before letting out a sigh and shaking his head. Teenagers are the worst to argue against. Most aren't exactly the most open-minded of individuals. They see the world through their lens and their lens only, incapable of seeing a perspective other than their own. Xuanyuan just stepped forward, tearing off a long strip of his robe, wrapping it around his knuckles. He would have to go to the infirmary later and get it healed. He didn't want to risk infection, or the pain to annoy him while he was cultivating. Teacher Li, I think Shu Chen has had enough. I forgive him and will not seek reparations, so please, just leave it at that. Teacher Li's eyes widened, and even Shu Chen couldn't believe the words coming out of Xuanyuan's mouth. You, forgive him? Xuanyuan nodded, suppressing a wince as he tightened the strip of cloth around his knuckles. Yes, I do believe I just said that. Teacher Li just blinked, but Shu Chen spoke up before he could say anything. I don't need your forgiveness. I don't need anything from you. Xuanyuan glanced at him, shrugging his shoulders nonchalantly, his dark, clear eyes reflecting Shu Chen's appearance, causing a shiver to creep down the younger boy's spine. That's okay too, I guess. I don't really care. Teacher Li responded first this time. You don't care that he broke the rules? You don't care that he injured you either? Xuanyuan clenched his torn fist, slightly feeling the strip of cloth restrict most of the movement in his hand. Nodding slightly, Xuanyuan turned to face Teacher Li and Shu Chen. I care that he injured me, but I don't particularly care about his justifications for doing so. I don't care that he doesn't like me, so why would I bother wasting my time on resolving a one-sided conflict, when I can focus my time and energy on cultivation and research on GU and GU materials? Why would any of you? Worrying about the opinions of others is irrelevant on the path of cultivation. We each seek to become stronger, out of fear, curiosity, love, or some other desire. Why would I choose to satisfy the arrogance and the needs of someone who only desires attention more than my own desires? Why would I waste my time on things that do not interest me? Xuanyuan glanced at his classmates, some of them gulping as his dark eyes washed over them. I shall become venerable. I desire truth, the absolute apex of a path, to become the supreme grand master over an entire path of GU. And I will not arrive there by wasting my time with childlike squabbles. I will get there by pouring every single drop of blood, sweat and tears I could possibly give, and then give some more in order to arrive at the pinnacle. Xuanyuan turned back towards Shu Chen, who had gone pale in the face under the combined efforts of Teacher Li's reprimand and Xuanyuan's 1,000-yard stare. So no, I do not care about a meager wound such as this one. I do not care about your feelings towards me at all. If you have a problem with me, ignore it. You'd be doing yourself a favor. The 15-year-old nodded at Teacher Li, before removing his own protective equipment, placing it neatly on the side of the platform. The rank 3 GU master just watched silently as Xuanyuan left the training grounds, his mind still processing the words that had just come out of Xuanyuan's mouth. I shall become venerable, the supreme grand master over an entire path of GU. I desire the truth. Li Rong had heard similar words before, the vast majority of GU masters saying something similar at least once in their entire lifetime. I shall become the next immortal venerable. I want to follow in the footsteps of Giant Sun, and marry all women beneath the heavens and the earth. Thieving heaven roam the three worlds freely, traveling and enjoying life to its fullest. I desire to do the same. I want to be as famous as Star Constellation. I want to be as strong as Reckless Savage. I want to help people as much as possible, just like Paradise Earth. GU masters aspired to be like a Venerable. They wanted the same recognition and renown that these legendary figures possessed. They wanted their legends to be their own, and their strength and power to belong to them instead. However, the words that came out of Xuanyuan's mouth. No, not just his tone. His tone, his demeanor, his disregard for others, his perspective of cultivation, of relationships. Everything, even his clear, black eyes all screamed out at Li Rong. I shall become venerable, he muttered. Never had Li Rong heard those words, and think that, even for a second, that it might come true. Li Rong had heard that even Elder Kong, one of the elders closest to becoming a GU immortal, wasn't completely sure he could cross the divide between rank 5 and rank 6. And yet this young man desired to reach rank 9. The only question in Li Rong's mind was, but what will you become, Xuanyuan, an immortal venerable, or? Chapter 13 I Am Not Wrong. Published by web novel. Needless to say, Xuanyuan had become the target of countless rumors and gossip as the days went past. The vast majority of the ancient soul sect didn't concern themselves with the idle gossip of rank 1 GU masters. However, those hot-headed new disciples whom had just joined the sect often competed against each other in order to assert dominance. They were boisterous, loud, and still didn't quite understand the difference between A grade talents and B grade talents. They were all eager to prove themselves, or at the very least, those mortal-born disciples were eager to prove themselves. There were the descendants of elders, and the scions of wealthy merchants that joined every year, none of which attracted that much attention. They had grown up under the umbrella of the righteous path, and were blessed with a background that allowed them to ignore rumors and hearsay. They were all proud sons and daughters of heaven, but with ethics and morals aligning closer with the righteous path. However, most of them had heard Xuanyuan's little speech during one of the basic martial arts classes, causing public interest into Xuanyuan's background to extend beyond just the new batch of outer sect disciples. I shall become venerable. I desire the truth, the supreme grand master of an entire path. These words resonated with all GU masters everywhere. It didn't matter if it was a rank 1 GU master just starting to walk their path, or a rank 5 GU master whom had almost touched upon the domain of GU immortals. All of them could understand Xuanyuan's words. Elder Luo just shook his head, gazing at his unruly disciple. You've made a lot of powerful people interested in you, little Yuan. Your words struck a chord within the hearts of many GU masters in the ancient soul sect. Why bother wasting your times with arguments and discord, when everyone seeks the limits of GU and cultivation? I even had Elder Kong and Elder Hu message me personally, both envious that they couldn't steal you away from me. Xuanyuan straightened his back, but lowered his head at Elder Luo's words. Was I too straightforward, master? I understand that my words were presumptuous and arrogant, but I truly meant it when I said I had no grudges against Chu Chen. I have never sought to start an enmity with someone, nor have I desired anyone to start one with me. Xuanyuan's tone was forthright, honest, and revealed no lies to Elder Luo. The gray-haired man glanced at Xuanyuan, before shaking his head, his expression revealing no hint of his true emotions. I understand, little Yuan, and I know for a fact that you do not desire a conflict with your fellow disciples. However, your perspective on cultivation is different to most in the ancient soul sect. Xuanyuan tilted his head, not understanding Elder Luo's words. How so, master? He responded. The rank 5 GU master paused for a moment, before letting out a sigh, his expression becoming more honest as he spoke. Cultivation, for the righteous path, is for the betterment of our fellow man. It is not a selfish goal, although it is, in of itself, something that only benefits ourselves. It is how we chose to use our cultivation, our strength, our knowledge, our understanding to make the world a better place. A safer place for all. Your words, Xuanyuan, express only a selfish desire for truth. You do not desire to help your friends or fellow disciples walk their own path. In fact, you would rather each of us to walk our path alone, as if other people did not exist. This is how the demonic path view their own cultivation, little Yuan. Xuanyuan's eyebrows rose a fraction of an inch, before he frowned, shaking his head. But that is what cultivation is, master. It is a journey of self-development, of quiet meditation and self-reflection, of personal research and endless development. My attainment is not yours, and yours is not mine. How can we share experiences, when we each walk our own path? Elder Luo just shook his head at Xuanyuan's words. This time, it was a little more forceful than before. We can share experiences, Xuanyuan. We can share knowledge. We can share techniques. We can share GU, and we can even share emotions and understandings. Your words from earlier still ring true. All GU masters can understand your desire to become venerable, and it is from that commonality that the righteous path was born. We seek a common goal, and while the paths we walk may lead us on different roads, some paths can intersect, leading to the creation of sects and clans. I have shared my knowledge with you, little Yuan. I did this not for my own betterment, but for the betterment of the sect and of the world. You have the potential to become great, Xuanyuan. So great and so beautiful that it is almost blinding. But remember, humanity was not born alone. What is the point in having power and strength, if there is no one there to celebrate your achievements with? What is the point in being a venerable, if you are the only person that exists in the world? Self-validation can only take you so far. Please remember that, little Yuan. Elder Luo retired for the night after that, leaving Xuanyuan alone in the courtyard. The reincarnated young man frowned, shaking his head while gazing up at the moon. I understand Elder Luo's perspective, but I also understand where Feng Yuan was coming from. Everything in the world is transient. Everything is just a shadow of its former self. Nothing, not even the very heavens themselves, remain the same. What is the point of other people, if they all wither and die, returning to dust that they were born from? But humanity was not born alone. What was the point of giving us emotions, if not to use them and relish in them? Humanity is capable of happiness and sadness, of joy and longing, of love and hate. Ignoring them, suppressing them, even removing them. Are you not rejecting a part of yourself? Doing so will only leave a gap in your soul, and you will spend the rest of your days trying to fill that gap with whatever you can get your hands on. Xuanyuan had experienced life, death, rebirth, and then life again. If our ends were already predestined, then what was the point in living? Did free will even exist if everything was predetermined from the moment of their conception? Fate GU ruled over the lives of billions upon billions of souls, pulling the strings of fate towards an ending of its own creation. While it existed, Xuanyuan would never find the answer to his question. I will find the answers to all my questions. I seek truth and will not stop until I reach the end. After that, perhaps I'll find the answer to Master's question, maybe even take a disciple of my own. Philosophy was an enormous part of the GU world. Xuanyuan didn't believe things to be that complicated when he was just reading words on a page, but experiencing it, living through it was a completely different perspective. Xuanyuan didn't completely agree with Feng Yuan. There was a line, and crossing it was the difference between righteous and demonic. Actions were the ultimate factor in determining good and evil, but Xuanyuan just shook his head, a self-deprecating smile marring his face. Good and evil? When did I start buying into that kind of stuff? Nothing is inherently good or bad. It is humans who ascribe such definitions to them. If something was evil, then some almighty power must have decreed it so. But in this world where paths such as enslavement and blood exist, there is no such thing as good or evil. Primordial Origin was rewarded for founding the enslavement path. Giant Sun was rewarded for founding the blood path. Spectral Soul was rewarded for founding the soul path. Would Xuanyuan be rewarded for reaching the limits of the shadow path? Would he be rewarded for mass genocide, or for lusting after women like previous venerables did? Under the light of the moon, Xuanyuan felt his perspective shift, opening his eyes towards the silver moon. His black eyes seemed so clear, like obsidian, so beautiful one could almost see their own reflection. Humanity is not born alone, right? Xuanyuan stood alone under the watchful gaze of the moon, his mind becoming clearer, the mental fog that plagued him slowly parting under the silvery moonlight. Xuanyuan didn't know if this was enlightenment, or that he had just come to terms with himself and his worldview. He didn't know how to explain it, whether it was the blessing of the moon, or the understanding of his place in the world, but he knew what he was missing. Little shadow, poison is the answer. A shadowy wisp rose up from Xuanyuan's shadow. Poison path GU material? Xuanyuan nodded, swiftly returning towards his study. His mind was as clear and serene as the ocean on a windless night. A great sea reflected the image of the heavens and the earth, a shadow of creation being cast over vast and immense landscape. Xuanyuan just knew what he was missing. He had no rational way of describing it. He knew what he was looking for, and only had to reach out in order to grasp it. Rise, he spoke aloud, generating an enormous amount of shadow thoughts all relating to the poison path. Green yellow acid is a poison path GU material compatible with selena flower petals and 8-layered ginseng. Green yellow acid develops stronger, more potent toxic properties in the presence of wood path GU materials. It breaks down materials belonging to the sun path, but can also be consumed by moon path beasts in order to strengthen their veins and blood vessels. Wolf-faced poisonous spider is a poison path beast compatible with radiant veil root and 8-layered ginseng. It creates enormous webs spanning an entire tree, releasing a sickly sweet scent in order to attract predators towards itself. Its excrement, blood and bones provide excellent nourishment towards wood path GU materials, while web itself can produce moonlight in minor quantities. Xuanyuan was searching for a compatibility between wood path, poison path and moon path. His attainment in all three was lacking, but the recipe itself was sympathetic towards the shadow path. They needed to birth shadows, nurture shadows, refine shadows, and eventually give rise to a shadow path GU. Materials that created friction or imbalance were thrown aside, as Xuanyuan analyzed countless shadow thoughts created by shadows as thought GU. GU and GU material after GU material was sorted by Xuanyuan, some deriving more shadow thoughts, while others were discarded, creating an imbalance or a complete failure. The blood vessels in Xuanyuan's eyes expanded, causing bursts of tiny red lines to grow throughout his sclera. The pressure created by the uncountable number of thoughts was beyond what Xuanyuan could normally withstand, but I will get there, by pouring every single drop of blood, sweat and tears I could possibly give, and then give some more in order to arrive at the pinnacle. His own words echoed throughout his mind. He would not arrive at the apex without pushing himself past his limitations. He would not arrive at truth without affirming his own philosophy, without affirming the righteousness behind his own desires. Cultivation was a selfish endeavor, even if others did not approve of him, even if the world did not approve of him, so long as he himself affirmed his desire, Xuanyuan would not falter. Toxic blood lily. No, its properties would overpower the other materials. Corrosion roots. Again, too much poison would create an imbalance. 4 poison sands. Too many variables to consider. Xuanyuan paused for a moment, before the image of a small, 4-legged lizard came to mind. Yellow in color, with large pad-like hands more reminiscent of frog appeared within the sea of shadow thoughts. Nervous sand gecko. It is compatible with both 8-layered ginseng and lunar soup frogs. Nervous sand geckos lay their eggs near woodpath GU materials, allowing nurturing their young from the moment they are born. While lunar soup frogs prey on nervous sand geckos, nurturing them in turn. Lunar soup frogs as twilight. Crimson night flower is night. 8-layered ginseng is life. Nervous sand gecko is poison. And twilight scorpion blood is shadows. Night to nurture shadows. Poison to nurture the moon. And life to nurture all things. The final result would be a shadow stinger GU. Xuanyuan opened his eyes, tears of blood streaming down his face. The pain that coursed through his head was nothing in comparison to the sheer elation of increasing his attainment in the shadow path. Looking up at the ceiling, Xuanyuan could imagine the silver moon staring back at him. He smiled. I am not wrong, he muttered as vision slowly turned to black. Chapter 14 Shadow Stinger GU. Published by Web Novel. Xuanyuan awoke several hours later, a dull pain throbbing in his head and the faint scent of dry blood on his face. The young man reached for his water skin, ignoring the droplets of water running down his chin, relishing in the cool sensation down his throat. The throbbing in his head didn't go away, even after rubbing his temples and nearly drowning himself in the water from his water skin. Despite the pain, however, Xuanyuan's memories were as clear as a warm spring day. He unconsciously smiled, remembering the outcome of his deductions last night. Rank 1 Shadow Stinger GU. Theoretically, the recipe I deduced works. There shouldn't be anything wrong with the compatibility between GU materials, nor should there be any unknown reactions while the refinement materials are being primed. Xuanyuan's grasp over the shadow path had increased the moment he deduced the Shadow Stinger GU recipe. His attainment was too low to consider himself a master of the shadow path, but his understanding over the path crossed a small threshold last night. Xuanyuan wouldn't be sure of how much his attainment had increased, and would only find out the next time he would try and deduce a GU recipe. He theorized that his first successful refinement should also increase his attainment by a small threshold. Glancing at the mirror in his room, Xuanyuan used some of the water from his water skin to wash his face, quickly exiting the room with his bag of primeval essence stones in hand. There was no need to restrain himself when he was so close. He needed to practice refinement if he ever wanted to get better at it. Second-guessing himself would only stall his progress. Xuanyuan mentioned to one of the maids in Elder Luo's mansion that he would be heading to Earth Soul City for the day. He didn't tell them where he was going after that, but they didn't pry and just bowed as he exited the premises. Xuanyuan had explored small pockets of Earth Soul City on his own. Primarily areas with prominent merchant stores that catered to GU masters, or one of the few gambling dens in the city, including both GU master arenas and GU gambling dens. Heading towards one of the stores that he had visited before, Xuanyuan entered, ignoring all of the GU placed within glass containers, heading immediately towards one of the female shopkeepers currently standing idly off to the side. The young shopkeeper, obviously hired for her appearance, just smiled at Xuanyuan, gesturing to one of the glass cabinets containing a rank 2 Flame Chi GU. The price tag associated with this rare Chi Path GU was 1,200 primeval essence stones. Flame Chi GU could be used to produce Flame Chi, which boosted the effectiveness of all Fire Path GU. It was, in the eyes of all GU masters, an excellent support type GU. Good afternoon, young master. How can I be of assistance to you today? Xuanyuan glanced at the Flame Chi GU before focusing his attention back on the young woman. Does this store possess either Crimson Lotus flowers or Nervous Sand geckos? They are Dark Path and Poison Path GU materials respectively. Hearing the tone in Xuanyuan's voice, the young woman knew that this young man wouldn't be swayed by any of the GU the store carried. Asking for specific GU materials meant that this young man was attempting to refine a GU himself, and was not looking to purchase any GU directly. The young shopkeeper bowed for a moment before walking over to an older gentleman, whispering in his ear before nodding, muttering something back to her. The young woman swiftly returned to Xuanyuan, smiling while giving the younger man a nod. We carry both materials in the store. Crimson Night flowers are priced at 3 primeval essence stones each, while Nervous Sand gecko are only a single primeval essence stone each. Xuanyuan nodded, before handing the woman 8 primeval essence stones. Give me 2 of each, please. The young woman seemed slightly displeased at the amount, but her expression didn't change as she entered one of the back rooms of the merchant house, returning roughly 10 minutes later with both materials. Xuanyuan didn't waste any more time there and headed towards another merchant house, purchasing more materials for the Shadow Stinger GU. He wasn't sure if he was being cautious or paranoid, but refused to purchase all the materials in the same place. If a GU master talented enough in the shadow path, or skilled enough in deductions could extrapolate Xuanyuan's GU recipe from just its materials, then his control over the recipe would be lost. Even if it was only a rank 1 GU, Xuanyuan wanted to be completely sure before handing it over to the sect. He needed the primeval essence stones in order to speed up his cultivation, but also wanted to increase his attainment in the shadow path and refinement path as well. I can't exactly just ask Elder Kui or Master to watch me refine this GU. If either asked where I obtained the recipe, it might make them suspicious of the shadows as thought GU. If it works, then I can always reveal the recipe at a later date, saying it was the produce of countless hours of research and mortal deductions. Heading to the refinement hall, Xuanyuan spent another primeval essence stone on a regular refinement room, bringing his total amount spent for the day all the way up to 28 primeval essence stones. It physically hurt Xuanyuan to spend that much in a single day, but suppressed the pain in his heart as he purged his excess thoughts, meditating quietly in order to prepare for GU refinement. Little shadow, send me a shadow thought in the event that something goes wrong during the GU refinement, okay? A harmless black wisp floated past Xuanyuan. I can do that, the rank 5 GU replied. Xuanyuan released a deep breath of air, igniting the flame beneath the cauldron, the first step in the GU refinement repeating over and over in his mind. First step, place a single crimson night flower and 8-layered ginseng into the cauldron. Boil until the essence of night and life seep into the water. The swirling mist shall envelop each other, giving rise to a harmonious blessing. Placing one of his 2 crimson night flowers and 8-layered ginseng into the cauldron, Xuanyuan increased the temperature of the flames, watching as the 2 ingredients floated on the water's surface. The 2 ingredients constantly collided under the release of bubbles, releasing black and green essence into the pure water. Xuanyuan slowly rotated the cauldron, letting the crimson night flower and 8-layered ginseng collide against each other, while the green and black essence swirled in a counterclockwise direction. Swirling essences of green and black envelop each other, saturating the entire room in a pleasant earthy scent. Second step, stir, continuously adding the blood of an twilight scorpion. The balance between night and life slowly creeping into the shadow's favor. Shadows birthed from night shall dance, wondrous scorpions shall ascend towards the night sky. Xuanyuan stirred the cauldron, simultaneously pouring 100 ml of twilight scorpion blood into the pure water. The blood was as red as any other living being, but the moment it came into contact with the essence of green and black, the entire mixture darkened, swirling mists taking on a much darker tone. Xuan Yuan could see the faint shadows swim beneath the water surface. The steam that bubbled up towards the roof had become color black. The steam cast wisps of scorpion shadows along the wall and ceiling. The next step was completely formed from Xuan Yuan's deductions. Third step, wondrous scorpions admire the night and life, finding their home amongst lunar soup frogs. Shadows, bathed in the swirling mists of green and black, find solace in the moon. Twilight, lonely and pale, illuminating the earth and sky. Xuan Yuan had to admit that it was a little wordy, but kept the same motifs as the previous two steps. The otherworldly demon just gently dropped a single lunar soup frog into the cauldron, watching as it immediately turned into a pale, silvery liquid. The moon path GU material dissolved the moment it came into contact with the boiling mixture, releasing its essence into the swirling pool of night, life and shadows. The steam released by the cauldron gradually took on a much more dense and mystical appearance. It grew thicker and pooled in one spot on the ceiling, almost resembling a moon, although shadowy and translucent. Although the room was lit using mortal candles, the faintest traces of moonlight illuminated every corner of the refinement room. Xuan Yuan ignored the beautiful transition of light, instead focusing on the fourth step of his refinement. Fourth step, twilight swims across shadows and night, reaching the end of life, a hint of poison obscured through mist and cloud. Nervous sand gecko nibble at the essence of green, swallowed by the moon and returned to the embrace of twilight. Streaks of silver appeared within the swirling cauldron. The thickness of the steam released by the pure water was enough to almost obscure Xuan Yuan's vision. Taking a deep breath, Xuan Yuan gently lowered his nervous sand gecko towards the 8-layered ginseng, watching as it nibbled on the wood path ingredient, before similarly dropping it into the cauldron. The air suddenly grew bitter to the taste, and Xuan Yuan felt his fingers go slightly numb after breathing the steam released by the cauldron. The pool of moon-like steam sitting on the ceiling grew even more pronounced, devouring the hint of poison Xuan Yuan had introduced. His eyes grew itchy, but Xuan Yuan suppressed it, moving on to the final step. Fifth step, guiding twilight and shadows, infuse 10 mortal scorpions into the cauldron. Their shadows will spark a frenzy, killing and devouring each other, each tainted by night, poison and life. Only a single shadow will remain, absorbing the essence of 9 shadows into one. Xuan Yuan adjusted the final step slightly, making it easier for him to comprehend, letting his final step account for the 2 recreated steps. Lifting his cage of 10 mortal scorpions, Xuan Yuan placed the entire cage into the cauldron, not even once wincing as he saw the small arachnids clamber over each other, trying to force the others down, trying their best to stay above the water. The boiling water was already causing them pain, but they were all spurned by night, life and poison, their shadows forcing them to maim and kill their fellow arachnids. Shadows of scorpions danced along the wall, a bloody dance taking place within the refinement room. Within a matter of minutes, all of the scorpions were dead, all except one. Xuan Yuan could see the shadows of the other 9 scorpions swirl within the cauldron, each of them angry and fierce, swimming around the sole survivor of their bloody dance. It's time, Xuan Yuan muttered. Reflected in his eyes, Xuan Yuan could see the shadows swirl and swim beneath the single scorpion. Slowly, but surely, 9 shadows returned to 1, and the birth of a new GU had been completed. End result, rank 1 shadow stinger GU. Xuan Yuan lifted the cage out of the boiling cauldron, turning off the flames and letting the steam spread out over the entire ceiling. Opening the cage door and reaching inside, Xuan Yuan held the small scorpion-looking GU in both hands, cradling the rank 1 GU with the same care as if it were a newborn baby. It was small, mostly black, with a hint of silver running up its stinger. Xuan Yuan couldn't see that well due to the poor lighting in the refinement room, but the shadow beneath the GU was much larger than what the size of the GU suggested. An enormous stinger, more than a foot long, tried to strike at Xuan Yuan, but immediately retreated, feeling the pressure of rank 5 shadows as thought GU around it. Xuan Yuan smiled, thanking Little Shadow for assisting him. Focusing his attention back on this rank 1 shadow stinger GU, Xuan Yuan just patted it gently, allowing the GU to coil its stinger around his finger playfully. It's not much, but it's a start, he muttered. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by web novel. Chapter 15 Yu Zhang. Another month passed in the ancient soul sect, marking roughly 10 weeks since Xuan Yuan and the new batch of disciples joined. The vast majority of new outer sect disciples had already refined their vital GU, and a good portion had already reached the middle rank 1 GU master stage. Those with B-grade talents had started to lag behind those with the grade talents, and the disparity between those with a greater innate talent had started to grow. Someone like Xuan Yuan could cultivate every day without fail, his primeval essence C completely regenerating overnight. Someone like Chu Yuli or Lu Guo on the other hand, had to ration their primeval essence for both cultivation and practicing with their GU. Not to mention refining the vital GU, many GU masters opting to use their primeval essence stones in order to speed up the process, preventing them from cultivating. The buzz around Xuan Yuan's speech on becoming a venerable had slowly died down, the aforementioned young man keeping a low profile ever since his discussion with Elder Luo. Xuan Yuan still attended his biweekly classes, since expanding on them, taking both dark path and light path classes, in order to help broaden his perspective on the shadow path. His weekly expenses, including food for his GU, was about 8 primeval essence stones. Xuan Yuan had considered revealing the complete shadow stinger GU recipe, but refrained from doing so. It was too short of a time for a rank 1 GU master to figure out such a thing. Xuan Yuan's memory wasn't perfect, and his comprehension wasn't monstrous enough for him to solve an incomplete GU recipe after only a single month. It would attract more attention on Xuan Yuan's actions than what he would be comfortable with. I think I've gotten the hang of this thing by now, Xuan Yuan muttered, flexing his tail once and striking with an almost 5 meter long scorpion stinger. The shadow stinger GU smashed into the shadow of the wooden target, shattering it, causing fragments of wood to scatter about. The shadow stinger GU was roughly the same thickness as an adult male thigh, but with the flexibility reminiscent of a snake or serpent. Xuan Yuan had divided his time between cultivation, GU and GU material research, martial arts practice, GU recipe deductions and attending classes. These 5 activities were the only things he did over the course of the past month. Xuan Yuan had his occasional chats with Elder Luo, and had discussed the information path with Elder Kui once a week, but other than that, he only researched GU in his free time. His aperture walls had begun to appear much more firm than what its liquid-like appearance suggested. Xuan Yuan would say that he wouldn't need to take twice the time to reach the upper rank 1 GU master stage. His cultivation was increasing steadily, and his only weakness was that his accumulation of primeval essence stones was much slower than before. Senior Sister Yu, what stage should we be before accepting missions from the sect? One of the other GU masters in Xuan Yuan's light path class asked. Yu Zhang was the rank 2 GU master who taught the introductory class related to the light path. She was a similarly beautiful woman with features similar to Long Shi. Although, for whatever reason, her long, straight black hair carried streaks of white within them, making her features seem more otherworldly in comparison. She was friendly, but somewhat distant in Xuan Yuan's eyes. Smiling, she responded to the question. In my opinion, the safest option is to wait until the peak rank 1 GU master stage. With that level of cultivation, even the lowest of B-grade talents can use their GU multiple times a day, and even a rank 2 GU once or twice if they were forced. She raised her hand, as one of the other students in her class tried to open their mouth to speak. Now, I am perfectly aware that the majority of you do not wish to wait that long before earning yourselves primeval essence stones, which is why the upper rank 1 GU master stage should be sufficient so long as the GU master in question possesses multiple different GU. No single GU can claim to be invincible under heaven. Even legendary GU such as Wisdom GU and Perseverance GU do not claim such a thing. A GU master must be prepared for all sorts of situations and encounters. Which is why, having at least a single offensive GU, a single defensive GU, and either a movement or a concealment type GU is the most optimal for someone of your cultivation. This will allow you to defend yourself, run away or hide, or strike in the even that something like that is necessary. Your life is your most important thing in this world. Do not waste it on challenging things that you know should not be challenged. Although a few of the other middle stage rank 1 GU masters listened to her words, the vast majority of her light path class did not, swiftly gathering in groups after class discussing their GU as well as any potential sect missions they could take part in. Outer sect rank 1 GU masters were limited in the variety of sect missions they could partake in, mostly limited to resource retrieval, material or information delivery or other miscellaneous tasks. B grade talents sought to increase their cultivation speed in order to match that of a grade talents, while a grade talents didn't want to let someone with a lower talent their own exceed them. Xuanyuan considered taking on a couple sect missions, but found that the invested return on his time wasn't worth spending in comparison to spending that time deducing incomplete GU recipes or researching GU materials. Xuanyuan's knowledge on different type GU materials and their relationship with the materials of other paths was increasing with every passing day. With the sole exception of those descendants of elders or powerful GU masters, Xuanyuan was sure that his knowledge and understanding of GU materials exceeded that of any rank 1 GU master in the ancient soul sect. Opening his notebook, Xuanyuan examined the steps of another incomplete rank 1 shadow path, GU. The name of the recorded GU was silhouette strings. From what Xuanyuan could decipher about the GU, it creates strings from the GU master's shadow, which were as thin as a hair, yet sharper than any mortal blade. It meant that the strings were tangible, and were almost completely invisible in darkness. The range of silhouette strings GU was only 10 feet, but within 10 feet, up to a maximum of 5 strings could be produced. Every day before Xuanyuan began his cultivation, he used shadows as thought GU to produce shadow thoughts relating to GU refinement. Countless ideas and concepts that would have taken him weeks to come up were produced in an instant, most of which were written down in his diary or notebook. The names of the other 4 incomplete GU recipes in the tattered pages Elder Kui had given him were Wandering Shadow GU, Formless Steps GU, Swallowing Shadow GU, and Crimson Shadow GU. Out of all of them, Crimson Shadow GU was the least complete, and the description of which confused Xuanyuan the most. Crimson Shadow GU relies on some sort of unique form of light in order to be formed. Light from the immemorial 9 heavens no longer naturally appear in the GU world, and it is completely possible that this GU has been lost to time. Unless someone can figure out a way to replicate, or recreate it, this unique type of light is lost forever. Light banished the dark, and from it, the shadows of all living things were born. Unique shadows could be born from unique light, or unique dark, but just as things found in the immemorial antiquity era cannot be found in the current era, things born in the current era may not have been discovered or created in the immemorial antiquity era. Xuanyuan wanted to his senior sister Yu about the different kinds of light that were commonly found in relation to GU materials. He waited until the class was almost over before raising his hand, his other hand finishing writing something. Senior sister Yu, I wanted to ask you about different kinds of light GU and light GU materials. For example, red light GU and shattered light rubies. How do they differ to say blue light GU and burning light flowers? The black and white hair GU master blinked for a moment before glancing at Xuanyuan, giving him a small smile. The difference between red light GU and blue light GU is that red light GU carries a much harsher and intensive type of light, in comparison to blue light GU. Both kinds of GU can inflict damage against a target, although while red light GU inflicts more of a burn, blue light GU carries properties similar to water, allowing it to travel through bodies of water unhindered. It is essentially more effective than red light GU against water path, however red light GU inflicts a greater damage normally. Shattered light rubies and burning light flowers are also light path GU materials. The former appear as rubies which carry a faint red light within them, while the latter produce minute motes of red light from its petals. Shattered light rubies do not produce light, and are gemstones which contain a great amount of light, but lose them the moment the rubies are cracked. Burning light flowers only produce a couple motes of red light every day, but over the course of its existence, will produce more than 10 times the amount of light in comparison to shattered light rubies. When taking this into consideration, burning light flowers in great number can be used to prepare an environment for GU refinement. Red light is produced and can be used to increase the success rate of GU refinement, while shattered light rubies are primarily used as GU refinement materials, directly while the refinement is underway. Senior sister Yu gave Xuanyuan a once over, smiling at him, leaning softly against her desk. Is there anything else you don't understand, Xuanyuan? The young man just shook his head, feeling the gazes of other young men on his body. Senior sister Yu was a popular young woman with many admirers, with new outer sect disciples joining her class every week. The light path was also very popular with women, most not interested in the earth path or the dark path, finding the light path a much more clean and refined way of using GU. Xuanyuan had no doubt that senior sister Yu was making more than 50 primeval essence stones a week just from her classes. It made him interested to give his own classes after he reached rank 2, but his depth of knowledge on the shadow path wasn't quite there yet. Not to mention, the shadow path wasn't nearly as popular amongst GU masters, and even a beauty like Longxi couldn't change that. After the class was over, Xuanyuan packed up his notebook, moving towards the exit before a familiar sounding voice echoed from the other side of the room. I thought I would find you here, little Yuan. Have you been cheating on me with Zhang Er? Xuanyuan rolled his eyes at Long Zai's words, his expression unchanging as he turned to face his shadow path teacher. Senior sister Yu is an excellent teacher, senior sister Long. Her explanations are concise and accurate, and her breadth of knowledge on the light path is quite extensive. The corners of his mouth raised slightly as he continued. Maybe you could learn a thing or two from. Xuanyuan's words were cut off as he dodged a fist-sized ball of shadows aimed at his stomach. The rank 1 GU master slid to the side, watching as the shadow ball collided against a stone wall, splattering a thick layer of shadows against it. Glancing at it, he turned back to face Longxi, who just held another ball of shadows in her hand. Shadow ink GU? The ink from such a GU would stain my skin permanently. I would need another GU to remove the ink without permanently scarring myself. Longxi just narrowed her eyes, smiling playfully at Xuanyuan. It'll teach you to respect your senior sister, little Yuan, cheating on me with Zhang Er, and then slandering my teaching abilities. Is this the arrogance of a future venerable? Xuanyuan rolled his eyes again, avoiding another ball of shadow ink thrown in his direction. The ink splattered harmlessly against the chairs and tables in the room, before another voice cut through the tension, her tone amused and whimsical. Little dragon, Xuanyuan, what do you think you two are doing in my classroom? Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by web novel. Chapter 16 Deal. Longxi paused, her arm poised to throw another ball of shadow ink at Xuanyuan. Her expression grew strange as she slowly turned her head to face Yu Zhang who just sat at her desk, legs crossed, blowing gently on a cup of hot tea. A small smile marred her face, her demeanor gentle, soft, yet unmistakably dominant given the situation the three were in. Longxi just dismissed the ball of shadow ink, shrugging her shoulders, crossing her arms under her chest. Ehem, I was just punishing this immature junior brother of mine. He dared to talk back to his beautiful and intelligent senior sister, so I was just reminding him his place in the hierarchy. Don't worry, Zhang I'll make sure he cleans up everything. Xuanyuan just raised an eyebrow, scoffing at Long Zai's words. This black-haired senior sister of his sure knew how to twist things in her favor all right. Yu Zhang just sipped on her tea peacefully, appearing as thought an immortal fairy had just descended from heaven. From Xuanyuan's understanding, both Longxi and Yu Zhang joined the sect 2 years ago, both becoming intersect disciples after only a year. The former walked the dark path, but changed the shadow path shortly after, while the latter solely focused on the light path. She was unlike Xuanyuan, who dared to take classes on multiple different paths all at once. Shadow path, wisdom path, dark path and light path. He wasn't some sort of savant who hyper-focused on something that they were interested in, and he wasn't a polymath, capable of researching multiple fields all at once. But both Longxi and Yu Zhang had to admit, this little junior brother of theirs was extraordinarily blessed in terms of talent and comprehension. They knew he took martial arts classes and GU refinement classes as well, and heard rumors from other teachers that Xuanyuan was nothing short of a perfect student. Manners, comprehension, logical and deductive reasoning. Even in martial arts class, Xuanyuan would assist his partner during sparring. After others understood why Xuanyuan pushed himself so hard, he became more approachable in the eyes of his fellow GU masters. He was neither arrogant, nor burdened by immense pride or lust or greed, so he had no reason to reject someone who sought him in order to improve their own shortcomings. The rumors of him being a spoiled young brat whose only redeeming talent was his 99% primeval essence C had vanished, being replaced by the image of him being a white knight, gallant, just and always ready to help someone in need. The image made Xuanyuan cringe a little when he heard people talking about him, but it was better than what they previously referred to him. Yu Zhong'er just waved her hand, and a curtain of gentle light flowed through the room, temporarily banishing all shadows, and removing the splotches of shadow ink on the walls, tables, floors and ceiling. Little dragon, please tell me you did not come all this way just to punish Xuanyuan here? Long Shi sat down in one of the free chairs, tossing her hair behind her back while shaking her head. Her expression darkened for a moment, but she quickly hid it, remembering that Xuanyuan was still present. Those bastards from the Golden Soul Hall kept harassing me today. I swear, just because Huo Jin is the grandson of Elder Huo, all those bastards end up bending over backwards just to please him. I swear, if it wasn't for the fact that he was in possession of a liquor worm, I wouldn't even bother with him. Xuanyuan's eyes widened at the mention of such a GU, realizing that both Yu Zhong'er and Long Shi noticed his reaction. The latter smiled, shaking her head at Xuanyuan. A rank 2-4 flavors liquor worm, little Yuan. It is of no use to a rank 1 GU master. The hope in his chest was snuffed out before he could even think of the possibilities. Long Shi just leaned back in her chair, letting out a sigh as she slowly slumped down into the desk chair. Despite her laziness and her unceremonious appearance, she appeared much more beautiful relaxed, not caring of her appearance or proper manners. Yu Zhong'er placed her teacup on her desk, she too letting out a small sigh. It is unfortunate that it has fallen into the hands of Huo Jin. I dare to say that he will undoubtedly reach the peak of rank 2 before us then. He is only a B-grade talent, but with the liquor worm his cultivation would progress much more efficiently. Xuanyuan looked at his two senior sisters, noticing their not so hidden distaste for the individual known as Huo Jin. From what they were saying, he was the grandson of Elder Huo, the elder in charge of the Golden Soul Hall. Earth Soul Hall was in charge of the defense and management of Earth Soul City. Dark Soul Hall was in charge of the entrances and exits into the Earth Abyss. Water Soul Hall managed and guarded the primeval essence springs that were in the vicinity of the sect. Sky Soul Hall communed with the GU immortals of the ancient Soul sect. Refinement Soul Hall managed the rooms used for GU refinement, and also stored all of the sect's refined GU and completed GU recipes. Forgotten Soul Hall managed the incomplete recipes. Wisdom Soul Hall the history of the sect, as well as information about each and every sect member. While Golden Soul Hall managed the properties and tithes received from the surrounding sects and smaller clans. They communed with sects which took in the C-grade and lower talents, receiving primeval essence stones, GU and GU materials in exchange for protection. There were other halls such as Burning Soul Hall, used to punish disciples and execute demonic GU masters, and Dragon Soul Hall, which governed enslaved beasts tamed by the sect, but these were the main halls which governed the ancient Soul sect. Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er did not like Huo Jin, the grandson of Elder Huo. No doubt the pair wanted to obtain the rank 2-4 flavors liquor worm, but for whatever reasons it ended up in Huo Jin's hands instead. Xuanyuan didn't need to use shadows as thoughts GU to know what Huo Jin wanted in exchange. I don't understand. Why don't you just purchase a rank 1 liquor worm and then refine it into a rank 2-4 flavors liquor worm? The materials aren't that expensive, are they? Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er shared a look, before the former just shook her head. It isn't a matter of just refining a liquor worm to rank 2. The recipe for GU refinement is extraordinarily more expensive than the actual GU itself. A rank 2 liquor worm GU costs in the sect, like what, 3,000 primeval essence stones. The GU refinement recipe for it costs more than 10,000 primeval essence stones. Xuanyuan's eyes bulged, hearing the enormous prices associated with GU recipes. A liquor worm GU was beyond valuable for a GU master, but hearing the price of its recipe exceeded anything that Xuanyuan could have imagined. 10,000 primeval essence stones. You could purchase a relic steel relic GU, or even a rank 3-7 fragrances liquor worm for that price. Both of his senior sisters nodded, shrugging their shoulders at the same time. Yep, that's the reality. It doesn't matter what rank GU master you are in the sect, there is always something more expensive to obtain, little Yuan. Unless you have the backing of an elder, you just have to be patient and continue cultivating, earnestly breaking through to the next rank. The pair glanced at Xuanyuan enviously, who just furrowed his brows for a moment, before an unknown glint flashed in his eyes. There was something here that he could use, potentially use at least. Xuanyuan lifted his head and bit his bottom lip for a moment, his eyes firmly meeting Yu Zhong'er's. The black and white-haired young woman returned Xuanyuan's stare with one of her own. Despite her aloofness, he could see traces of emotion flashing through her eyes. She was defiant in the face of Huo Jin's suppression, she was resolute in her decision, and she was unwavering in her resolve. Xuanyuan might have just found what he was looking for. What if I could get the refinement recipe? What could you give me in return for it? Yu Zhong'er raised an eyebrow, looking at Xuanyuan's clear black eyes. He didn't mean anything sexual or aggressive from his words, but just his words alone weren't enough for hope to form in her heart. Long Shi too frowned, waiting to hear Yu Zhong'er's response. Quote, I would be willing to obtain another liquor worm GU for your personal use, Xuanyuan. Additionally, any free rank 1 GU from the sect or any store in Earth Soul City. This is the limit of what I can obtain financially. What about knowledge? Attainment is hard to come by without the prerequisite knowledge. Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er both raised an eyebrow hearing the word attainment leave Xuanyuan's lips, and the former spoke up in favor of her friend. The paths we walk are all similar, little Yuan. Your comprehension is much too monstrous for either of us to compare to. You should know that while Zhong'er and I are talented, we lack academic knowledge more than anything. Xuanyuan nodded, knowing that despite Elder Luo giving him books for free, each would cost a primeval essence stone in order to be normally read. Other than shadows as thought GU, this was his greatest and most advantageous boon. The otherworldly demon paused for a moment before thinking of his next offer. I want to accompany you on your sect missions. I do not expect a portion of the rewards, but I want to experience an actual fight. We might not be able to protect you during a fight, Xuanyuan, Long Shi responded. That is fine. I am not completely defenseless, he replied. Yu Zhong'er and Long Shi shared another look before the former nodded, accepting Xuanyuan's offer. I take it you plan on accepting a share of the rewards once you reach rank 2? Once the pair of us reach the peak of rank 2, the rank 2 liquor worm will be of no use to us. We will give it to you once both of us have become rank 3 GU masters. Xuanyuan smiled, giving her a thankful nod. I understand that this was sudden, but I hope that the two of you can trust me when I say I can obtain the GU recipe. If I am not mistaken, the process itself involves several hundred primeval essence stones, so obtaining the 3 additional GU can wait until the refinement is complete. Long Shi paused, raising her eyes and doing some mental calculations. I think it will be fine. Just give us the list of GU, and we'll hand them over when you give us the refinement recipe. If you can get it, that is. Xuanyuan just nodded before standing up and giving his senior sisters a small bow. If you excuse me then, I am in desperate need of currying favors with a couple of elders. I'll see you two next week during classes. The 15-year-old quickly left Yu Zhong'er's classroom, leaving the two beautiful rank 2 GU masters to their own devices. Blue eyes met black, and the two shared a silent moment before a giggle unconsciously left Long Zai's mouth. I told you he was interesting, she spoke. Yu Zhong'er just sipped on her tea again, giving her friend another nod. He is not trash, and his talent is beyond praiseworthy. Unlike Huo Jin, the disgust barely concealed in her voice, her mind going back to the appearance of Xuanyuan's eyes, so bright, yet so dark. Xuanyuan is an extraordinary talent. His comprehension allows him to pursue multiple paths at once, and his 99% primeval essence C guarantees him a cultivation of at least rank 4. With the assistance of Elder Luo, rank 5 is practically guaranteed. Long Shi nodded. From what I understand about his situation, Xuanyuan was born in the mortal world as a regular villager. I had to have an extended discussion with Tang San about it, and found that he lived in the woods as a beggar after his parents died. Explains the lack of any arrogance or pride. He would have been forced to let go of useless things after experiencing life without food or shelter. The cold and the hunger could have killed him, so not taking advantage of opportunities given to him is against his nature. He only wanted GU, knowledge and combat experience. For a minute there, I almost thought he liked men, Long Shi muttered, glancing at Yu Zhong'er and herself. Both of them were considered fairies by the men in the ancient soul sect, and although she could obscure herself with shadows, Yu Zhong'er had no such luck. Yu Zhong'er just smiled, glancing at her friend. He likes women, of that, I am completely sure. Long Shi raised an eyebrow. What makes you say that? She said. Yu Zhong'er just smiled, enjoying another sip of her tea. Call it a woman's intuition. Chapter 17, Proper, GU Master. Published by Web Novel. Another Reverend Insanity fanfic has come out in the past few days, and as such, it would be remiss of me not to shout them out. If you have the time, check out this new fanfic. Reverend Insanity Mystery Prying the Mortal Venerable by Moist_Bedbugs. Thank you all again. Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er kept up their end of the bargain, giving Xuanyuan both the GU he requested from them, in addition to the accumulated knowledge and understandings both of them had on their respective paths. Yu Zhong'er's notes were more valuable to Xuanyuan, considering his grasp over the light path was weaker than the dark path, and the shadow path, giving him new ideas and techniques which could help him refine light path GU more effectively. Long Zai's notes were more about the relationship between dark path and shadow path, and how shadows and darkness were interchangeable to some degree. Her theory wasn't as concrete and fleshed out as Yu Zhong'er's, but it gave Xuanyuan something to think about while researching dark path GU. This is it? It's that simple? Long Shi asked, her heart beat wildly as she gazed at the single piece of paper in front of her. Yu Zhong'er had a similar reaction after reading it, somewhat doubting the validity of the refinement method. Xuanyuan nodded. 2 rank 1 liquor GU worms, 4 different kinds of wine, and approximately 500 primeval essence stones. There is nothing complex about the requirements, but the refinement itself is, needless to say, difficult. Controlling multiple GU at once, in addition to the carefully adding the right amount of primeval essence stones, is difficult for a single person. But with 2, it is significantly easier. Xuanyuan didn't even need to go to Elder Luo, Elder Kui, or any of the other elders that he was familiar with. This time, Xuanyuan thanked Feng Yuan for inadvertently revealing to him both the ingredients and method to refine the rank 2 4 flavors liquor GU. The requirements were easy enough to obtain in a large city like Earth Soul City. The only problem was acquiring the funds to purchase all the materials. Not to mention the fact that the currency needed to purchase materials were also an ingredient. It took the pair 10 days to prepare themselves for the refinement. They went over the steps again and again, purchasing a couple rank 1 GU from various paths to assist with the expenditure of mental energy. The effects were minuscule at rank 1, but every little bit helped. And 2 weeks after Xuanyuan initially proposed the exchange to them. Little Yuan, praise your senior sister, praise her. Long Zai's voice echoed throughout hallway, as the beautiful raven-haired young woman wrapped her arm around Xuanyuan's shoulder, her enormous smile lighting up the entire hallway. Xuanyuan just smiled, knowing exactly where Long Shi was going with this. Giving her a small bow, he met Long Zai's gaze, ignoring the jealous looks of passing GU masters. Congratulations senior sister Long, considering that senior sister Yu isn't here, I take it that the refinement was a success? Long Shi just nodded at Xuanyuan, her smile unable to be contained. Zhong'er is cultivating right now, unable to suppress herself after we completed the refinement. She extends her thanks as well, and I'm sure that she'll thank you herself the next time you attend her class. Xuanyuan waved them off, shaking his head. It is of no matter. So long as the refinement was a success, I am happy for you both. Not to mention, it wasn't as though I hadn't benefited from the exchange. Xuanyuan didn't say exactly what he had obtained from the Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er, but the former just nodded, understanding Xuanyuan's words. The GU that Xuanyuan had asked for was by no means cheap. Considering the price of the rank 2 4 flavors liquor GU recipe, Xuanyuan didn't hold back when he selected the 3 rank 1 GU that Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er would buy for him. Rank 1 Chi Path, Shadow Chi GU, generates Shadow Chi which can be infused into other Shadow Path GU, increasing their effectiveness and decreasing their primeval essence costs. Rank 1 Cloud Path, Cloud Essence GU. Cloud Essence GU naturally absorbs the natural primeval energy of the world around the GU master, refining it, before directly transforming it into primeval essence. Rank 1 Shadow Path, Shadow Pocket GU. Shadow Pocket GU allows a GU master to store small objects within their shadow. The shadow of the object would appear beside the shadow of the GU master, and the object in question must fit within the shadow of the GU master. Cloud Essence GU and Shadow Pocket GU caused Yu Zhong'er and Long Shi to frown when they read it, but gave it to Xuanyuan despite how expensive both of the GU cost. Neither of them had the funds to purchase a rank 2 Serene Cloud Essence GU, considering that its cost exceeded that of most other GU on the market. With this exchange, Xuanyuan had effectively tripled the number of GU he had in his possession. Rank 1 Shadow Eyes GU. Rank 1 Shadow Stinger GU. Rank 1 Shadow Chi GU. Rank 1 Cloud Essence GU. Rank 1 Shadow Pocket GU. Rank 1 Liquor Worm GU. Not to mention Little Shadow, the rank 5 Shadows is thought GU. After almost 3 months in the Ancient Soul Sect, Xuanyuan thought that he was finally deserving of the title of GU Master. It won't even take me 2 weeks to become an upper stage rank 1 GU Master. I could literally continue to cultivate as much as I could possibly want, my primeval essence regeneration potentially rivaling one of the 10 extreme physiques. Xuanyuan had his eyes on the first place prize of the tournament. It wasn't a lot, in comparison to everything he had just exchanged with Yu Zhong'er and Long Shi, but it would give him an excuse as to how his cultivation progressed so quickly. If he obtained another liquor worm from the sect tournament rewards, he could use it in the liquor worm currently in his possession to refine another 4 flavors liquor worm. From there, he would be able to refine the rank 3 7 fragrances liquor worm. The future of Xuanyuan's cultivation had been planned out. His path all the way up to rank 4 had potentially been secured. He could instead focus his attention on other matters, such as GU refinement and researching GU materials. Not to mention, I still desire the second aperture GU, he muttered. Xuanyuan knew that his greed could lead him down the demonic path. But Xuanyuan knew that without an immense amount of luck, extraordinary attainment in both his main path and subpath, powerful killer moves, strong and loyal allies, and the right timing, he would never be able to compete with Feng Yuan for the sovereign fetus immortal GU. Immediately after taking it, Xuanyuan would be making an enemy out of both the Heavenly Court and the Shadow Sect, something that he was currently not prepared to handle. Second aperture GU could allow a GU master to theoretically walk 2 main paths and 2 subpaths. Each of his tribulations would give him double the amount of downmarks, allow him to safely annex the blessed lands of an additional path, and, theoretically, allow him to create multiple immortal GU once his ascension from rank 5 to rank 6 was completed. Second aperture GU required an immense amount of GU and GU materials in order to be refined. Over 5,000 total GU, with more than 600 being rank 4 and over 80 being rank 5. Not to mention, the fact that it required another immortal GU in order to be completed. The possibility of possessing a second primeval essence C was a distant dream to Xuanyuan, even if he knew a place that would grant it to him no questions asked. Lang Ya Blessed Land, halfway across the world, second aperture GU can be refined freely. Feng Yuan assumed the identity of Thieving Heaven Demonic Venerable's inheritor, allowing him to inherit the agreement of 3 GU with Lang Ya Blessed Spirit. Lang Ya refined second aperture GU for Feng Yuan, allowing him to possess a second aperture, effectively doubling the amount of primeval essence he had at his disposal. Xuanyuan desired such a thing, the possibilities opening to him once he completed his immortal ascension being too good to potentially pass up. Third aperture GU would be nice too. However, if such a thing was easy to grasp, wisdom path GU immortals like star constellation immortal venerable or refinement path GU immortals like long hair ancestor would have deciphered it long ago. Mortal second aperture GU contains the human path profundity, so it would be safe to say that second aperture GU also possesses such a thing. Needless to say, third aperture GU would possess an even greater profundity. Xuanyuan let out a small sigh, feeling the immensity of the heavens and the earth. He had thought of the possibilities of using the shadow path to replicate the effects of other paths, but required at least a grandmaster attainment in the shadow path in order to do so. Xuanyuan wasn't even a master, so how could he discern the profundities of a grandmaster in the shadow path? For the time being, he had to settle for his current progress. Xuanyuan's cultivation was progressing by leaps and bounds, and so long as he could progress to rank 5 as quickly as possible, there was a chance that he could obtain the objects of his desires. Even if it put him in conflict with Feng Yuan and the heavenly court. I cannot just rely on the events that I am familiar with. The GU world is filled with strange and wonderful existences. The legends of Renzu spoke of immortal GU and secluded domains of heaven and earth which were only mentioned once or twice before being forgotten. There exists at least a single secluded domain of heaven and earth for every path, potentially more depending on the path. Danghun Mountain, Luopo Valley, Bewitching Lake. These three were all soul path secluded domains of heaven and earth. Space Cave and Space Door were both considered space path secluded domains of heaven and earth. Shi Land and Hu Land were both Chi path secluded domains of heaven and earth. The legends of Renzu weren't fully mentioned in Xuanyuan's past life. Most of the book only referenced Feng Yuan's experiences and the knowledge and comprehensions he obtained after reading it. There existed Raging Inferno Waterfall, Burning Azure Firmament River, and Eclipsing Light Flameless Lake, in terms of fire path secluded domains of heaven and earth. There existed Limitless Freezing Wastes, Eternal Isolation Glacier, and White Jade Imperial Palace in terms of ice path secluded domains of heaven and earth. There even existed Jian Valley, Dao Mountain and Tang Heaven in terms of sword path secluded domains of heaven and earth. Some, like Tang Heaven and Eternal Isolation Glacier, were lost, hidden from the rest of the GU world in a manner similar to Space Cave. While some, such as Eclipsing Light Flameless Lake, were in the possession of powerful super forces in the 5 regions. Xuanyuan wouldn't be remiss in saying that he desired these secluded domains of heaven and earth. There was so much more to the GU world that what he had read in his past life. Feng Yuan's journey was only a part of the world in its entirety. There were even shadow path secluded domains that Xuanyuan had read about. He had even questioned Elder Luo about their location, in addition to the importance they possessed into the legends of Renzu. The legends of Renzu talk about the relationship between self-GU and shadow GU. Self-GU can bite other GU, obtaining a portion of their power. However, self-GU could not bite shadow GU, who was born of the shadow of Renzu and self-GU. Shadow GU was refined from man and GU, the reflection of all living beings. Shadow GU allowed Renzu to traverse the shadowless ocean, the shadow of the blue sea of life. With his shadow in hand, Renzu was no longer alone in the world. Renzu knew that his shadow knew all of his secrets, his desires, his shame, and his guilt, and sought to remove his shadow, hiding in a place that shadows could never escape. Where was that master? Xuanyuan asked. Elder Luo smiled slightly, closing the book in his hands. The Shadow of the Immemorial Nine Heavens, Lightless Abyss. Chapter 18, Seeking Conflict. Published by Web Novel. 2 more Reverend Insanity fanfics have come out in the past few days, and although they don't have many chapters, I hope that others can give them a read. If you have time, check out these 2 fanfics. Reverend Insanity, Otherworldly Disaster by Wise_Crow. Reverend Insanity, Absolute Sovereign by Dagu Driblix. Thank you all again. Xuanyuan always wondered what secluded domains of heaven and earth actually were. Each of them possessed enough Dao marks to rival, or even exceed a rank 9 immortal GU. Those whom were considered masters of a secluded domain of heaven and earth could in fact create a killer move which rivals that of an immortal GU. Their Dao marks were positioned and refined so perfectly that they produced a unique reaction found nowhere else in the world. Guts GU, which were produced by Danghun Mountain, could only be found in Danghun Mountain. No other resource point or secluded domain of heaven and earth could ever recreate the conditions upon which Guts GU could be formed. Upon realizing this, Xuanyuan became interested in the secluded domains of heaven and earth relating to the shadow path. There were 2 mentioned by name in the legends of Renzu, while only a single other was left unnamed, Shadow GU taking the memory of it from Renzu's mind after he was torn and sealed away. Shadowless Ocean, Lightless Heaven, and a place described as the Silhouette of Annihilation, which bordered upon heaven and earth. These 3 secluded domains of heaven and earth either produced a unique GU only found there, or a unique reaction which could assist a GU master in their cultivation. Xuanyuan had read the legends of Renzu, but only was Shadowless Ocean described within the ancient text. Shadowless Ocean was at an eternal calm, the black ocean reflecting the melancholy of the heavens and the earth. The shadows that were born here were independent of any living being. They lacked a reflection, and could only reside here, endlessly waiting, drifting amongst an endless sea of shadows. Born without a reflection, and without purpose in their lives, they grew malcontent in their idleness. Some grew slothful, others virtuous, some lustful, and others became filled with pride, rejecting the need for reflection, rebelling against their natural order. Anything that floated towards the shadowless ocean was devoured by countless shadows. Renzu, after obtaining Shadow GU, tried to cross the shadowless ocean trying to once again find the blue sea of life. He thought he was safe, using Shadow GU to disguise himself, but accidentally released the Light of Hope GU, inciting the myriad shadows into a bloodthirsty frenzy. The Light of Hope, if we can obtain it, we might be able to leave the shadowless ocean, they said. Look, there is Shadow GU. If we can eat him, we will no longer be alone in this world, they said. We will finally be able to leave this place, they said. Myriad shadows attempted to latch onto Renzu, trying to devour the Light of Hope GU. If there was one thing in this world that they lacked, it was hope, and if they could devour Renzu's shadow, they could obtain the reflection which they desired so dearly. Renzu attempted to fight it, but shadows can only ever be touched by another shadow. With assistance from Self GU, Moon GU, Memory GU, and Perseverance GU, Shadow GU became strong enough to devour the shadows born without a reflection. Shadow GU grew immense in size and depth, devouring countless shadows before him. During this fight, the line between man and shadow started to blur, and a ferocious and bloodthirsty aura started to emanate from Renzu and Shadow GU. Shadow GU slowly started to understand the vastness of the moon, stretching its shadow in the gentle light of the heavens. Shadow GU understood the meaning of perseverance, even as myriad shadows clawed at its body. Shadow GU started to understand the importance of the self, comprehending the meaning of identity and personal experiences. Born of the self and man, Shadow GU was the reflection of all living beings, but was tied to the life and death of Renzu. Eventually, it grew to a size that even Renzu couldn't handle, forcing him to throw up, accidentally throwing Memory GU into the shadowless ocean, obscuring memories within shadows. The shadowless ocean carried within it countless memories of lost shadows, devoid of their destined reflection. Anguish, rage, malice and desire rampaged within the shadowless ocean, yet, the surface remained calm and still, reflecting the cloudless sky above it. Shadow GU and Memory GU were important in this particular part of the legends of Renzu. Shadow GU devoured shadows devoid of a reflection, increasing the size of Renzu. Additionally, Memory GU was devoured by shadows, allowing shadows to possess their own memories. This was an assumption that Xuanyuan had come to. The truth might be more complicated than that, but he could feel something churn inside of him, as he read the passage over and over again in his mind. Shadowless ocean is a shadow of the cloudless sky. Theoretically, it can only exist in a place devoid of clouds. Lightless heaven was a place where the light of the immemorial nine heavens could not reach, but still somehow birthed shadows in complete and utter darkness. And the final could literally be anywhere. No clues on where that could be. Xuan Yuan theorized that Shadowless Ocean was somewhere in the Eastern Sea. It wasn't founded on any solid evidence, only that the Eastern Sea contained an innumerable number of oceans and seas. It was possible that Shadowless Sea was hidden somewhere, or protected by an unknown GU immortal. Xuan Yuan paused all of his thoughts relating to the shadow path secluded domains of heaven and earth, hearing a knock coming from his study door. Little Yuan, there is a Long Shi and a Yu Zhang'er here to see you. They are waiting in one of the side rooms near the refinement study. Xuan Yuan perked up, hearing Elder Luo's voice through the walls. Glancing at the stacks of books scattered about the floor, Xuan Yuan ignored them, swiftly exiting his study only to be greeted with the amused smile of Elder Luo. Master, you were waiting for me? He asked. Elder Luo usually just informed him that guests were here before heading over and entertaining them. Most of the guests were usually other elders, or merchants in charge of the various stores or franchises in Earth Soul City. Never had Xuan Yuan had guests come over before. Needless to say, it made the older man pleased, more than anything else. The gray-haired old man stroked his beard, smiling somewhat proudly at Xuan Yuan. The younger man just glanced behind him at his study, closing the door swiftly before his master could see the mess inside. Is there something the matter, master? You have a weird expression on your face, he said. Elder Luo chuckled loudly, nodding slightly before walking away. Nothing important worth sharing, little Yuan. A little surprising is all, but nevertheless, a welcome change. Xuan Yuan raised an eyebrow before shaking his head, watching his master grin as he walked to the opposite side of the residence. His brows furrowing for a moment, before Xuan Yuan shook his head, rolling his eyes a little. Perverted old man, what does he think, that I'm seeing both at the same time, he thought. Xuan Yuan went to his room and changed out of his clothes. He noticed that a set had already been prepared for him, a simple, yet elegant set of black robes. There were no fancy additions, yet the material was probably made from a powerful spider beast capable of fighting GU masters. Quickly heading towards Elder Luo's refinement study, Xuan Yuan frowned a little, not quite sure about Long Shi or Yu Zhang'er's visit. Are they here to take me on a sect mission? I didn't think that Yu Zhang'er would even consider it before I reached the peak rank 1 GU master stage. Is it about Huo Jin? Perhaps they seek to find refuge from him under the umbrella of another elder? Xuan Yuan had only heard information about Huo Jin from Long Shi and Yu Zhang'er. Both of them considered him a lascivious third-generation GU master who was taught both martial arts and the fire path from a young age. He was a B-grade talent, and his grandfather made sure that he had everything he could ever want in life. He had joined the Golden Soul Hall, and reveled in its immense wealth, enjoying senseless spending and endless hedonism. Ever since he became a GU master he had tried to entice Long Shi, Yu Zhang'er and a few other beautiful female GU masters into his bed, knowing full well of his reputation as a playboy. From Xuan Yuan's perspective, he was a playboy, but wasn't a demonic GU master. He didn't commit wanton sexual assault or force himself on women that tried to say no to him. He was a member of the ancient soul sect. Even wealth and a powerful background wasn't enough for a righteous path GU master to turn a blind eye to heinous crimes. He had harassed female GU masters, but never touched them. Even if he had committed a crime in the past, he would have learned from his mistakes, not daring to do anything that might get him in trouble. Let us see what these two want then, shall we? He muttered to himself. Xuan Yuan entered the side room, his eyes immediately landing on Long Shi and Yu Zhang'er. The pair were dressed in their usual ancient soul sect intersect disciples' robes, Long Shi appearing as clean and refined as Yu Zhang'er today. Raising an eyebrow, he noticed a slight tension in the room as he entered. From your visit here, I take it that it couldn't have waited until our next class? He asked. Xuan Yuan sat down opposite Long Shi and Yu Zhang'er, the former glancing at the latter, before nodding, her expression slightly guilty. Huo Jin thinks that the three of us are involved. He made some comments about you and your relationship with us, she said. Xuan Yuan suppressed a groan, before pinching the bridge of his nose, letting out a deep breath. Does he know about your rank 2 liquor worm? He asked. Yu Zhang'er shook her head. No, he doesn't. However, one of his lackeys from Golden Soul Hall have been keeping an eye on us for a while. They watched you speak with both us, individually and as a group, and have come to the conclusion that you are, to some degree, involved with at least one of us. Xuan Yuan didn't bother suppressing his groan this time, slumping into his chair and ruining the creaseless edges of his nice black robes. For a minute there, I almost forgot about arrogant young masters. I guess this is a cultivation world after all, he thought. Xuan Yuan just shrugged his shoulders, his eyes firmly locked on the girls sitting opposite him. Can't you just tell him I'm a student of yours? Although, assuming that his lackeys are twisting the truth a little, I suppose he won't believe anything either of you tell him. I would probably be the last person he believes as well. What a dumb situation, Xuan Yuan muttered the last part, but Long Shi and Yu Zhang'er both heard it loud and clear. Needless to say, little Yuan, Huo Jin, might make it hard for you over the next couple weeks. Harass you before the start and end of every class, in the Wood Soul Hall whenever you try and grab something to eat, whenever you visit Earth Soul City, and potentially whenever you exit the sect on sect missions. Long Shi seemed apologetic, but Xuan Yuan just waved it off a little. I know the rules of the sect, senior sister Long. Using GU against another disciple outside of sparring or tournaments will result in them being thrown into the burning soul hall for punishment. Huo Jin will never act himself, using his lackeys to do his dirty work for him. Xuan Yuan tapped the side of his chair for a moment, humming, before standing up, nodding at his two senior sisters. Both of them seemed surprised at Xuan Yuan's sudden actions, before he gave them both a smile. Don't worry about me, I'm thankful that you came to warn me in the first place. With Elder Luo backing me, he won't do anything too forceful, probably hoping to goad me into acting first. So long as I do not throw the first punch, there is nothing for me to worry about. His smile seemed calm, and yet Long Shi couldn't help but frown, standing up and shouting at Xuan Yuan. You don't understand, one wrong move in Earth Soul City and you could end up crippled, Xuan Yuan. His lackeys would flee the city and hide out in one of the territories near the subsidiary sects. You could actually be hurt. Xuan Yuan paused for a moment, halfway out the door, his expression unperturbed as his eyes reflected Long Shi and Yu Zhang'er's figures. His eyes seemed different in that moment, somewhat cold instead of carrying the usual curious and knowledgeable glint in them. I do not seek enmity with others, senior sister. Cultivation is a path of self-exploration, of self-empowerment, of self-discovery. It is a lonely path, albeit with intersections here and there along the way. If someone wants to waste their time seeking conflict with me, instead of cultivating, then I will make sure that I end the conflict before it becomes too time-consuming. They are not just distracting myself, but you senior sister Long, and you senior sister Yu. They are distracting themselves from cultivation and developing their attainments and comprehensions. But if this is the path they walk, then so be it. Long Shi and Yu Zhang'er remained silent to Xuan Yuan's words. They had heard of his perspective on cultivation, but it was the first time hearing themselves how much Xuan Yuan valued his time and cultivation. It seemed lonely, but at the same time, both fanatical and romantic. If cultivation was a woman, then it was the only woman for Xuan Yuan. Anyone who tried to take her from Xuan Yuan would be met with anger, rage, and disgust. Xuan Yuan gave his senior sisters one last bow. If you excuse me, senior sisters, please spend as much time here as you want. It will make it easier to provoke Huo Jin in the future. The otherworldly demon left the room, leaving only his two somewhat stunned senior sisters alone. I know we came here to warn little Yuan about Huo Jin, but I think we inadvertently just set little Yuan on Huo Jin and his lackeys, right, Zhang'er? Zhang'er, are you listening to me? Long Shi stamped her foot, glaring at her friend, whose gaze lingered on the spot where Xuan Yuan once stood. Her brows furrowed, as if trying to convey something. Don't walk down that path, Xuan Yuan. I don't want you to end up like her, she thought. Chapter 19, almost a year. Published by web novel. Several more months quickly passed in the ancient soul sect, and life within one of the 10 great sects quickly became more active, as the end-of-year tournament for the newest batch of disciples became right around the corner. It had been 11 months since Xuan Yuan joined the ancient soul sect. 11 months since he awakened his 99% primeval essence C, and became the personal disciple of Elder Luo, an elder belonging to the Earth Soul Hall. Xuanyuan had an interesting past several months. Ever since the meeting with Longxi and Yu Zhang'er, Xuanyuan had a couple of unfortunate encounters with members of the Earth Soul Hall. Nothing had ever devolved into violence, but Xuanyuan had to ignore countless rumors regarding himself and his two senior sisters, no doubt spread by Huo Jin and his little lackeys. Xuanyuan had been the object of discussion his entire first year in the sect. First an object of envy and jealousy, secondly, an object of admiration and firm resolution. And now, he was the object of scrutiny and disgust. Look over there, I can't believe he has the audacity to show his face around here. Can't the elders do anything about it? I mean, I know he is the disciple of Elder Luo, but still, there has to be something the other elders can do. I heard that another girl accused him of assault, one of the other outer sect seniors from the year above us. I think I heard about that too. I think my cousin's friend's older brother's girlfriend knows her. I think she is the fire path class. Come on, let's just sit somewhere else. I abhor looking at trash while eating. Xuanyuan ate his food in the wood soul hall silently, his expression flawless, with no traces of emotions or desires visible to the naked eye. Xuanyuan hadn't experienced bullying in his previous life, but could now understand why it was so psychologically and mentally straining. His desire to pursue truth was what kept him afloat amongst all the rumors and gossip, but the young man knew that a regular rank 1 GU master would have crumbled in shame and distress a long time ago. Every week new rumors of Xuanyuan harassing a female GU master were born, fueled and flamed by Huo Jin and members of the Golden Soul Hall. Although no one had come forward to give their statement to any of the elders, most just assumed they were too scared, considering that Xuanyuan was the personal disciple of an elder himself. Not that they had any actual evidence. Xuanyuan could count on his fingers the number of people in the ancient soul sect that he considered more than acquaintances. Elder Luo and Elder Kui aside, only Longxi, Yu Zhang'er, Gongchu, Tang San and Lu Guo were people that he would temporarily stop his cultivation for in order to help out. Tang San was the rank 3 Earth Path GU master who recruited Xuanyuan to the ancient soul sect. He was a member of the Earth Soul Hall and often came to Elder Luo's residence to report and give evidence to him. Tang San even taught Xuanyuan a couple of tips regarding useful GU, if a GU master needed to rest in the wild away from civilization. Lu Guo on the other hand, was one of the GU masters whom Tang San recruited from Greengrass Village. His older sister was a rank 2 GU master, and was a member of the Burning Soul Hall, which addressed violations to sect law and handed out punishments accordingly. Burning Soul Hall took orders only from Sky Soul Hall, even Elder Soul Hall could do nothing in that regard. Lu Guo's older sister was someone that Xuanyuan had met before, and after inquiring with her about Huo Jin and his reputation, both Lu Guo and his older sister could understand why so many rumors about Xuanyuan had suddenly appeared. I will try to see if I can get Huo Jin to stop with these baseless accusations. You have my word, Xuanyuan, as a member of the righteous path. I will make sure that justice is carried out. Xuanyuan was a little bit overwhelmed at how forward and just Lu Rong was, and just nodded, thanking her. It does not particularly concern me, senior sister Lu. If I cannot rise above the jealousy and bigotry within the ancient soul sect, then how can I become a rank 6 GU immortal, let alone an immortal venerable? Xuanyuan made sure to use the title of immortal venerable in front of Lu Rong, considering she was one of those fanatics from the righteous path. Needless to say, Lu Rong had left quite the impression on Xuanyuan that day. Xuanyuan made sure not to say the wrong thing about her, lest he get on her bad side. The divine investigator was quite the nuisance in Feng Yuan's life. Fanatical righteous path GU masters are annoying in that they do not stop until their justice has been completed. If I can sick her on Huo Jin, things would be more pleasant for me in the long run. Lu Guo turned out to be a person of interest considering his older sister. He was only at the upper rank 1 GU master stage, after only 11 months, having just reached said stage a couple weeks back. His older sister walked the lightning path, and Lu Guo endeavored to do the same. He had also confided in Xuanyuan that he was interested in the sword path, and made him promise not to tell his sister. It had almost been a full year since Xuanyuan joined the ancient soul sect, and his cultivation progressed rapidly with both the rank 1 liquor worm GU and the rank 1 cloud essence GU in his possession. Xuanyuan could fully expend his primeval essence C, and by the time he woke up the next morning, it was already above 90% full. He had to change his schedule, instead cultivating twice a day every 12 hours. The time in between was used to research GU materials and practice martial arts. His knowledge on the shadow path had increased, and Xuanyuan possessed 2 additional GU to show for it. Silhouette strings GU and formless shadow GU. Both were the results of Xuanyuan's research into the shadow path, in tandem with the incomplete recipes that Elder Kui had given him. Little shadow reflected Xuanyuan, and his happiness was its own happiness. Gazing out towards the silver moon, Xuanyuan sipped on a small gourd of sweet wine, letting his liquor worm also indulge in the liquor under the light of the moon. His clothes were white and clean, creating a sharp contrast between his black hair and eyes. Xuanyuan lifted up his small gourd to the moon, before letting out a small smile. His shadow had tried to taste the shadow of the wine, and despite Xuanyuan's enjoyment, little shadow couldn't say the same. You've helped me immensely, little shadow. I dare say that in this entire world, you are perhaps my only true friend. Little shadow puffed out its chest and nodded its head resolutely. He was Xuanyuan's one and only shadow. They were destined to be together until either one drew their last breath. The dynamic between man and shadow caused Xuanyuan to think back to the legends of Renzu. Despite only learning of this part a few months ago, Xuanyuan had read it enough times that it was permanently fixed within his memory. Shadow GU devoured shadow after shadow, growing immense in size and unmatched in ferocity, forcing Renzu to grow alongside it. Renzu felt his body expand, growing larger and larger with every new shadow devoured, his form bloating, his face bulging and his stomach swelling. Despite this, however, Self GU remained the same size, holding onto the shadow Renzu's former self. Shadow GU expanded Renzu, and then compressed him under the pull of Self GU. Self GU compressed Renzu, but then expanded under the growth of Shadow GU. The constant growth and pull of shadows and self caused Renzu to start splitting, his physical form unable to withstand a constant state of pushing and pulling. Renzu unconsciously rampaged while these two sides raged against each other, falling into the depths of the shadowless ocean. Renzu unknowingly fell into the lightless heaven. Nothing, not the destructive, yet nurturing light of the sun, nor the gentle, yet intoxicating light of the moon could reach this place. It was shrouded in endless darkness, and the rampaging Renzu could do nothing but claw at his flesh and scratch at his shadow, trying to end his pain and suffering. The dynamic between the growth of his shadow and the pull of his former self caused Renzu to split open, his blood mixing with his shadow and eventually birthing. Black Night Eclipsing Sky. This was one of the 10 children of Renzu, one of the 2 which had not yet been named. From Xuanyuan's understanding of the Black Night Eclipsing Sky physique, it carried within it dark path Dao marks, and interestingly enough light path Dao marks. Xuanyuan let out a small sigh, shaking his head slightly. The Black Night Eclipsing Sky physique would be an extraordinary research material. But, considering how rare the 10 extreme physiques were in the world, finding it would be like trying to catch a shadow. The 10 extreme physiques allowed a GU master to possess the largest size of blessed land after they attained rank 6. Their foundations would exceed that of the vast majority of other rank 6 GU immortals, and their Dao marks, and chances of refining an immortal GU would be much higher while undergoing immortal ascension. Xuanyuan had already long since reached rank 2, and even without the use of the liquor worm, his cultivation was progressing quickly, though the effectiveness of the rank 1 cloud essence GU had dwindled significantly. Xuanyuan knew that Feng Yuan had become a rank 2 GU master in under a year, using both the liquor worm and a great number of primeval essence stones to fuel his cultivation. Although Xuanyuan lacked primeval essence stones, the cloud essence GU was much more reliable as a rank 1 GU master. I can feel my light red primeval essence churn within my aperture. The flickering light of my aperture walls are swiftly becoming more and more stable, despite the pale intensity of the light itself. With such a cultivation stage, there isn't anyone in the tournament who could beat me in terms of cultivation speed. Although considering Xuanyuan's ridiculous cultivation speed, he had arrived at another obstacle, one that he had not considered earlier. My cultivation is progressing way too quickly. All of my GU are still rank 1, and yet I am getting closer and closer to reaching the middle rank 2 GU master stage. There is the untested recipe for Shadow Eyes GU that I could try, but the newly produced GU would only be rank 1. Unless I can increase its rank from rank 1 to rank 2, it won't be that useful in the long run. Xuanyuan had the completed GU recipes of Shadow Stinger GU, Silhouette Strings GU and Formless Shadow GU, and planned on selling at least Shadow Stinger GU and Formless Shadow GU recipes in order to earn Primeval Essence Stones. The GU recipes most GU were expensive, but only those GU whom directly affected cultivation possessed outrageous prices several times that of the market price of the GU. They were considered secrets, despite the fact that their GU recipe was contained within most major clans and sects across the GU world. Xuanyuan had considered selling his GU recipe for the rank 3 and rank 4 liquor worms, knowing that it would earn him an outrageous sum of Primeval Essence Stones. But, no doubt the origins into the GU recipe would be investigated, and there was a possibility of his involvement being revealed. Xuanyuan possessed shadows as thought GU to help deduce incomplete GU recipes. He had considered purchasing Wisdom Path GU to help assist with managing the flow of shadow thoughts, and increasing his mental energy as well. It would potentially allow him to make more deductions and with greater efficiency as well. Xuanyuan had reached the level of Quasi-Master in the Shadow Path, attaining at the moment he became a rank 2 GU Master. His understanding of the Shadow Path was vastly better than it was several months ago. Xuanyuan had even started intuitively writing down his own GU material combinations, although these were only steps, not complete GU recipes. Xuanyuan had started to believe that he was truly fated for the Shadow Path. He was unsure of why fate GU had aligned him on this path, but could only sigh, taking another sip of his wine as he gazed up at the moon. I wonder if the moon possesses a shadow. Could the shadow of the moon eclipse the sun and the stars? Could it eclipse the soul? If I destroy the shadow of the sun and moon, what will happen to the rest of the GU world? Chapter 20 Primordial Domain. Published by Web Novel. Xuanyuan had resolved himself to contribute the completed Shadow Stinger GU and the Formless Shadow GU recipes to the sect. The estimated market price of both of the GU were 250 and 200 Primeval Essence Stones respectively, and were roughly 1,500 and 1,000 Primeval Essence Stones respectively. Xuanyuan didn't mention to Elder Kui about him completing the Shadow Stinger GU and the Formless Shadow GU, meeting with another elder from the Refinement Soul Hall instead. The elder saw Xuanyuan's rank 2 GU master cultivation and didn't associate it with the cultivation of a new disciple. He just stroked his beard nodding at Xuanyuan as he revealed both his Shadow Stinger GU and his Formless Shadow GU. Your contributions to the sect will not remain unnoticed, young man. With your talent you could do well in our Refinement Soul Hall, the elder offered. Xuanyuan raised an eyebrow before giving the elder a deep bow. My apologies, Elder Gong. However, I am striving to be a member of the Sky Soul Hall. I have already discussed things with Elder Kong. Xuanyuan apologized to the elder, refusing his offer. Elder Gong seemed surprised at the mention of Sky Soul Hall but just let out a sigh, shaking his head from side to side. Ah, it seems Elder Kong's foresight is as accurate as ever. Refinement Soul Hall has lost a potential genius in the refinement path. Xuanyuan had exchanged a few ideas with Elder Gong, the old man happily giving wisdom to a talented member of the younger generation. Xuanyuan's knowledge on the refinement path was shallow in comparison to his attainment in the shadow, dark or light paths. Elder Gong had even given Xuanyuan a special pass, which he could use to access one of the higher tier refinement rooms. The concentration of primeval energy was much higher in these rooms, increasing the likelihood that the refinement would be a success. In Elder Gong's eyes, he still could potentially poach Xuanyuan from under Elder Kong, so long as the offer was sweet enough. Giving Xuanyuan a refinement soul hall token meant that he was inevitably come back, allowing Elder Gong to make additional offers or give advice to Xuanyuan. Old Kong doesn't understand how vital my refinement soul hall is. Would the sect even have a future foundation if no one could carry on my legacy? Xuanyuan didn't realize that he had sparked a flame in Elder Gong's heart and left the refinement soul hall and headed towards Earth Soul City. Now armed with 2,500 primeval essence stones, Xuanyuan went on a spending spree, purchasing 2 rank 2 shadow path GU directly, as well as dozens of different GU materials from several different paths. Xuanyuan purchased rank 2 dense shadow blade GU and a rank 2 bright red light GU. Dense shadow blade GU was similar to moonblade GU of the GU clan. Although this particular rank 2 refinement increased the cutting power and range in exchange for the size of the shadow blade. It was roughly only the same width of a palm, but could reach targets up to 60 feet away. Additionally, it could completely cut through a grown man's torso, although the quality of the shadow blade would decrease in proportion to the distance it traveled. At a closer range, it was a guaranteed death sentence. Bright red light GU on the other hand, was a rank 2 light path, GU which produced a bright red light. It was the direct and most common refinement path for the rank 1 red light GU. Using these 2 GU in tandem, increased the effectiveness of the rank 2 dense shadow blade GU by more than double. The primeval essence cost was large, considering Xuanyuan only had a light red primeval essence, but that problem would go away as Xuanyuan's cultivation developed. These 2 GU had an offensive power greater than every single other GU Xuanyuan had in his possession, combined. Such was the disparity between ranks. If I can obtain a splitting shadow GU, or even something like a breaking light GU, combined with a dark shadow chi, or a dual shadow GU, I would have an enormous combat potential for an initial stage rank 2 GU master. With his quasi-master attainment in the shadow path, Xuanyuan had reached a level that even most rank 4 and rank 5 GU masters only reach towards the end of their lifespan. Xuanyuan's comprehension regarding the shadow path was immense, and shadows as thought GU only boosted the speed at which he could prove his theories, finalize his attainment. Although Xuanyuan had yet to unconsciously form an intuition relating the shadow path, he was abundant in both ideas and concepts. Shadow thoughts bounced around the inside of his mind, sometimes combining with other shadow thoughts and other times bouncing off each other, not compatible under Xuanyuan's current attainment. Xuanyuan didn't have a great enough grasp to create a mortal killer move, not to mention that such a killer move could involve more than a dozen different GU. Xuanyuan tapped his chin for a moment. Using dense shadow GU to form the basis for a mortal killer move could be possible. Although, I would need all of the other GU that I listed earlier in order to complete it. Not to mention other light path GU in order to increase its potency and strength enough to match that of a mortal killer move. The image of dozens of dense shadow blades exploding out in a single direction flashed in Xuanyuan's mind. A potentially powerful mortal killer move, albeit without a lot of room for growth. It only created shadow blades and fired them in a single direction. The amount was impressive, but other than that, Xuanyuan would have to introduce another element into the mortal killer move in order to improve its potential for growth. Xuanyuan needed to complete a set of GU before he even considered creating a foundation for mortal killer moves. Both dense shadow GU and bright red light GU were offensive type GU. Xuanyuan possessed formless shadow GU in terms of movement type GU, but it was only a rank 1 GU. Xuanyuan had no defensive type GU, and no healing type GU or concealment type GU. In terms of support type GU he had shadow chi GU, and in terms of cultivation type GU, he would be able to get his hands on a rank 2-4 fragrances liquor worm soon. Xuanyuan's mind thought back to the discussion he had with Elder Luo and Elder Kong. If I can attain first place, I can meet with an actual shadow path GU immortal. I might even be able to see their blessed land as well. In Xuanyuan's mind, a rank 6 GU immortal should have at least a master level attainment in their main path. Higher if either their comprehension and luck were found in abundance. Xuanyuan couldn't be sure about the personality of the GU immortal, whether they would be receptive to discussing the Tao of the shadow path with a junior, but even just a single question would be enough for Xuanyuan. Letting out a small sigh, Xuanyuan closed his eyes and stopped his deductions. I suspect that even with a master level attainment in the light path and shadow path I wouldn't be able to deduce the crimson shadow GU. The GU carries too many profundities from each path for it to be deduced with just a single one. The Crimson Shadow GU interested Xuan Yuan the most, out of all of the incomplete GU recipes that Elder Kui gave him. Xuan Yuan initially suspected that it carried some sort of fire path profundity, but through his deductions came to the conclusion that it was both a shadow path and a light path GU. The Crimson Shadow GU used some sort of unique type of light in order to be refined. That light carried both an intense heat, but also the most distinct element of blood. Xuan Yuan's knowledge on the blood path was absolutely zero. Elder Luo hadn't permitted any books from any of the paths the 10 great sects considered demonic paths. If the Crimson Shadow GU required blood path GU materials in order to be refined, then Xuan Yuan was fresh out of luck in that regard. The description of the Crimson Shadow GU is similar to shadows as thought GU in some regards. The Crimson Shadow GU produces crimson shadows which inherently act like a fire path GU. Their shadow could effectively burn the shadows of others, or transform a regular shadow into a crimson shadow through complementary GU or a killer move. While Shadow Qi enhanced whatever the qualities of the shadow was, Crimson Shadow GU transformed said qualities. It made Xuan Yuan question just how many different types of shadows existed in the GU world. If shadows are the reflections of all living beings, then surely they must carry qualities relating to the existence they reflect, right? The shadow of a fish must carry the shape of a fish, while the shadow of a man must carry the shape of a man. But what about more abstract concepts? What are the differences in the shadows of a rank 5 GU master and a rank 6 GU immortal? Do the shadows cast by GU have a different quality in comparison to beasts and humans? Does the shadow of the sun or moon, or secluded domains of heaven and earth have a quality not found anywhere else in the GU world? Souls can be physically extracted using soul path methods, and Guts GU have the ability to strengthen the soul of a GU master. Was it possible for shadows to be extracted, and if so, what were the repercussions of doing such a thing? Was there a GU like Guts GU which could strengthen the foundation of an individual shadow? If Xuan Yuan's shadow took on the shape of a desolate beast, would his physical body transform accordingly? Renzu had his physical body grow as his shadow did, so would Xuan Yuan's physical form mutate to match that of his shadow? This required a grandmaster level attainment in order to be understood, using shadow path methods in order to imitate and make use of the specialty traits and advantages of other paths. Using shadow path in order to mimic the transformation path, by transforming into a desolate beast. Or using shadow path to mimic the food path by devouring other shadows. Either one would require an extraordinary attainment in their respective paths. Xuan Yuan could see that immortal venerables and demonic venerables could easily achieve such a thing. Spectral Soul had used the soul path in order to replicate the food path, giving rise to his Devour Soul immortal killer move. Thieving Heaven demonic venerable created his ghostly concealment immortal killer move which veiled the user in a silk-like garment of thief path Dao marks. It concealed the user from all souls, but not from living beings or heaven's will. While divine concealment on the other hand, concealed the user from deductions and from heaven's will. The existence of ghostly concealment and divine concealment meant that it was possible for the shape of Dao marks to differ, despite belonging to the same path. Their self-regenerating capabilities aside, Xuan Yuan wanted to know how arranging Dao marks in a certain formation, or a certain pattern created these artificial secluded domains of heaven and earth. If it is possible for thief path Dao marks to take a shape reminiscent of soul path, then would it be possible for shadow path Dao marks to do the same with other paths? Xuan Yuan let out a sigh, not being able to answer his own question. Xuan Yuan had too many questions for his own good. There weren't as many chances to increase his attainment in comparison to the number of chances he had to increase his cultivation. Attainment was a matter of comprehension and knowledge. There was no way to rush either of them when Xuan Yuan was limited by both. Xuan Yuan didn't have the privilege of future knowledge, or being blessed by fate and given an immortal dream path GU. Dream realms were not something that Xuan Yuan could consistently rely on unless he was also in possession of Danghun Mountain. Considering that Shadow Sect still existed, and Spectral Soul hadn't gone crazy yet either, looking for inheritances relating to Devour Soul immortal killer move was unfeasible and unlikely. There was possibly one thing that Xuan Yuan could do, but it required either an immense amount of luck, or the protection of a near-invincible GU like Love GU. Other than that, perhaps only a rank 9 GU immortal could reach the place that Xuan Yuan wanted. Primordial Domain. Chapter 21 Humanity is not born alone. Published by web novel. Primordial Domain. A secluded domain of heaven and earth which encompassed both the heaven path and the human path. Originally used by Limitless Demon Venerable in combination with Derivation GU in order to derive new Dao marks into existence, Primordial Domain possessed a singular ability which Xuan Yuan coveted. Primordial Domain enables a GU immortal to reach the supreme grandmaster level attainment in their main path. Given enough time, a regular GU immortal could theoretically push the attainment of their main path towards a realm that usually only venerables possess. I don't know if it reveals hidden truths about a certain path, or if it creates a resonance with surrounding Dao marks, but Feng Yuan used it to become a supreme grandmaster in the refinement path. It was later destroyed, so the unique interaction of Dao marks within the primordial domain were either lost, or would eventually reconstitute itself again with enough time. If Xuan Yuan could reach the primordial domain, he wouldn't have to worry about one of the greatest requirements to become a venerable. His understanding of the shadow path would be propelled forward beyond the limits of the GU world. His comprehension and understanding would allow him to obtain mysteries and secrets of the world that were beyond the grasp of ordinary GU immortals. Xuan Yuan would be able to obtain all the answers to all of the questions that he could ever ask about the shadow path. And even if he did not obtain the answers he sought, so long as he used other paths to influence the shadow path, he did not believe that deriving any GU would be impossible. Xuan Yuan wrote down in his notebook. Reach rank 5 and obtain a second aperture. Lang Ya Blessed Land is the easiest choice in this regards. However, this does put me in opposition with Feng Yuan in the future. Depriving him of this opportunity will make him wary that the future does not necessarily follow his knowledge. Obtain Primordial Domain and Derivation GU. Derivation GU can be used to derive things other than new Dao marks or new worlds, acting in a similar vein to Wisdom GU, albeit without costing lifespan. Might potentially take more time than Wisdom GU. These were two things that Xuan Yuan wanted more than anything else in the future. If he could obtain both of these, Xuan Yuan knew that eventually, even if he had to hide for a few thousand years, he would become a venerable. Xuan Yuan wasn't stupid enough to come between the Shadow Sect, Heavenly Court and Feng Yuan with a foundation like his own, but even if he had to hide until he became a rank 9 GU immortal, he would then gain the qualification stand against almost anyone in the GU world. Xuan Yuan couldn't ascend as a heaven path or a human path GU immortal, but with two blessed lands under his control, he could walk two different paths at once, reducing the effects of conflicting Dao marks. It didn't necessarily mean that Xuan Yuan didn't have other goals, only just that those were what he could guarantee, so long as he played his cards right. In terms of other things that Xuan Yuan wanted, they were even greater in number. Obtain a shadow path secluded domain of heaven and earth. Obtain Derivation GU and derive the GU recipe for third aperture GU. Xuan Yuan wouldn't be able to cultivate a third aperture if he had already undergone a mortal ascension, but if the circumstances called for him to become a zombie for whatever reason and he had to change bodies, having the recipe for the third aperture GU would transform everything. Obtain Fortune Rivaling Heaven GU. Eliminate Ma Hongyan before he obtains Fortune Rivaling Heaven GU is the simplest option in this regard. Find Thieving Heaven Demonic Venerable's aperture which has yet to be unearthed. If I could find it, it would prove that I am the inheritor of Thieving Heaven and not Feng Yuan, allowing Xuan Yuan to refine any 3 GU of his choosing, and put Feng Yuan at a disadvantage. Obtain the Bi-Clan, Humans Alike Dragon GU refinement method. It was an immortal killer move, combining the human path and the enslavement path. Deriving a new variant human subspecies of other paths would no doubt vastly improve an individual's attainment in human path. Obtain Space Door and find an entranceway to Space Cave. Space Cave allows a GU master to travel anywhere in the GU world in an instant. From my understanding, it bypassed all methods of concealment or protection, existing everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Obtain the research into the Sovereign Fetus GU. Even if the recreation of the GU is unfeasible, deriving a new extreme physique might not be. If Xuanyuan could create an additional extreme physique, or even multiple extreme physiques, his legacy would undoubtedly transcend multiple eras. Xuanyuan wanted other things like wisdom GU or love GU or strength GU, but knew that possessing even a single one exceeded his luck for his current lifetime. Just eyeing derivation GU was enough for multiple GU immortals to curse him to death. A legacy of limitless demon was more than enough to sustain a super force for several hundred years, and Xuanyuan wanted more on top of that. The most ideal thing for Xuanyuan would be to obtain a blessed land before he became a GU immortal. Not only would it teach him how to successfully manage a blessed land, but it would also allow him to access yellow treasure heaven. Obtaining relic GU, especially rank 5 relic GU, would cause any GU master to go green with envy. Even if it was a path that Xuanyuan didn't have any attainment in, he would still be able to comprehend something using his shadow path attainment. Xuanyuan let out a sigh, removing the excess thoughts from his head. There are too many things I want. I know greed isn't a good thing, but how am I supposed to find truth if I just watch as everything valuable in this world is claimed before I even get a chance to fight for it? The otherworldly demon just lay there for a moment before Elder Luo's voice echoed through the walls. Xuanyuan, Elder Kong and Elder Hu are here. Please meet us in the main hall. We have something to discuss with you. Unconsciously, Xuanyuan sat up straight, glancing at the hourglass-shaped timepiece GU on his desk, frowning for a moment before getting up to get ready. Elder Kong and Elder Hu don't usually come here. I wonder why they are here today of all days. Xuanyuan had used Elder Kong's name in order to divert attention away from himself in front of Elder Guo from the Refinement Soul Hall. He had done so because Xuanyuan had only ever met Elder Kong once, and knew that his responsibilities afforded him more than a little secrecy. Elder Luo had mentioned that even in front of the Elder Soul Hall, Sky Soul Hall took priority. Elder Kong communed with the GU immortals of the Ancient Soul Sect, and no doubt, was in charge of balancing resources that the GU immortals required with the resources that the rest of the sect needed. Xuanyuan didn't think that Elder Guo would confront Elder Kong, so it's surprised to see him and Elder Hu both here today. Giving his master and the two other rank 5 GU masters a deep bow, Xuanyuan could feel the intensity of their gazes on his body. Even if he wanted to, he wouldn't be able to hide his cultivation in front of a wisdom path GU master like Elder Hu. This one greets the three elders. Elder Hu raised her eyebrows slightly, glancing at Elder Luo, who just smiled, shrugging his shoulders. It wasn't me. I've made sure to have as little an influence on how quickly he cultivates. Xuanyuan is quite talented in making friends, or so I've heard. Elder Luo winked at his disciple, causing Xuanyuan's cheeks to turn a light shade of pink. This old man, he'll never let me live that down. Elder Kong just nodded, his thick white eyebrows his most defining feature. It is good that Xuanyuan is getting along with his fellow disciples. I had heard a rumor from one of the elders in Golden Soul Hall, but I am pleased that it was just that, a rumor. Elder Hu interjected, earning a slight glare from Elder Luo. Old Huo is too rampart these days. His grandson acts more like a demonic path GU master with every passing day, spreading horrid rumors about Little Yuan and Little Shi and Little Zhang. Not to mention how a rank 2 GU master managed to purchase a red steel relic GU of all things. The boy is barely a B grade talent, and yet it is not our place to say how Elder Huo raises his grandchild, Luo Yu. His actions have always placed the welfare and future of the Ancient Soul Sect in mind. Huo Yang is innocent in this regard. If his grandson, Huo Jin, truly is straying from the righteous path, I will inform Elder Song from the Burning Soul Hall to deal with it. Elder Kong interrupted Elder Luo, causing Xuanyuan's master to take a step back, giving Elder Kong a small nod. I understand, Elder Kong. I will keep myself in check next time. Apologies. Xuanyuan had never seen his master reprimanded before, but kept his own expression in check as all three elders turned back to face him. Elder Luo, still slightly upset, couldn't suppress a smile rising up on his face, while Elder Hu and Elder Kong seemed more pleased than anything else. It put Xuanyuan slightly on edge, especially considering he couldn't hide his cultivation in front of any of them. Xuanyuan, what are the chances of you reaching the middle rank 2 GU master stage before the new disciple tournament? I would ask you to be perfectly honest in front of us, Elder Kong asked. Xuanyuan paused for a moment, thinking of how to word himself. Currently, with no setbacks or sudden situations which prevent me from cultivating, I would reach it within the next 30 days. That is taking into account my primeval essence stone expenditure, he replied. Xuanyuan, being a rank 2 GU master, could collect 15 primeval essence stones a week from the sect. He was a rank 2 GU master, but still an outer sect disciple. He knew from Tang San that his weekly allotment would double once he became an inner sect disciple. Elder Kong nodded. I see. Did you know, Xuanyuan, that there are new disciples from your generation whom are already at the peak of rank 2? My estimate places the number at 4. Xuanyuan raised an eyebrow. This was information he hadn't known. They use relic GU, I'm assuming? Elder Kong nodded. This isn't an uncommon occurrence. However, in previous years, the highest level of cultivation that this tournament has produced has usually been the middle stage rank 2, sometimes the upper stage rank 2. Do you know why things have changed this year? He asked. Because of me, I'm guessing? Elder Hu nodded this time, speaking up for Elder Kong. These second-generation GU masters feel threatened by you, Xuanyuan. They are not like mortal-born GU masters whom fail to understand the importance of innate talent. They know, without extraordinarily rare GU, such as Aptitude GU, Rising Limit GU, Breaking C GU, or even Transcendence GU, they can never attain the same talent as you. I know this because I had quite an interesting discussion with Feng Long, the grandfather of Feng Kai, the current elder in charge of the Wood Soul Hall. He himself left the Ancient Soul Sect and traveled to Restless Wind City, a city jointly managed by the Ancient Soul Sect and the Spirit Affinity House. He contacted some GU masters there and purchased 3 rank 2 relic GU in order to push his grandson's cultivation to the peak of rank 2. He did this 3 days ago. Some of the other elders with descendants your age did this as well, including Elder Song and Elder Tai. They each used their own accumulated wealth in order to purchase such GU, so the sect cannot condone a father looking after his children. However, it sets a precedent, one that no one in the Ancient Soul Sect wants to admit. How are we any different from the clans and tribes in the other 4 regions, if we practice nepotism to push our bloodline descendants forward, at the cost of our other talented disciples? Elder Feng, Elder Tai and Elder Song have all been spoken to by the sect leader, but I wanted to ask you, Xuanyuan, knowing full well that you will have to fight them during the tournament. Elder Kong paused for a moment, his expression turning serious as he eyed the young man in front of him. I want to ask you, do you hate it, Xuanyuan? A formless pressure was released from Elder Kong's body. Xuanyuan, somewhat used to wisdom path after effects, seemed somewhat unfazed by the pressure. Elder Kong noticed this, and instantly let the pressure double, even triple around Xuanyuan. Do you hate the unfairness? Elder Luo does not break the rules due to the righteousness of his heart, but Elder Feng, Elder Huo and many others blatantly break the rules so that their descendants may flourish. Are you jealous of them? They increase their cultivation because they are scared of you, Xuanyuan. They are scared that you will surpass your entire generation, that you will catch up to them, and leave the rest of them behind, potentially leaving heart demons in the minds of your fellow disciples. The elders know better than most the difference between rank 5 and rank 6. A single moment of hesitation can turn the accumulation of an entire century into nothing but ash and dust. Do you resent them, Xuanyuan? Xuanyuan could feel a formless pressure exerted on his body, but just shook his head, dismissing Elder Kong's claims. I understand their concern, but no, I do not resent them. Why? Elder Luo asked. Xuanyuan paused for a moment before showing a small smile. If they fear that they might be left behind, then they will desperately try to follow me. If they see me try to ascend, they too will push themselves further, similarly desiring to ascend. If I desire the truth, then no doubt others will join me in my search. The Ancient Soul Sect is my home, and if I lift myself up, I will lift it up along with me. And because, well, Elder Luo couldn't hide the smile on his face. Because someone once told me that humanity is not born alone. Chapter 22 Validation. Published by Web Novel. Elder Luo, Elder Kong and Elder Hu all went wide-eyed at Xuanyuan's declaration. They all knew the meaning behind Xuanyuan's words, and immediately felt the doubts in their heart vanish, their Ji Yu telling them that he was telling the truth. Xuanyuan had been suppressed while in the ancient soul sect, being the target of jealousy and envy from his fellow disciples. It was enough to damage the mentality and self-esteem of some young people, not able to shrug off insults and comments about themselves. Yet, despite the waves of malice and disgust that Xuanyuan seemed to trudge through every day, his heart remained pure, loyal to the ancient soul sect. He was both talented and just, a paragon of the righteous path. After all, could they know that this was his second time experiencing life as a teen? Children and young adults are all the same, regardless of whether this was Earth or the Ji Yu world. How could the emotions of children sway his heart, after it had experienced fear of death and then promise of rebirth? Elder Kong just smiled, nodding multiple times while slapping Elder Luo on the shoulder. Old Luo, you've done well. Xuanyuan is a true member of our ancient soul sect. There is no need to hold back any longer. Elder Luo only smiled, suppressing the tears in his eyes. It seems that I must keep going a little longer. How can the younger generation flourish, if the older generation does not pave the path? Even if Lil Yuan does not walk the same path as I, his talent can afford him learning the space path. Elder Hu's expression softened quite a bit as she gazed at Xuanyuan's clear, yet dark eyes. Xuanyuan, you walk the shadow path, correct? Although we walk different paths, my dark path possesses similar characteristics to yours. Come visit the Dark Soul Hall sometime, and I'll teach you a little about dark path Ji-Yu. Xuanyuan just bowed deeply at Elder Hu, his heart still pumping extremely fast, even after the pressure on his body disappeared. I would be honored, Elder Hu. Thank you for the opportunity. Elder Kong glanced at Elder Hu, shaking his head, knowing that old Hu had gotten the leg up on him this time. He had already promised Xuanyuan an audience with a mortal song, the ancient soul sect's only shadow path Ji-Yu immortal, but that was conditional on that he would win the tournament. If the others were breaking the rules, then it was only fair that old Kong do the same, right? Xuanyuan, I have no doubt that Elder Luo's instructions and Elder Hu's teachings will keep you more than occupied in the coming days. I already agreed to let you meet with a mortal song, on the condition that you win the tournament. However, I will give you a single boon right now should you ask for it. Elder Huo and Elder Fang have broken the sect rules and placed the importance of their descendants over the future of the sect. A balance has been broken and is in need of being corrected. If there is something that is within my power, and does not go against the sect, I will provide it to you. Xuanyuan's breath hitched for a moment, the possibilities seemingly endless in his mind. Xuanyuan couldn't suppress a gulp. Relic Ji-Yu? He asked. Elder Kong nodded. If that is what you desire then. Xuanyuan quickly shook his head, his thoughts traveling at 1,000 miles a minute. No, wait, Xuanyuan paused, smoothing out his thoughts and slowing down his breathing. Within a matter of moments, he had returned to his calm and collected self. He had just the thing in mind. It is fine if it is after the tournament, but, if possible, would I be able to spend some time in one of the Immortals' blessed lands? Time within moves quicker within, so it would help. Elder Kong just nodded, not bothered at all about the request. I'll inquire with a mortal song first, but do you have a preference in terms of paths? Xuanyuan had to suppress his jaw from dropping, but listed his preferences nonetheless. Shadow, then time, dark, light, wisdom, space, refinement, moon, or poison. In that order, if possible. Elder Kong seemed slightly surprised at the length of the list, and about wisdom and poison being on there, as did Elder Hu. Neither of them knew that Xuanyuan had researched those particular paths, in particular poison, considering it was an ambiguous path in the eyes of the righteous path. Elder Luo knew everything that Xuanyuan had ever researched. He had to prove the books themselves after all. He also knew that Xuanyuan had already started practicing the refinement of Ji-Yu, although was not completely sure on how he obtained a recipe for it. He guessed it had something to do with Longxi and Yu Zhang but refrained in meddling in their relationship. The young should act young sometimes at least. Elder Kong tapped his chin, but slowly nodded. Refinement might not be possible. Immortal Gong is quite busy, regardless of the occasion. Immortal Li keeps her blessed land away from the sect, so contact with her is not absolute. Being a poison path Ji-Yu immortal makes it difficult to be around mortals and rank 1 Ji-Yu masters. But the others should be fine. I'll inquire about spending a month inside their aperture. That would be the equivalent of a year. Is that all right with you, Elder Luo? The space path elder glanced at Xuanyuan, before nodding, shaking his head. I've already deprived my disciple enough. I think I can indulge him. Xuanyuan felt his knees shake a little. Holy crap, I can spend a year in a blessed land. Just my cultivation alone would soar, and if I can get the chance to interact with a Ji-Yu immortal then. Xuanyuan's mind went into overdrive calculating the possibilities. It doesn't particularly matter what the path is if it isn't the shadow path. All the paths I listed are paths that I am considering for my subpath. Shadow path takes priority, and creating synergy with the shadow path is my greatest goal for the time being. My attainment in my subpath would soar, being exposed to an entire small world designed by a single path's Dao marks. The vast majority of materials, Ji-Yu, beasts and potentially even resource points are aligned with a single path. Not only would the breadth of my knowledge deepen significantly, but I would be able to see the interaction between Dao marks and Ji-Yu within a stable environment. I wouldn't have to senselessly explore the Ji-Yu world to find a natural resource point, or break into one owned by a clan or sect. If I could receive advice, even just a couple of times from a Ji-Yu immortal, my attainment could potentially soar in a single field. I could derive countless possibilities using little shadow with even a wisp of comprehension from a Ji-Yu immortal. Assuming that they possess a master level attainment or higher, I could potentially close the gap between my current attainment and the master level. Xuanyuan didn't believe that any ancient soul sect Ji-Yu immortal would be willing to leave Xuanyuan their complete inheritance, even if he was a talented disciple. Xuanyuan was still an outer sect disciple of the ancient soul sect, and had yet to actually meet any Ji-Yu immortals, the supreme elders, and the ones who truly governed the sect. Xuanyuan wasn't sure if Elder Luo had any relations with any of the Ji-Yu immortals belonging to the ancient soul sect, but considered how they preferred to keep their hands clean of mortal affairs, chances were pretty low. Xuanyuan could see the smile on Elder's face threaten to exceed the limit's head. It had been a few months since his discussion with Elder Luo on the nature of humanity and their relationship with cultivation. Xuanyuan wasn't fully convinced that cultivation wasn't a selfish endeavor. He also wasn't sure if the nature of paths fully allowed someone to walk alongside someone else, nor could he disprove that paths could be used to lift up the others around oneself. But Xuanyuan couldn't deny the existence of emotions, no matter how much the logical part of his brain told him to. Love Ji-Yu was the greatest example of this. Love, as a concept, was probably one of, if not the most powerful concept beside hope or perseverance within the Ji-Yu world. Hope allowed an individual to walk the path to immortality, awakening the aperture, and becoming a guiding light to those who have lost their way, or have their resolution waver in the face of extraordinary adversity. Even in the face of fate, Red Lotus demonic Venerable held out hope that he might save his loved one from the strings of fate Ji-Yu. It kept him going, despite possibly thousands upon thousands of cycles, trying different possibilities to save his wife from dying before he became a Venerable. Love could damage fate to some extent, a single emotion so powerful that it defied a predestined path, allowing living beings to take control over a portion of their supposed fate. The power of emotions, and their place in the relationships between communities and individuals, was a recognized force in Xuanyuan's mind. Elder Luo's words had made sense to Xuanyuan, despite not completely agreeing with them. As cringe as the power of love might be, it can be used to resist fate to some degree. It isn't some make-believe bullshit from fairy tales and TV shows, it quite literally is, a force of nature within the Ji-Yu world. Simply put, it meant that relationships were not worthless, despite the fact that eventually they all withered away and died. Even if life, and the sun and moon and stars all eventually faded away, none of them, to Xuanyuan's current awareness, could resist the power of fate. But love Ji-Yu could. A literal cheat code, there is no other way to describe it, it's too broken. Elder Luo patted Xuanyuan's shoulder, as the older man tilted his head back a little, looking fondly at his tall disciple. We'll begin your introduction into the space path tomorrow, Lil Yuan. I'll even lend you some Ji-Yu to use from my own collection. Nothing offensive for the time being. I'll wait for that until after the tournament finishes. But I'll teach you a couple of tricks, little Yuan. Xuan Yuan smiled, nodding at his master. Thank you, master. I hope you have enough books stored up. Elder Luo let out a hearty unrestrained chuckle, earning an eye roll from Elder Hu and a small smile from Elder Kong. The Sky Soul Hall elder peered at his fellow elder, raising an eyebrow as he watched him and his disciple interact. There was a slight chance in the human chi in the air. It was so faint, so imperceptible Elder Kong almost didn't catch it, but as someone who regularly interacted with GU immortals, and as someone who knew the profundities of immortal ascension, Elder Kong knew what this change meant. Elder Luo somehow just gained insight into his own human chi. Such a thing usually occurs from reaching an extraordinary attainment in a path, or comprehending something beneath heaven and earth, or something from the legends of Renzu. Their relationship must be more important to the man than I originally thought. Xuan Yuan couldn't comprehend this, but through his assertion and validation of Elder Luo's words, had unconsciously allowed the man to nurture and refine his own path. His belief in the righteous path, in the worth of his morals and ethics, had been grind against Xuan Yuan's opposition, forming a keen edge, eventually breaking through to the young man. He had found his path. He had been wandering aimlessly for so long, but now, Elder Kong felt as though he needed to watch Elder Luo in the coming years. Even if it wasn't in the next 12 months, even if it was 3, or even 5 years from now, so long as he progressed down this path, there was a chance he could reach rank 6. A new GU immortal in the ancient soul sect, and a space path one at that. Elder Kong, as a member of the Sky Soul Hall, was privileged to some information that regular elders had no idea about. Most of the sect's resources came from resource points within the apertures of their GU immortals. The Earth Abyss aside, it was the safest and the easiest way to transport vast amounts of GU and GU materials, while simultaneously protecting them from the attacks of demonic path GU masters. It was important for a sect to possess GU immortals from a myriad number of different paths. Not only did it leave a potential inheritance for future generations, but also increased the number of resources the sect could nurture at any given point in time. Elder Kong was slightly surprised that Xuan Yuan asked to meet with the immortal Li, their supreme elder of the Poison Path. Poison Path possessed an extraordinarily high attack power, but was also indiscriminate with who and who it did not attack. Elder Li was a rank 7 GU immortal who mainly concerned herself with the more supportive elements of the Poison Path. She created most of the herbal remedies in GU related to the purging or purification of poison and venom in the sect. She had some offensive type GU as well, however she possessed a large number of Poison Path beasts in her blessed land which she usually used offensively. Elder Kong had been to Immortal Li's blessed land once in his lifetime, and couldn't help but gasp at the enormous dark green swamp covering all of her blessed land. It stretched as far as the eye could see and carried within it an immense amount of wood path and water path Dao marks despite her being a Poison Path GU immortal. He had seen a huge toad which slept in the depths of this swamp, radiating the aura of an immortal GU. Elder Kong dispelled those thoughts, just smiling at Elder Luo. A Space Path GU immortal was even more valuable than a Poison Path GU immortal. Chapter 23 Introduction to Space Path. Published by Web Novel. The Space Path focuses on a myriad number of applications and techniques. There are GU which can compress space, making it more compact, shortening the distance between 2 points. And there are also GU which can extend space, expanding it, increasing the distance between 2 points. There are, yes little Yuan? Xuan Yuan blinked, not fully comprehending that last part. I understand that space can be expanded, like pocket toad GU or kangaroo pouch GU, but that doesn't create space, does it? It just expands it. Can one create space using Space Path GU? Elder Luo nodded, albeit haphazardly. As far as I am aware, it is possible, but I cannot say how. It is not possible with mortal GU. Perhaps there is an immortal GU which can create space, but I am not a GU immortal, so I cannot validate this claim. Now, as I was saying, space can also be pulled and pushed, which is similar to compression and expansion, but using only a single point and no apparent endpoint. Elder Luo had been completely serious when he said to Xuan Yuan that he would teach him the Space Path. Xuan Yuan's talent was enough for him to comprehend additional paths to supplement his understanding of the Shadow Path, albeit those paths with common synergy with Shadow Path, like Light Path and Dark Path. To Xuan Yuan, to comprehend shadows, it made sense to comprehend light and dark. Shadows could not be created without either. He had researched Moon Path and Poison Path GU and GU materials, but did not advance his attainment in either during his deductions. Xuan Yuan had attended classes for the Wisdom Path and the Refinement Path, however, considered both as supplementary to his Shadow Path. Wisdom Path was a potential subpath waiting to be explored, but he restrained himself, still digesting the knowledge he had obtained from Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er. Wisdom Path GU immortals excelled in deduction, which Xuan Yuan could appreciate, and they weren't necessarily weak in battle either. But in the face of Star Constellation, excelling in the Wisdom Path was just asking to be lackluster in comparison. Space Path was a great alternative, considering that thieving heaven demonic Venerable wouldn't return like Star Constellation, Giant Sun, Paradise Earth or Limitless. As I was saying, the manipulation of space such as extension or compression rely upon 2 points. Pulling and pushing rely upon a single point. Points in space can be determined by GU in the beginning, but most Space Path GU masters can develop a kind of sixth sense to these kinds of things. In fact, when I was younger, this was the first time he explored a path independent of the Shadow Path. The Space Path was beyond interesting to Xuan Yuan. It didn't quite click for him in the same way that the Shadow Path did for him, however having an actual teacher made up for the difference. The Space Path, in terms of Elder Luo's understanding, revolved around a few major concepts. Spatial expansion, spatial compression, spatial connection, and spatial destruction. The first two were relatively simple, defining a certain area, and then compression the space and making it smaller, or expanding the space and making it bigger. Like stretching a rubber band or filling up a balloon, and thinking of the inflating air as space. It was the most commonly found form of Space Path GU. It allowed GU masters to store large amounts of materials or objects within a small defined space, or expand an area allowing it to fit more of something. Economically, both were crucial in the transport of storage of GU and GU materials. Spatial connection, the other hand, was about moving through space. Connecting 2 points in space, and then either creating a gap in space between them, or folding space and reducing the distance that way. That was a little more difficult, but there were GU which could teleport someone or even create a short wormhole for others to move between. And lastly, and most interestingly was, spatial destruction. This focused mainly on the concept of breaking space in order to perform certain actions. Severing space and cutting it off from the rest of the world. Cracking space, revealing gaps and cracks in the world. Piercing space, ignoring the defenses of an object or individual and directly striking a target. These were some of the most insane things Xuan Yuan had ever heard in terms of offensive capabilities. The Shadow Path, which excelled in concealment, reflection and obfuscation, had no extreme offensive power against anything other than shadows. The damage taken by a shadow was reflected on an individual, but in terms of higher tier concepts, Xuan Yuan had to figure it out for himself. With Elder Luo's teachings, Xuan Yuan could directly access these higher tier comprehensions, broadening his perspective on the Space Path an enormous deal. I primarily focus on spatial expansion and spatial cracking myself. I find the former quite valuable for storing objects, while the latter is a personal enjoyment of mine. Spatial cracking is quite effective against illusions, you see? Xuan Yuan blinked, again not fully understanding. Elder Luo just smiled, shaking his head. I'll just show you, little Yuan. Spatial cracking affects space, while illusions affect the mind through perspective or through the senses. However, with just a little bit of ingenuity and a couple GU, one can do something like this with it. Elder Luo raised his arm slightly before smashing it into something beside him. His arm swinging, hitting nothing but air until a resounding gong echoed throughout his residence, earning a faint yelp from one of the nearby maids. Xuan Yuan's eyes nearly bulged watching as a series of spider-like cracks appeared where Elder Luo's fist came into contact with solid space. Peering into the cracks revealed a hidden flower pot, obscured by some unknown path GU. Spatial cracking creates minute cracks in solid space. An illusion affects the perceptions or the senses, and will remain unaffected by these cracks. However, illusions designed to conceal will actually adapt to the change in space, but will do so from every perspective all at once. In doing so, the image of the hidden object will fragment from your perspective, creating a kaleidoscope of color and illusions. One could essentially crack an illusion open with spatial cracking. It didn't work on all illusion path techniques, however those designed with multiple perspectives or senses in mind were weak in terms of their resistance to spatial cracking. It opened up a whole new world for Xuanyuan to explore. Xuanyuan's comprehension of concept of space was extremely influenced from his previous life. Anime that he had watched, and games that he had played influenced his conceptual understanding of the GU world and his own comprehensions on what defined a path. Science, too, played a part, albeit comparatively lackluster considering his limited understanding of the subject. Space was something that was constantly expanding. The mass of an object creates a gravitational pull, and slowly draws things with a lesser gravitational pull into it. Despite this, however, the universe was constantly expanding. The space in the universe was growing with every passing moment. Xuanyuan wasn't sure if this was the same in the GU world, but if it was, then there was some sort of catalyst, or force which constantly produces this expansion effect. Master, how big is the GU world? I only have the legend of Renzu as an example of how wide the GU world is, but has it grown smaller, considering that GU immortals can take sections of the world and incorporate it into their aperture? Elder Luo blinked for a moment before scrunching up his face, slightly showing a hesitant expression. I do not know the complexities of blessed lands and how they can incorporate resource points into the GU immortals' blessed lands. However, usually in times of great upheaval, the natural Dao marks of the world become excitable. They collide against each other, sometimes producing enormous catastrophes, while other times, usually when space Dao marks are present, they theoretically can produce space from nothing. There are legends that space is actually produced by space GU, which is located within the space cave. Space GU is mentioned in the legend of Renzu as the GU which births empty space. In some cases, when space door opens, great swaths of empty space spill out of space cave, filling the GU world with more space. It is part of the reason why black and white immemorial heaven and the 5 regions are so big. It has absorbed all of the new empty space produced for the 7 other destroyed heavens. Xuanyuan nodded. Space GU, a GU mentioned in the legend of Renzu, produces empty space. It was space with no Dao marks, which could later then be filled by the ambient Dao marks which spill over into the empty space. That was Xuanyuan's understanding of the GU at least. Theoretically, if a GU immortal was in possession of space GU, they could use it to create empty space within their blessed land, expanding it endlessly to the size of a grotto heaven, even as a rank 6 GU immortal. Of course, that was on the provision that one could somehow reach the space cave, let alone find and refine space GU. A place which only a single person in recorded history had managed to enter. Little Yuan, here, refine these 2 GU. One is rank 1 and the other is rank 2. Elder Luo handed Xuanyuan 2 GU, one shaped like a small beetle, the other, a butterfly with wings that were translucent, yet shown with different colors from different angles. The little beetle is a rank 1 push space GU. Essentially, once you activate the GU you can generate a pushing force from your hand. It actively repels objects that attempt to come into contact with your hand. It is considered a defensive type GU, but possesses an equal amount of offensive potential. The butterfly with the unique wings on the other hand is rank 2 thick space GU. It essentially compresses space to the point where it becomes an almost tangible substance. It doesn't prevent you from being hit but can slow down strikes if they pass through the condensed space. The condensed space is about the size of a head and roughly doubles the thickness of space within the area. Thick space GU is remarkably useful when combined with martial arts. It can be used to give a GU master more time to react to an oncoming attack. Not to mention that thick space GU affects all forms of physical attacks, making it remarkably useful towards the vast majority of low-rank GU. Shadow Path GU are the exception to this rule, as is something like Time Path or Soul Path. Xuanyuan glanced at the 2 GU, before lifting his head, seeing Elder Luo smile at him, gesturing for him to take them. The otherworldly demon could see the earnest look on his master's face, before giving him a deep bow, taking the 2 GU. Thank you, master, I don't know what to. Elder Luo cut him off, shaking his head, smiling that Xuanyuan took his gift. There is nothing to say, little Yuan. I know that this year has been hard on you. Elder Huo's brat hasn't made things any easier either. As an elder, I should be impartial and unbiased towards all disciples within the sect, but I turned a blind eye to the other elders who favored their own disciples and descendants over the laws of the sect. I wasn't sure how to reward you or praise you without breaking the rules of the sect. Words and books can only go so far, while other elders are giving their children and grandchildren relic GU and liquor worms. I know that Elder Kong gave me permission to teach you my legacy, the accumulation of my knowledge in the space path, but before that, I felt that I wasn't truly your master. That there was nothing I could give you other than the books in your room or the advice any elder could give you. But now, I feel as though my life has meaning. I have found an extraordinary talent and have pushed him on a path that will allow him to become a paragon for the righteous path. I have done something incredible, and by pushing myself to new heights, I can uplift this disciple of mine higher, towards the absolute apex of this world. Elder Luo placed a hand on Xuanyuan's shoulder. If Elder Kong was here, he would sense that the human chi around Elder Luo had thickened ever so slightly. If you desire the truth, Xuanyuan, then I shall push you until you stand beside the titans of this world. If you desire to become a venerable, then I shall endeavor to illuminate your path as much as possible, before my own light is snuffed out. 24 Chapter 24 Which Blessed Land? Published by web novel. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Xuanyuan and Elder Luo grew much closer over the course of their space path lessons. The former trusted that Elder Luo had his greatest well-being in mind when he became his disciple, putting a roof over his head, food on his plate, and granted him access to a vast array of knowledge that most GU masters would spend months, or even years accumulating. His familiarity with the space path exploded over the span of a few weeks. Having a rank 5 GU master who had spent the majority of his entire life researching and familiarizing himself with space path GU and methods allowed Xuanyuan to fully make use of his powerful comprehension. It didn't quite click in the same way that the shadow path did, however, he still progressed much quicker in comparison to his wisdom path classes, or his refinement path classes. Xuanyuan knew that Elder Luo's attainment in the space path was on the level of a master. He had already developed a slight intuition into the development of space path GU and mortal killer moves relating to the space path. Xuanyuan thought that his vital GU was rank 5, but the feelings that Little Shadow gave him didn't support this, the rank 5 GU silently swimming inside his shadow. Elder Luo, on the other hand, had seemed happier than Xuanyuan had ever seen him before. For the first time since reaching rank 5 and becoming an elder, Luo Yu had felt his heart race as he watched Xuanyuan devour information relating to the space path. He could see the improvement Xuanyuan had with his thick space GU increasing day by day. His own comprehensions and knowledge were not worthless, now that he had Xuanyuan to pass them on to. He could feel something unconsciously churn within him, a slight change in perspective, or a slight change in his emotions that made him feel more and more at peace with each passing day. Elder Kong had visited a few times, each time the smile on his face grew as he watched Xuanyuan and Luo Yu spar, the former learning about the intricacies of the space path. The Sky Soul Hall Elder had informed Xuanyuan that after the new disciple tournament, he would be allowed to cultivate in the blessed land of one of the ancient soul sect GU immortals for a period of 1 year in the immortal aperture. Immortal Song, the rank 6 shadow path, GU immortal of the ancient soul sect had given Xuanyuan permission to stay within her blessed land. Immortal Gong, the rank 6 refinement path GU immortal had refused, currently doing a favor for another GU immortal, preventing him from being distracted in the short term. Immortal Li, the rank 7 poison path GU immortal seemed somewhat interested in having a rank 2 GU master cultivate in her blessed land, but refused when she found out that Xuanyuan walked the shadow path. She said that anyone that wasn't a GU immortal, or walked the poison path had a high chance of dying within her blessed land, saying that it wasn't worth the risk. Immortal Chu, the rank 7 dark path GU immortal accepted, but wanted to test Xuan Yuan first. Immortal D, the rank 6 light path GU immortal also wanted to test Xuan Yuan. Immortal Wu, the rank 6 wisdom path GU immortal refused, currently assisting another elder with their tribulation. Immortal Lang, the rank 6 space path GU immortal refused, currently away from the ancient soul sect. Immortal Wei, the rank 7 time path GU immortal also refused, currently preparing to withstand her first heavenly tribulation. Other GU immortals belonging to different paths were assisting her in that endeavor, such as Immortal Gong and Immortal Wu. And Immortal Lan, the rank 6 moon path GU immortal, accepted the offer, however, said that Xuan Yuan must agree to a condition of hers beforehand, one that was non-negotiable. Immortal Lan had also given Elder Kong a message to hand to Xuan Yuan, a brief tidbit of information regarding her condition. The only condition I have is that you must agree to never share what you see within my blessed land. The other supreme elders may also have this condition, but I will ask you to sign an information path contract in order to enforce this agreement. I will not give further information as to why, until you agree to sign it. Elder Kong had also signed a similar agreement, but the smile on his face somewhat intrigued Xuan Yuan. I cannot say Xuan Yuan, however, Immortal Lan is a relatively young GU immortal, having only ascended to the position roughly 50 years ago. The reason why she became a GU immortal so young was primarily due to her luck and fortuitous encounters. That end bit interested Xuan Yuan, but wasn't sure if this fortuitous encounter was worth giving up a year's worth of comprehending the shadow path under a shadow path GU immortal. But then again, if I win the tournament, I will have the chance to discuss the shadow path with Immortal Song. I can always have the discussion first, and then decide if I want to meet with Immortal Lan. All GU immortals must have had some sort of fortuitous encounter or great luck in their youths. If not, they wouldn't have had the potential, the attainment, the physicality or the comprehension to become GU immortals. But if Immortal Lan wanted Xuan Yuan to sign an information path agreement before even seeing her blessed land, then her blessed land must contain, even a portion at least, her fortuitous encounter. Xuan Yuan didn't suspect an immortal GU, considering that some GU immortals could refine a rank 6 GU the moment they became GU immortals. It had to be some sort of inheritance, rare resource point, or something relating to a path banned by the righteous path. Xuan Yuan wasn't that concerned considering that Immortal Lan was only a rank 6 GU immortal. Even if she did possess an inheritance, even a completed one, she still walked the moon path, while he walked the shadow path. Although Xuan Yuan needed to make a decision soon, he first needed to win the Outer Sect New Disciple tournament before anything else. He was going to have to fight GU masters at the peak stage rank 2, while only being a middle stage rank 2 GU master himself. Even if his grasp on his paths exceeded that of his opponents, Xuan Yuan knew that they would be able to fight for longer, their primeval essence at a much higher purity than his own. Although Xuan Yuan wanted to sigh, he knew for sure that the array of GU he had at his disposal more than likely equaled that of his opponents. GU masters had to be self-sufficient in regards to feeding and nurturing their GU, and the sect elders would only be damaging the futures of their descendants if they provided everything for them. In that regard, it was unlikely they possessed more than a dozen rank 1 GU or couple rank 2 GU. Xuan Yuan possessed rank 2 dense shadow blade GU and rank 2 bright red light GU. Elder Luo had given him rank 2 thick space GU, which brought the total number of rank 2 GU in his possession to 3. There was one more thing that Xuan Yuan wanted to do before he entered the tournament. He hadn't fully taken this into account, considering it was his vital GU, but knew that it was protected from being destroyed during refinement. Xuan Yuan wasn't completely sure that he trusted himself in the beginning, and wanted to obtain some experience in GU refinement and GU recipe deduction before trying to refine his vital GU. Even if Shadow Eye's GU wasn't destroyed if the refinement failed, Xuan Yuan would receive a heavy black lash instead. It could severely damage his internal organs, or damage a portion of his soul or aperture, potentially reducing the size of his primeval essence C. But now, after an entire year, Xuan Yuan felt as though the initial refinement recipe that he theorized and subsequently refined and developed had some merit to it. Using Shadow Eye's GU as a refinement material and infusing it into Shadowless Sword GU. Shadowless Sword GU was a rank 1 sword path GU and not what Xuan Yuan wanted as his vital GU. For Xuan Yuan, a valuable supportive type GU was the best choice for his vital GU. He initially picked Shadowless Eye's GU because of its supportive nature, but found it insufficient for his future needs. The recipe I initially deduced was immature and had only about a 3% chance of success. I couldn't even tell if the new GU was of the shadow path or not. Using the Shadow Eye's GU as the core material for the GU recipe, it should be possible to refine it into something new, a new rank 1 GU. Xuan Yuan had thought long and hard about what type of GU he wanted. He didn't need a cultivation type GU. He didn't need offensive type GU. He didn't need storage type GU, and while investigative GU were interesting, Xuan Yuan had shadows as thought GU, which could be used in a myriad number of ways. What Xuan Yuan was lacking was a movement type GU and a defensive type GU. He had in his possession formless shadow GU, but had incorporated it into his refinement process. In fact, Xuan Yuan had included numerous shadow path GU and shadow path GU materials into the refinement recipe, even though the end result was only a rank 1 GU. Knowing what Xuan Yuan wanted, he even adjusted a couple materials with space path GU materials that he had recently researched. They needed to be both compatible with shadow path GU materials, but also light path, dark path and moon path, which greatly affected his range of choices. Xuan Yuan even asked Elder Luo what he thought of his completed GU refinement recipe, not wanting to leave anything to chance. Seeing Elder Luo raise an eyebrow as he read the steps of the GU refinement, he unconsciously furrowed his brows by the time he reached the bottom, reading the name that Xuan Yuan had given the GU. Isn't this a little bit over the top? There is close to 70 GU materials involved in this GU recipe, and more than a dozen different GU. The precision required in each step, not to mention the ratio between different ingredients, alongside using GU to increase the ambient primeval energy, specifically those relating to the shadow path. And, what is this? You actually want to refine the Shadow Eye's GU while it is still within your body? Xuan Yuan nodded, seeing the dumbfounded expression on Elder Luo's face. The main refinement path technique taught within the ancient soul sect is the human isolation style. It excels in controlling all facets of external influences and internal possibilities in order to increase the likelihood that the refinement will be in success. It is much harder to increase the likelihood of success this way, however provides a greater control over the processes in comparison to other styles. Shadows are born from darkness and light. There exists different types of both. Hard light GU is only a rank 1 light path GU, but the light it produces doesn't rely on primeval essence. The stronger the GU master's heart, the stronger the light it produces, potentially even exceeding that of a rank 2 light path GU in volume. Black bones GU is a rank 1 GU which transforms the bones in the body into black bones, capable of increasing the physical durability of a GU master's bones. It locks a GU master into only elevating the qualities of their bones into future refinements of rank 1 black bones GU, however uses qualities of the dark path in order to transform the bones. When these two GU interact within the body, it casts shadows within the blood vessels, organs and nervous system. Shadows dance wildly within the GU master's body, some nurturing, others violent, while the vast majority only seek expand if the light of hard light GU is strong enough, allowing for a greater comprehensive transformation. Rank 1 lunar light GU shines from the outside, limiting the expansion of shadows from inside the body. Rank 1 shadow hand GU can allow a GU master to physical grab shadows. Rank 1 push GU can be used to forcefully compress shadows into a certain point. Rank 1 moon prison GU can be used to trap living things within a cage made of moonlight. Rank 1 formless shadow GU increases the speed of a GU master, increasing the movement of their shadows, reflecting back at them. Night blood essence can be used to nurture the blood vessels. Crackling light flower can be used to break down light, making it more malleable and controllable. Silver star sap can be used to increase the vitality of the heart. The bones of a argent rabbit can be ground into dust and combined with the blood of a night hunter rabbit to nurture the flesh. The eyes of a blinding anglerfish can be used to temporarily blind even a rank 3 GU master. There were so many materials which were used to refine the body that Elder Luo almost thought that this was a strength path GU recipe. What Xuanyuan wanted to do was refine a GU that imitated the effects of other paths. There existed GU, such as whiteboard GU, which could permanently increase the physical strength of a GU master, and GU such as wind strength GU, which gave a GU master an increase to the effects of their wind path GU. Xuanyuan wanted something similar, but something that combined both effects. It was an extraordinary jump from deducing GU recipes to refining something like this, but Shadows as thought GU assisted in the deductions immensely. Whiteboard GU could increase the GU master's strength, and once they completely made the strength their own, they could produce whiteboard phantoms. A ranged attack which perfectly mimicked the powers of a white boar. It didn't belong to the phantom path, but mimicked their abilities perfectly. The GU that Xuanyuan wanted to refine was called Nine Eyes Shadow GU. 25 Chapter 25 Nine Eyes Shadow GU. Published by web novel. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Despite the fact that most GU could only produce a single effect, some possessed rippling extra effects, or inadvertent side effects as a result of its main ability. Most of these GU often had associations with the strength path, soul path or transformation path, but it was possible to see these GU from any path. Whiteboard GU and dragon strength GU were examples of this belonging to the strength path. While they could grant the GU master the strength of a white boar or a dragon, they could additionally be used to create white boar phantoms, or dragon phantoms, tangible constructs which possess the might of their namesake. There was also other GU, such as ice muscle GU and jade bone GU, which transformed the muscles in a GU master's body into ice muscles, and their bones into jade bones. Ice muscles increase the tensile strength and durability of a GU master's muscles, making them more resistant to heat and prevents a GU master from sweating or perspiring completely. Jade bone GU transformed the bones into a substance reminiscent of jade. It made them harder and more supple, not at all reducing the flexibility of a GU master. This transformation process allowed a GU master to possess abilities without having to use primeval essence, and primarily focused on increasing one's physical capabilities. Additionally, there existed soul path GU such as divine soul GU, dragon soul GU, wind spirit GU, and chi spirit GU, which could transform the shape of a GU master's soul, giving it a higher affinity with a certain path. Transforming the soul was different to using guts GU to increase the foundations of a soul. Guts GU did not favor a single path and instead strengthened the innate qualities of a soul. Transforming the soul added qualities to the soul. What Xuanyuan wanted was to add qualities to his shadow, which would then reflect changes to his physical abilities. He didn't want anything extreme like the dragon shadow GU, or the tiger shadow GU, which transformed his shadow into that of a dragon or tiger. Both of them came with an increased physical strength, endurance and agility, although mutated the GU master's physical form. What Xuanyuan wanted was a little bit different in comparison. Xuanyuan, this nine-eyes shadow GU of yours, how is it any different from shadow splitting GU? Or even your current shadow eyes GU? Shadow splitting GU can divide a shadow into two equal parts, giving you two shadows to draw from. I understand that shadow splitting GU does not affect your physical form, so what is the difference between the two? Xuanyuan thought Elder Luo would ask this question and prepared his answer beforehand. Smiling at Elder Luo, he grabbed one of his notebooks and flicked towards one of the last pages. Shadow splitting GU can only split a single shadow in half, giving a GU master access to one shadow with two bodies. It is useful for a GU master who uses their shadow in combat, having multiple sources to draw from, but does not increase the strength of a shadow at all, merely cutting one in half. Shadow eyes GU only allows me to perceive shadows within 30 feet. Even through walls or around corners, the shadows of living beings cannot be hidden from me. Nine eyes shadow GU on the other hand essentially transforms my shadow so that it possesses additional eyes. While you think that this transformation may change my physical form, it is different in comparison to dragon shadow GU and tiger shadow GU in that there is no additional features that need to be added. A regular shadow possesses neither depth nor color, and cannot interact with physical objects. Transforming the shadow into a fire shadow adds a hint of red, and a touch of heat to the shadow. Lightning shadow adds a hint of yellow and a minor electromagnetic field. Dragon shadow adds scales, claws, whiskers and primal suppression of most beast-type shadows. Tiger shadow adds fur, claws, fangs and a similar type of primal suppression. My nine-eyes shadow GU will only gain more eyes, and no other apparent features or qualities. Elder Luo frowned. There was something missing from Little Yuan's explanation. If his nine-eyes shadow GU only added eyes to the shadow, then it was worse than his current shadow eyes GU. It seemed useless as a vital GU. No passive supportive or defensive effects which most transformation-type GU possessed. It added additional eyes to Xuanyuan's shadow, and eyes were the organ which allowed a living being to see the world around them. More eyes didn't just mean that something could see better. It meant that their field of vision was significantly higher, and potentially, at higher ranks, their depth of vision, the accuracy of their vision, and the limits of their vision increased significantly. And if shadows were the reflection of all living beings then, Xuanyuan could see the cogs in Elder Luo's brain slowly turn, as the Earth Soul Hall Elder raised an eyebrow. You should be able to see through your shadow, but then, how is it any different from shadow sight GU? Or even shadow as eyes GU? Xuanyuan paused before shaking his head, letting out a small sigh. His master was a powerful GU master, but his talents lie solely in the space path, and he had neglected to develop a subpath or a supporting path to augment his main one. Gesturing at his shadow, Elder Luo watched as it perfectly replicated his disciple's movements. He couldn't see anything in particular about his shadow, until Xuanyuan smacked himself in the face, watching as his shadow do the same. A switch flicked on in Elder Luo's mind. Because it only transforms your shadow, it leaves your actual body and soul free to transform using ice muscles GU or dragon soul GU. You are not limited to just a single transformation. Nine eyes shadow GU can most likely increase the effectiveness of your shadow path GU as well, albeit a relatively weak enhancement due to its rank. Xuanyuan smiled, nodding his head. Nine eyes shadow GU should theoretically give me an enormous visual enhancement. Additionally, it enhances the strength or effectiveness of my other shadow path GU. Not only that, but I should be able to peer through my own shadow's eyes without using shadow as eyes GU. This is a result of me more closely reflecting my shadow, not the other way around. Elder Luo nodded unconsciously, stroking his beard. Interesting. It is different to most transformation type GU of the shadow path. Instead of trying to transform it into something else, provoking a reaction in its reflection, you are trying to keep them as similar as possible, provoking greater synergy. Interesting Little Yuan. If this works, it could potentially be used to create similar GU, such as 9 heart shadow GU, or even 9 senses shadow GU. 9 is the highest level of cultivation possible, so it makes sense that it would stop there. Elder Luo underestimated the potential of his disciple, even if it was still only a theoretical GU. It spoke volumes of Xuanyuan's comprehension in the shadow path. Not to mention, it made him slightly interested in future refinements of the GU. Could it be refined into a 99 eyes shadow GU? Or something like a wandering eyes shadow GU? What about imperial eyes shadow GU? Or even something more drastic, like 8 spider eyes shadow GU? The last one perhaps was a little too overboard, and considering it would probably transform Xuanyuan's shadow, rather than add qualities to it like he originally planned. But considering that the 9 eyes shadow GU imparted the ability to peer through the GU master's shadow in a way similar to black boar or white boar GU, there was a certain level of compatibility and technique in using the GU. Elder Luo frowned for a moment. It isn't a one-time use GU either. Wolf soul GU and wind spirit GU are both one-time use GU, and have to be reused every time a GU master uses something like guts GU to increase the foundations of their soul. It is neither reminiscent of the strength path, bone path or the soul path in that respect. Does that mean that the shadow cannot have its foundations increased like the soul or physical strength? There was something there, some sort of profundity that Elder Luo failed to grasp. He couldn't comprehend how the shadow could become stronger without something like Soul Path Guts GU, or Strength Path Jin GU, which could increase the foundations of a GU master's strength. Elder Luo peered at his disciple, seeing him glance over his notebooks, watching as he peered into the legends of Renzu occasionally, nodding his head. He has found some profundity hidden within the legend of Renzu? How old is he again? Even if he had been reading since the moment he came out of the womb, isn't this a little too fast, he thought. Xuanyuan didn't think that he had obtained some sort of profundity from the legend of Renzu. In fact, the book itself had told him how Renzu and Shadow GU had become strong enough to escape the shadowless ocean. Shadows, reflectionless and without purpose, were able to be devoured by Shadow GU, increasing its strength. This alone would not be enough. If such a thing were possible, the Shadow Path would have grown to a size similar to the Soul Path, or the Wisdom Path over such years. What Xuanyuan needed were shadows without reflections, and light, enormous amounts of light, capable of creating a vast shadow, of unmeasurable size and depth. This came in the form of Moon GU in the legends of Renzu. The gentle thrum of Moon GU illuminated the shadowless ocean, releasing soft melodies and gentle harmonies. The light of the moon, which paled in brilliance and glory to the light of the sun, was gentle and all-embracing, lulling the reflectionless shadows into a sweet and gentle slumber. Shadow GU, on the other hand, enraptured by the beauty of the moon, grew restless, malcontent, vicious as it slaughtered shadow after shadow after shadow. The moon, transient and illusory over the water's surface, could never be touched by Shadow GU. It clawed and slashed at its reflection, never once realizing the truth behind its existence. The moon, like shadows, was unable to be touched by regular means. The light that it emitted waned and waxed as time passed, rising and falling with the ocean tide. Shadow GU, even the size of a mountain, could only claw helplessly when faced with the immensity of the moon. In other words, moonlight was more useful in helping shadows grow, while presumably, other kinds of light were more useful in the creation or destruction of shadows. At least, outside of shadowless ocean and lightless heaven. Secluded domains of heaven and earth were the exception to this rule. They could produce all sorts of GU and GU materials that could not be found anywhere else in the GU world. Elder Luo just listened to Xuanyuan's words, hearing his explanation for using Moonpath GU materials in order to create light for his GU refinement. It seemed obvious in hindsight, but Luo Yu never would have thought to use moonlight in order to nurture shadows. Although his attainment in both the Moon Path, Light Path and Shadow Path wasn't even at the quasi-master level, he was at least 3 times Xuanyuan's age, meaning that the breadth of his knowledge and the depth of his experiences should far exceed his disciples. Elder Luo would have felt inferior, but just shook his head, letting out a small sigh. I shall become venerable indeed, he muttered. The Space Path GU master took in a deep breath, gazing at his disciple, who was still explaining the steps and deductions he took in order to finalize the GU recipe for the 9-Eyes Shadow GU. He could hear him theorize that the Shadow Path was less about using reflections to transform the self, and more about using it to build a foundation for immortal ascension. Hearing a 15-year-old rank 2 GU master talk about immortal ascension was extremely strange, but hearing it sparked an idea within Luo Yu's heart. Immortal ascension, huh? Maybe I've got some life left in these old bones. Chapter 26 Success or Failure? Published by Web Novel. Elder Luo had assisted Xuanyuan in purchasing the GU and GU materials required to refine his Shadow Eyes GU into 9-Eyes Shadow GU. A GU which didn't just strengthen Xuanyuan's own shadow, but also add additional qualities to it, giving it the characteristic of 9 eyes. It was a comprehensive enhancement, like most Shadow Path GU were. While most transformation-type Shadow Path GU focused on beast-type transformations, they were not as widely accepted in the 10 great sects in comparison to the transformation path itself. These permanent changes to the shadow changed the physical body as a result. While it didn't create a new race of variant humans, these additional beast-like characteristics were reminiscent of beastmen, hairy men and even mermen to some degree. They were not considered inherently evil or demonic, just looked down upon by mortal GU masters. Xuanyuan didn't share the opinion, knowing that variant humans carried within them natural Dao marks and a far greater innate lifespan than humans, knowing that despite their innate talent being lower than humanity's, they possessed other qualities that bridged the difference. Long Hair Ancestor lived for more than 300,000 years, while Primordial Origin Immortal Venerable, the longest living Venerable, lived for barely 25,000 years. While it was true that the existence of a Venerable would decrease the amount of lifespan GU in the GU world, Long Hair Ancestor lived during the time of Thieving Heaven and Giant Sun. And yet, he still lived 10 times the length of Primordial Origin. Variant humans were also things that Xuanyuan desired to explore. He knew that human path could be cultivated using both humans and variant humans, and wanted to see the difference between using just humans, just variant humans, and both together. At any rate, the Outer Sect New Disciple Tournament is just a week away. If I can refine the 9-Eyes Shadow GU, the potency of my Shadow Path GU will increase, albeit to a certain point. I wanted to see if I could purchase expanding Shadow GU, but I think I reached my limit in terms of Master's generosity. He already spent a few thousand primeval essence stones on all my GU and GU materials, and this was for multiple copies of everything, just to ensure I had backups. Xuanyuan planned on refining his Shadow Eyes GU into 9 Shadow Eyes GU before the tournament. It would be one of his trump cards in the tournament, alongside Dense Shadow Blade GU and Bright Red Light GU. Shadow Stinger GU and Silhouette Strings GU were also viable, and his main offensive damage source considering they required less primeval essence. Elder Luo had promised to watch over Xuanyuan during his refinement, and he agreed to let Elder Hu and Elder Kong know about the GU recipe Xuanyuan had deduced. Apparently, both would be present, alongside Elder Gong from the Refinement Soul Hall. Hearing that Elder Gong would be present, Xuanyuan unconsciously sweated a little bit, knowing that Elder Gong didn't know Xuanyuan was the disciple of Elder Luo, instead of a potential member of the Sky Soul Hall under Elder Kong. He had told Elder Luo about his encounter, alongside the fact that he had deduced the recipes for Shadow Stinger GU and Formless Shadow GU and handed them both into the sect. His master muttered something about,